They're whispering about a secret disciple Sungjin has been raising. And wow, drama. The rumor spreads fast. Because apparently that guy has finally shown up, everyone spirals into theories, wondering if he's some hidden son or legend, naturally. But the story rewinds to half a year ago, when Yang Soyu got dumped into another world. Seoul, South Korea, frames the real start. Because apparently his life needed subtitles. At school, 2 girls spot him instantly, and the reaction says he's not normal. Then Yang Soyu steps in, smiling like he owns the place. And owns it he does. His absurdly perfect face pulls every eye, because of course celebrity genes had to win. And even that isn't enough, since his reputation includes brains, not just looks. So when he's announced as Class 33's academic ace, everyone else just looks decorative. The whole school is already worshipping his genius, while mocking humility, because effort, apparently, is just another hobby he was born with. Then his athletic side detonates the room, proving he's absurdly gifted. Of course, the losers still nitpick, whining about his sportsmanship instead. But even that becomes comedy, since perfection only makes him look worse. And somehow the legend keeps growing, with every rumor calling him friend. 2 girls watch the chaos, silently confirming he's basically a campus celebrity. Then the gossip turns feral, dragging his love life through the mud. Every cruel joke hits harder, until his face is buried in shame. Still, the nickname sticks, and everyone barrels toward the next raid. 2 girls at school call everyone crazy, while rumors keep multiplying, because somehow Yang Soyu already has the whole campus orbiting him, and even the haters admit there's something infuriatingly hard to despise. Then the story cuts to his real secret, a 15-year-old dream, where legendary monk-like figures crowd in and treat him like a fraud, but he just stares blankly, proving confusion is his most dangerous weapon, since that dream started everything, back when he first chased greatness, and now the so-called monks, from another world, stand around his legend, while the bald elder smugly claims those figures were only recreations, turning the whole miracle into one giant, delusional, campus-sized flex. 1 real monk, 9 fake ones, and a training program from hell, because they dragged him in without permission and called it growth, cute. Then those dream freaks kept training him across every absurd nightmare, until the whole thing turned into pain, comedy, and a very expensive delusion. He came out whining, half broken, while they acted like that was progress. And suddenly this wasn't just hunger, debt, and travel gossip anymore. It was the legend of a kid who somehow got older, faster, and creepier. While everyone in his room pretended this miracle was totally normal, then the roofline went quiet, like the next dream was already waiting. And finally, the so-called monks promised to drag him into their world. Yang Soyu just blanks at the monks' nonsense, because apparently, competence offended someone. Then the bald elder declares this is a debut in another world. How subtle. On the rooftop, his so-called friend gets dragged into the rumor mill. Naturally, same school, same class, same dream witness, and everyone acts scandalized by it. So now the kid's friend finally promises to pull him into his world, and the response basically asks whether he understands how absurd that sounds. Meanwhile, the blue-haired onlooker just stares, quietly realizing this rumor is real. While the bald monk keeps roasting the whole middle school syndrome act with full contempt, then the logic gets even dumber. Because if the dream started alone, you're stuck, and right on cue, a truck shows up like the universe wants carnage. Disaster theory starts first, with flower pots, knives, lightning, and trucks. Naturally, then the rooftop duo keeps grinding through the rumor, while doubts still linger, because this one-night dream nonsense sounds ridiculous until someone actually survives it, and that's apparently how the whole ordeal went. From training to meeting, until waking up ended everything, leaving only one very expensive headache behind. Then the school gate and ceremony scenes prove the dream was never random, since even graduation gets haunted by those monk-like freaks and their nonsense, so the memory turns uglier, with forced training replacing any cute fantasy, and even the polished classmates end up tangled in that dream's pain, because those monks really did have enough personality issues for a whole disaster class. Sungjin's got a rotten reputation, the kind that poisons every room he enters, and of course the school pretends this flower ceremony is classy while gossip blooms, because Yang Soyu keeps drawing stares, that polished face hiding a whole scandal. Even the petals look innocent, until one touch drags back that old memory, and suddenly the quiet boy is sitting beside those dreamlike figures at 15, while the blue-haired woman gets smug, acting like this nightmare was somehow charming. Then the others swarm in, turning the whole scene into a ridiculous intervention, except the argument gets messier fast, with everyone yelling over each other, and the hooded freaks still think they can restrain the madness and lecture it. But this denial circus only proves the dream never really stopped haunting them. The monks open by sneering at everyone, and Soyu just lets it land. Meanwhile, a startled student blurts his name, and the rumor machine ignites. Soon the whole group is panicking, wondering where Sungjin vanished to. Then the dream world cracks open, dragging Soyu into that grotesque memory. At 15, he is bound beside the monk crowd, looking absurdly calm. Even the blue-haired woman gushes over his fluffy fur. Like this is cute. But the others draw weapons, trying to slice through the chaos and denial. One strike hits home, and the poor kid's eyes go nuclear wide. Next comes a brutal tackle. While Soyu keeps laughing through the restraint, then someone smacks the shock right out of him, and the dream stares back. The house stays oddly polite, while his mother slips in, half teasing, and he collapses into bed, like school and reality just tapped out. Soon enough, the boy is out cold, already sinking into that nightmare, where his mother's voice turns into a doorway, and the dream gets smug, because apparently this one-night trip into another world is where things get weird. And Soyu, dressed sharp, starts wondering if that place is even real. Then the monk crowd appears, with Soyu standing there absurdly composed, while the bald elder demands recognition, acting like intimidation is a personality. Soyu answers with pure menace, insisting dominance beats awkward introductions, and then that hand reaches out, turning politeness into a threat. The dream opens like a smug welcome, already testing Soyu's disbelief. Then the voices crowd in, acting like this nightmare owns him, while the monks greet him with fake politeness and instant menace, and the blue-haired onlookers make his sudden importance look hilariously unavoidable, because even strangers can see Soyu is no ordinary schoolboy. As the memory shifts to his old award days, where fame kept trailing him, but the monk circle tightens, with the bald elder still playing authority, until Soyu's answer lands cold, and their ceremonial nonsense starts cracking. Then one brutal strike sends the whole smug lineup flying apart. And, suddenly, the so-called another world journey turns into everyone else's humiliation. Even his eyes freeze up, as the room realizes this isn't a joke. Then the smug opponent loses it completely, screaming like dignity was never an option. The elder monk folds over next, suddenly looking far less divine than advertised. Rain-drenched tension hangs while the attacker closes in, calm as a funeral. That cold stare says enough, and the old ceremony starts dying on contact. Whatever was building in the dark finally lands, shaking the whole scene apart. The onlookers only get the aftermath, with Soyu standing there like a verdict. Blood hits the ground, and the battlefield instantly stops pretending to be sacred. Even the last survivor can only watch him with that helpless, rattled expression. One step later, the whole other world trip looks thoroughly, hilariously broken. Rain-soaked silence frames the aftermath, and something huge has already gone wrong, because the elder monk's once sacred presence is folding under Soyu's cold pressure, while the young man stands amid wreckage, calm enough to feel insulting, and the old ceremony behind him is dying, spectacularly, on contact, with bodies and blood spreading out like the other world trip was a joke, as the survivors stare at Soyu, who looks less human, more verdict. One stunned witness finally processes the disaster, suit and all, utterly rattled. Then the blue-haired girl's shock turns into the obvious realization of his name, and the bald monk starts panicking, screaming for Soyu to pull himself together, but that only makes the humiliation worse, because the legend has already broken them. The first shock lands hard, and that eye says everything, because Soyu is already standing there, calm in the wreckage, while the terrified crowd points and realizes that dangerous face, as the monk crew panics, finally naming the dragon they feared, and that name, Yang Soyu, hits like a public execution, since one desperate fool keeps shouting for him to snap back, but the witnesses only hear the rumor spreading like wildfire, that he is Sungjin's disciple, the one everybody keeps whispering about, the legendary heir of Cheongsan Monastery, supposedly unmatched in history, and now the whole room is stuck asking who he really is. At the monastery test, one newbie already sounds hopelessly outclassed, while the crowd fixates on him, because apparently fame arrives before talent does. Then the story finally pivots, and Yang Soyu's real past starts surfacing, with another world and this one treated like cousins, except the gap is monstrous, because their dreams and fantasies translate into ordinary reality over there, and that tiny trick of power has everyone gaping at the elder's skill display, except now they're laughing like idiots, acting amazed by basic spiritual competence, until the real lesson lands. Skill needs talent, and talent is brutally stubborn, especially Sungjin, whose rare gift turns every stare into a confession, and that's why they came here, hunting the boy from another world. One soul can only hold one skill, and this monk gets drafted anyway, because Sungjin of another world, Yang Soyu, gets singled out by everyone, and the old monk's smug teasing lands first, meeting that blank, deadly stare, while the kid answers with icy calm, like this whole joke is beneath him. Then the elder pivots to the overfamiliar old man, acting hilarious, not wise, but the boys grin says the trap is already closing around them, because even casual cruelty sounds expensive when he laughs at their panic. And the monk's so-called dream crossing suddenly becomes a full-blown embarrassment, with the smug threat to haunt him nightly turning into desperate overacting, before the whole scene snaps into one ridiculous chase through the dream. The bald monk's shout cuts through the dream, all menace and theater, while the startled witness proves that Yang Soya's name hits like panic, because that's the guy they're forced to fight from now on, and apparently he's the dragon every idiot was ordered to eliminate. Then the legend flashes into a blur, leaving everyone staring upward, stunned, as the chase turns frantic, and the smug old man loses composure, while the bald fool keeps spinning with that ridiculous, overconfident face, and the whole dreamscape starts collapsing into a screaming, chaotic sprint, until the world beyond finally opens into a wide, quiet sky, where all that bravado evaporates, and the nightmare ends embarrassingly. The road is wrecked, and the dragon's chase already feels hopeless, while Yang Soyu stands there like a cheat code in a cheap suit. Then he vanishes upward, turning panic into pure skybound humiliation, leaving the bald monk shrieking in disbelief, finally catching up too late, because the dragon supposedly fled somewhere impossible, beyond their pathetic reach, and the old monk's breathy smugness collapses into wheezing frustration as the city below watches the chaos shrink into sunset silence, with Sungjin left kneeling in blood, staring at the destroyed roadway, while the bald fool finally realizes the target is already dead, and that ridiculous confidence dies with him. Embarrassingly, in one last gasp, the monster's ruined face demands backup, and the panic gets louder, while the rooftop disaster below already looks hopelessly beyond saving now. That smug little well-done lands, making the witness freeze instead, because the bald monk's genius plan was always embarrassingly flimsy, honestly, and the suit-clad prodigy turns, wearing that infuriatingly calm celebrity look, which absolutely breaks the blue-haired witness, who can barely process it, as the bloodied target spasms, and everyone suddenly blurts disbelief non-stop, while the monk in purple drifts underwater, looking ridiculously outclassed already. The old bald fool keeps spiraling, trapped inside his own confusion, and the exhausted boy finally lies there, proving the joke was deadly. Yang Soyu's calm face cracks, because his hidden legend just detonated, over Cheongsan Monastery headquarters, where tonight's dream nonsense starts getting personal. Inside the chamber, the monks frame him as a boy gone heretical, and that bald elder says this rot began 3 years ago, apparently. In their twisted logic, defying truth turns you into a harmful error. So the dragon finally becomes that error today, dripping blood and humiliation, while 9 terrifying monks are exposed as Cheongsan's strongest, which is adorable, considering one blue-haired girl already knows Jinchobam died 2 years ago, and another bald witness adds Noah Ebenson from last year, casually escalating chaos, until the hooded girl drops Chaeyoung, Gyuha, and today's death list. The bald elder starts casually burying Sungjin's name, calling him useless now, while the brown-haired witness freezes, because that rumor just hit way too real, and suddenly the whole dragon problem sounds catastrophic, with chaos looming over the tower, so the monks smugly declare Cheongsan needs a strong monk to catch him. Then they pitch monastery membership like it is some holy scholarship offer. Ridiculous. Promising his original world back after the dragon job, because apparently bargaining is cute, as the corridor buzzes with questions for Master Yuguan and Sungjin of another world, until Yang Soyu sits there, staring straight ahead, trapped in that nightmare meeting. And for once, even his confident face cracks, because this is getting ugly. Now the pressure lands, and the next move decides everything. The monks halt him mid-sentence, because the dragon suddenly needs context, and the boy leans in, admitting that yes, this thing is real, while the shrine lamps glow on. As the nickname gets repeated louder, then the suited prodigy pops in, grinning as if gossip is sport, and the blue-haired girl turns that grin into a full-blown panic alert, because she starts digging up old rumors, like Christmas costume disasters. Then another rumor lands harder, about sleighs and absurd Santa dedication, and the room erupts when his master title gets dragged through the mud, so Yang Soyu stays seated, trapped between questions and secondhand humiliation, until even his cool facade wavers, and the alcohol excuse tastes desperate. The blue-haired monk girl folds under pressure, mumbling about drinking too much, and the gossip machine instantly keeps looping, piling on his absurd bar generosity, while the question of Dragon Hyung hangs there, making Yang Soyu go pale, because one stern monk flatly confirms the nightmare. Yes, everyone apparently died. Then the old shrine memory digs deeper, urging strength and a ridiculous dragon hunt, and the crowd decides he must be pathetic, which is honestly lazy detective work, before somebody shouts Master Sungjin's disciple, sending the room into confusion, since that should mean status. Unless his results were so embarrassing they backfired, so the smug loudmouths doubled down, calling him a disappointment after all that training, and now the entire room settles on the cruelest theory, that he just looks pathetic. The room erupts into frantic pointing, and suddenly everyone wants in on the joke. Yang Soya's disciple claim explodes across the board, turning swagger into courtroom-level embarrassment. Then the crowd finally names him outright, dragging Yang Soyu into center stage. He tries to posture like the star of the test, while everyone stares him down. One smug onlooker keeps the pressure on, and Yang Soya's face tightens hard. More voices pile in, yelling to be counted as Master Sungjin's only disciple. That only makes the accusation louder, with Yang Soyu standing there like he's been caught. The whole audience starts looking at him like a fake prodigy wearing borrowed confidence. Even the blue-haired loudmouth can barely keep the confusion straight anymore, and the tension hangs. Then the rules drop the hammer, because the test lasts 2 days and nobody passes today. The stare lands first, and the crowd dares him about Master Sungjin. Then the strangers circle harder, mocking his loner status, silence, and missing friends. 2 women finally spot the target, whispering if he really is disciple material, and the name Yang Soyu detonates through the crowd, trapping him center stage. One loudmouth keeps prying, praising his sharp looks while exposing shaky confidence, while the redhead and blonde look unimpressed, like his act needs better lighting. Then the old story drops, revealing the Cheongsan Task Force and Dragon Hunt, born 6 years ago from Jokwan Seonyo, with 9 celebrated members afterward. They became famous by hunting one error, turning chaos into wealth and prestige, meaning this whole legend started with monsters, then ended with ridiculous glory. Rumors of the task forces return ripple through Cheongsan's packed gates, and 2 women hype the monastery like fame and money are holy gifts, while the crowd explodes over the swollen applicant count, all chasing prestige. Then the discipleship rumor lands on Yang Soyu, making him the next target, as the redhead needles him, and the blonde watches his composure crack. With every stick close to greatness comment, his dignity gets cheaper, faster, because the crush of bodies turns into a smug little popularity parade, and the tale jumps back to that other world half a year ago, where Master Yukwan's advice finally wins, steering him past resistance and pride, toward Cheongsan Monastery, because that's where this ridiculous legend begins. The crowd's hype is already out of control, and Yang Soyu just exhales, still unfazed, because now the whole entrance test circus is screaming about returning to the original world and chasing the dragon, while the monk-like examiner coolly lays out the rules, 4 tests packed into one long night, starting with a yearly potential check, which looks less like evaluation and more like public humiliation with a scoreboard. Then comes adaptability, because apparently surviving weird labor is now a noble qualification, and finally the interview, where every desperate candidate stares ahead like prestige itself pays rent, as the first test site opens, and the crowd floods into assigned seats like obedient ants, until the red-haired girl needles Soyu about his connection to the legendary disciple, making the rumor spread even faster as everyone whispers about Master Sungjin's absurd results, and she goes straight for the kill, asking just how many flowers he can bloom. Soyu just stands there, silently taking the hype like it's routine, because Cheongsan's first practical test is the yearly potential circus, and the examiner smugly explains blooming flowers, as if talent's a vending machine. Then comes the brutal truth. Strength changes slowly, but talent decides everything. Hold a freshly cut branch, they say, and it blooms in response to power, with legends already built around 2 outcomes. The room gets painfully theatrical. One rare result was ancient history, petals lasting days like a flex. And yeah, that was Soyu, instantly famous for looking unfairly gifted. The other legend was Sungjin, so naturally everyone expects another monster, while Soyu just stares ahead, already getting compared to the guy they worship. The monks gather like judges, promising the results will speak for themselves soon, while the red-haired girl practically combusts over Master Yukwan watching in person, and the bald elder just stares, because hype means nothing to veterans. As students line up with their branches, pretending this ritual is anything but a flex, Soyu crouches in the middle, looking way too relaxed for someone being graded. Then he explains he barely held back, since nobody let him test earlier, and now he studies the Gwanguri branch, waiting for the bark to answer power, until blue petals suddenly burst out, turning that dead twig into a showpiece, which makes the crowd lose its mind as even the grumpiest elder sees it bloom, and the verdict lands cleanly. Good enough, not even close to embarrassing himself. The branch test is back, and the elders smell embarrassment. Even the veteran monk blinks when the power starts fading. The crowd panics, because this ritual is now getting weird. Their smug confidence cracks fast, as gossip turns into disbelief. Then the awakened branch snaps back, blooming like a flex. Naturally, the onlookers lose their minds, refusing reality at first. Outside, students hear the legend and act like it's folklore. Cheongsan's entrance test finally sounds real, because this day matters. Someone even recalls Sungjin's blooming flowers like ancient celebrity history. So now Soya's name spreads, and the myth only grows. The girl can barely believe it, already gossiping about Sungjin's blooming legend, and the tiny bouquet apparently starts as harmless nonsense, just a cute flex, then it swells into a giant tree, because subtlety clearly died today. Outside the test site, students lose it, treating the rumor like street mythology. Meanwhile, everyone finally admits that Cheongsan's entrance test was the real spectacle, with two onlookers trading smug little reactions, until the scale starts sinking in, their faces snap from confidence to panic, because disbelief looks embarrassing on them, as the flower storm engulfs the scene, and the crowd gets roasted by reality. One shocked student can only stare at Soyu, now impossible to ignore, and the whole mess flashes back to long ago, when that genius first arrived. Jade flowers choke the test site, turning chaos into something absurdly beautiful, while the legend of the Azure Sea blooms louder than anyone expected, and the students stare like idiots, finally admitting the spectacle is real, because that mysterious master title lands with way too much intimidating weight. Then the blossoms swell brighter, as if the whole scene wants applause, until the crowd starts whining about how long this nightmare must last, with panic spreading fast, since even the test itself feels cursed now, and the gossiping students completely lose composure, comparing the mess to infestation, while one terrified witness begs for mercy, still waiting on the count, before the scene snaps back, and Soya's forgotten beginning finally resurfaces. Soyu shuts down the count talk, acting like manpower is disposable, and the crowd freezes, because his calm makes their panic look embarrassing. Then the rumor machine backfires, turning his face into a public spectacle, while announcements declare the first test over, as if that solved anything, but the counting delay only feeds the chaos, and everyone stares at the bloom mess, until the joke shifts to his ridiculous monastery background, which sounds absurdly wealthy, with monks casually comparing bloom totals. Like this whole spiritual drama is a scoreboard. Then Soyu drifts into memories of a hidden mountain temple, all quiet power and discipline, and the monastery suddenly looks less like a joke, more like a monster hiding in plain sight, because they own city land, built a pond, and somehow still sound smug. The rumor machine starts twitching, and Soya's face becomes public theater, while a red-haired girl casually admits she was shocked earlier. Then she slides closer, acting sweet while stealing everyone's attention, as they confirm the counting's still running, because chaos loves delays, and suddenly his bloom total sounds impressive enough to annoy people, which lets him brag about ranking high, before the joke backfires, because she shrugs it off, crowning him the real flower tree monster, leaving the bench whisperfest full of amazing and surprising nonsense, until even his mockers start fumbling, unable to keep up with him, and she lands the final insult, calling out his zero motivation face. He wears that zero tension smile, like trouble is someone else's problem. Then the bench gossip hits, and his disciple rumor gets viciously unpacked. The shocked student practically malfunctions, because that calm face looks suspiciously elite. Even the red-haired girl buys it, calling him dangerously promising, annoyingly trustworthy. So now everyone is staring, like his vacant expression is some hidden weapon, and the next reaction basically screams that his eyes are giving off madness. The redhead stiffens, hit by the realization that this guy is no joke. Her amazing frenzy sends the whole crowd scrambling to re-rate him instantly. He answers the sudden attention with that smug little mystery, saying he found something interesting. Then comes the final close-up, and that grin says, "You are absolutely next." The red-headed girl suddenly demands he breeze through the second test, and that's a loaded trap, while the boy beside her stares blankly. Already suspicious this whole situation got ridiculous. Then he smirks and tells her to just follow along, casually acting untouchable, as the scene snaps wide to the academy, announcing the second test like it matters, because this round is about practical workability, and monastery chores apparently count as elite pressure, with the examiner introduced next, framed like some polished authority nobody wants to disappoint, until that name drops and the room learns Ong is a high-level monk, not a mascot, so the crowd freezes hard, suddenly understanding this isn't some ordinary entrance exam, because even task force members are being whispered about now, which sounds annoyingly serious, and everyone realizes the school just turned into a battlefield for monsters in uniform. Cheongsan is cooking up a special task force, and nobody's laughing now, because Ong steps in, looking harmlessly polite, which is always a bad sign. Then he casually drops his clone skill. Like that's not horrifying enough, straw dolls become his puppets. and the room instantly smells trouble. The second test sounds simple. Catch and bring the dolls scattered around, but he smugly admits every doll is already loaded with skill traps. The students suddenly start reacting like he is their warm-hearted grandma, which only makes the clone bird analogy hit even harder. And yes, the lovebird is apparently just a flashy disguise for abnormal talent, because this so-called ordinary bird saves its real monster mode for mating season. During mating season, this ridiculous bird apparently hits sound-breaking speed, and that so-called lovebird turns into an absurdly fast mistake, the punchline being that even skilled monks get bullied by it, while the students stare, already wondering how anyone even catches that. Then Ong smugly explains his clones will start flying everywhere, as if that makes one target sound easy, which is hilarious, because the whole room immediately freezes under that overpowered nonsense, and he cheerfully calls them error clones. Like that softens anything. Then he warns a grazing hit can shred skin like paper, which is frankly embarrassing when the injury comes from a horny bird. The room is already laughing, because Ong's exam aura feels absurdly smug. Then the old monk drops the test announcement with maddening calm, as if chaos is homework. Next comes his casual warning, and the students instantly regret being born near those dolls. One harmless touch is enough, apparently, to make those straw clones carve flesh like paper. And of course the demonstration proves it, blasting the target into panic with overkill. So the crowd starts raising their dolls, while one guy finally claims he caught it. That confidence instantly cracks, because the monk beside him sounds genuinely confused. Meanwhile, the clones keep multiplying the shock, and the students freeze at the sheer nonsense. Even the red-haired girl looks ready to riot, while Ong just keeps smiling like a menace. Then he asks how many are left, proving this exam is officially ridiculous. 15 people made it, and the whole crowd smelled the humiliation, while Ong casually cradled straw dolls, acting way too pleased with himself. Then the exam ended, and somehow everyone passed, which was insulting. The survivors immediately started gawking, because being dismissed that fast felt unreal. Ong then ordered the new passers to move into the central area, and the dolls shot off like tiny missiles, turning the sky into panic. Several candidates froze at the sight, sweating through their courage instantly, but Ong kept shouting for them to hurry, practically cheering the chaos on. The monk even barked that the test had started, while the crowd dissolved into stunned misery as the red-haired girl and others realized the joke was on them. The red-haired girl is already drowning in second test humiliation, while the rumor circus keeps calling Yang Soyu unrealistically talented, and one terrified witness instantly turns that shock into chaos, because earlier, Ong smugly framed the whole exam by merit, which made the gray-haired boy look like he had all the answers, until the lake hint arrived, pointing straight at that island tree, and the red-haired girl finally spotted the hidden clue overhead, letting the smug instructor grin as if he planned this nonsense, so she immediately dragged Yang Soyu toward the pond's absurd challenge, and now he's wondering why crossing water is suddenly his problem. By the lake, the red-haired girl quits the whole stunt, and gets waved off, so she stares across the water, realizing the island clue is the real assignment. Then the hidden tree answer clicks, and suddenly this exam feels annoyingly rigged. Her pride gets dragged through the mud, because the disciple talk was never nonsense. Back at the bench, the gray-haired spectator cackles while she storms off flaming. Into the water she goes anyway, scoffing at how shallow this challenge must be. Big mistake, because the lake instantly swallows her confidence and her composure. The gray-haired boy gloats about picking well, until she snaps back. Now she's hiding in the branches, grabbing the clue while cursing the whole plan, and the final move is pure panic, because she decides to grab it and bolt. The red-haired girl demands an explanation for that ridiculous sketch, while the gray-haired boy calmly unpacks how monks get distracted by flash, because knowledge is the real weapon that buries flashy skill setups, and the hooded monk just sits there, looking like bad news. Then she presses harder about writing, talismans, and cinnabar-soaked paper, as he smugly frames it as going against the world's truth, which is exactly when her confidence cracks and turns into alarm, while he laughs, calling the thing a tool for recreating errors, and the straw doll, talisman, and error finally click into place, leaving her frozen beside him, furious that the trap was obvious. She finally leans in, begging for more, and his calm act turns smug. Then he explains the clue like a genius, dragging her deeper into nonsense, because apparently the answer is a straw doll, and of course it is. That smug certainty hits her face like a brick, and hope starts wobbling. Then he bolts, leaving her staring after him while the whole setup tightens. She snaps, shouting for him to wait, the heel hitting like a threat, but now her eyes go wide, because the clue finally makes sick sense. He is already airborne, escaping with the doll while she processes the trap, and there he goes again. Racing off like this was always his stage. She is left behind, dangling in the obvious answer he just exposed. Her face says it all, because this clue hunt just turned insulting, and the answer screams light body technique, plus Eastern martial arts, which is adorable, since that gray-haired menace already bailed with the straw doll, leaving her stranded. While he cheerfully thanks her help and acts like this scam was teamwork, then she panics, demanding the doll back, as if dignity still exists here. But the explanation lands harder. Ancient language hidden inside every spell skill. Naturally, so now the countdown becomes a joke, and he orders another search before rest ends, while she is left laughing through the humiliation, realizing he could have escaped easily, and that flashback collapses into the present, where everyone finally sees the bastard, because he could use light body technique, and still made her do the work. Campus gossip spikes again, because Yang Soya's disciple legend keeps multiplying, and the polished pretty boy just stands there, silently ruining everyone's confidence, while the shocked crowd watches the monk count 15 hopefuls, like this is normal. Then Ong casually lowers the bar, acting like 15 is somehow decent, as the whole explanation veers into monk mythology, with everyone suddenly looking ridiculous, because some fighters win with brute force, while others weaponize knowledge and strategy, and this second test hands both camps a chance. Then the hooded rookie appears, tossing clues around while the action freaks go wild, proving the split actually matters. Ong doubles down, smugly insisting excellence never lacks either muscle or brains, so the crowd is left staring at 15 future monks. After all that hype, Ong's cold gaze hangs over the room, and the real game starts. Because this dragon exam is basically a glorified talent massacre anyway, then the second test gets wrapped, with everyone herded back into place, before the third test drops like a threat, splashing blood-red suspense everywhere. Yang Soyu stands there looking calm, while the crowd keeps rediscovering his legend, and the next blow lands so cleanly that even the smug students flinch, as one bald monk loses his composure, yelling like the rules offended him personally, while the blue-haired witness dives into the chaos, chasing answers at full speed. Then the gray-haired hopeful gets wrecked by floating strikes, proving this test is cruel, and Ong ends it all by cradling the result, still annoyingly serene. Deep in Chungzan's halls, the examiner shrugs off the spectacle, nothing special, and Yang Soyu answers that smug setup with his usual calm. Annoyingly enough, the monk admires how his skill would shine elsewhere, not trapped in this test, then starts comparing talent to personality, like a guru selling insults as wisdom. Ong flatly reveals the class was hypnotized all day, because subtlety died here, and the third test contract turns the whole room into a herd of signatures. Then the nightmare field opens, and some terrified child appears like a warning, while purple pressure floods the space, ordering everyone to disappear on command. A smug student gets wrecked mid-complaint, and suddenly the bravado looks hilarious. Even so, Ong just keeps controlling the dolls, smiling like this mess is routine. The apology storm starts here, as one panicked girl grovels over the mess, while the bagged supply pile gets yanked apart like the test is collapsing. Then a faceless examiner shadows the scene, straw doll in hand, totally unbothered, because even the sealed blade on the floor feels like bad luck with manners. Ong keeps preaching about guilt, duty, and ugly principles, sounding annoyingly enlightened, while the weapon gets left behind, proving virtue here is just dramatic luggage. Cheongsan's warped exam turns every student into a hostage with paperwork, until some loudmouth tries flexing, gets mocked, and instantly looks ridiculous, so the desperate girl barrels through the doll field, choosing survival over pride, and the chapter ends with more chaos, while a clerk quietly records the fallout. The exam starts ugly, with a failure call-out hanging over the floor, and the monks casually declare the protagonist is everyone involved, because subtlety died here. Then Yang Soya's presence cuts through the dark, all pressure and zero panic, as one poor fool gets introduced to pain the hard way, looking absolutely cooked, which only makes his terrible condition funnier, since Yang Soya's polished legend keeps spreading, while the monk court acts shocked that a refined prodigy might dislike being treated like trash, and the candidate immediately threatens whistleblowing, because public humiliation apparently has paperwork, yet Ong shrugs it off as a passing grade, never missing a chance to sound serene, before admitting fighting errors are unpleasant, like that suddenly makes the mess classy, and the righteous path rolls on, turning the whole disaster into Yang Soya's rising myth. The test opens with noble theatrics, and the horse charge looks absurdly sincere, yet the sword gleam belongs to a monk, not some random campus show-off. That alone makes the whole mountain feel chosen, and Cheongsan's doors practically glow. Meanwhile, the observers upstairs start realizing this isn't ordinary merit. It's a setup. The silver-haired candidate answers with eerie calm, as if prophecy came with cheekbones, so the examiner casually labels him interesting, which is monk language for dangerous. Outside, the campus horizon swallows the noise, already turning the mess into legend. Then the rules collapse into pure math, because apparently destiny needs equations now. Everyone braces for tomorrow's interview. Acting relieved like panic was some academic achievement, and the final verdict hits hard, since passing depends on scoring, not surviving ego. The third test is already forgotten, because Yang Soyus legend keeps spreading, and even the entrance exam now sounds incredible. Thanks to the Master Yuguan rumor, the gossip chain sharpens, while every witness acts amazed by the same polished face, because Cheongsan's head monk, Aang, is basically the smiling trap behind this whole spectacle. Yang Soyu keeps that ice-cold look, the kind that makes arrogance age terribly fast. And then Aang's entrance only adds more pressure, since apparently surviving this is the easy part, while the same smug face from before just stays unimpressed, as if hype is beneath him, until Do-hyun steals the spotlight, and the students gush over Cheongsan's resident pretty boy, calling him gorgeous and even hyping his status as Master Sungjin's disciple with zero shame, which leaves Yang Soyu staring them down, ready to expose who really deserves the legend. Yang Soyu's name starts drifting through campus, and the gossip wakes up, because even Princess Amipa gets reduced to pretty boy worship in seconds, while every student around him piles on the praise like it's a ritual, and the rumor mill turns him into a living celebrity before he even speaks. Then the scenery shifts, revealing Cheongsan's ridiculous prestige machine, with Aang standing there like a smiling trap, selling merit while rigging everything, yet Yang Soyu stays maddeningly calm, as if this whole spectacle is beneath him. One little pull, and the doors open on his return with perfect timing, which sends the whole room freezing when he casually announces he's back. And of course, the welcome committee is a table full of monsters acting cozy. The table is packed with strange prestige, and everyone's watching Aang's setup, while the meal lands with absurd seriousness, like dinner doubled as an exam. Then the late arrival gets scolded, but naturally has the worst excuse possible, because even changing clothes was too much apparently, and that's just pathetic. So the shared feast turns into a side dish scramble, with cushions missing too, and the meat gets carved with surgical confidence, like somebody planned the drama. Meanwhile, the princess chatter starts, with Kara casually handling drinks like royalty. As the food keeps getting sliced, the whole table starts looking dangerously satisfied. Then the glass tips, the drink pours, and the ritual reaches full absurdity. Even Aang finally approves, acting polite while quietly blessing tomorrow's test. The feast kicks off in full chaos, and Yang Soyu toasts like he owns the whole monastery, while half a year in this other world just casually turns him into the calmest monster here, because everyone watching remembers these same faces from daily life, now reduced to meat and gossip, and that smug little why even test us mood hits as he sits there, puffed up with confidence, until the old monk's face says the obvious, "Yes, kid, the entrance exam still matters." Then the table explodes into complaints, with the blue-haired guest acting offended by simple formality, and the bald monk just coolly explains that rules are rules, even for the chairman's son. So the silver-haired girl pushes back, pointing out how stacked Aang's clone training made this whole circus, but Yang Soyu still calls the test unfair, insisting they never even needed to take it, and that's the joke of it all, because the examiner stays polite while approving tomorrow's madness. At the table, he tries joining quietly, already radiating smug irritation. Then the silver-haired girl needles Yang Soyu, proving she saw everything, and she exposes his secret helping hand, so his coolness starts cracking, while the red-haired girl backs it up, calling his quiet obedience suspiciously unfair. Now the whole table freezes around Yang Soyu, gossip turning into a full feast, because everyone keeps asking if he was conflicted, and that's somehow the funniest part, until the silver-haired witness laughs, triggering absolute shock from the boy, and the outrage lands hard enough to suggest a group beating test, naturally, but the silver-haired girl just lounges there, smug as a cat after disaster, while the old woman turns the whole thing into absurd belly-showing comedy. Inside the monastery lounge, the chosen disciple gets handed off like a sacred burden, while the legendary Dragon King wine sits there, quietly flexing its pricey mystery, and the old monk grins like he invented pressure, asking if hesitating is a habit, because the gray-haired student still carries that battered history, yet refuses to crumble, so he swears he's not really thinking about it, which is adorable nonsense. Then the taller examiner twists it harder, insisting bold claims need actual proof, naturally, and suddenly Cheongsan's whole future gets pinned on this one ridiculously calm drinker, as the wine gleams in his hand, promising blood channels, secret growth, and chaos, because this rare medicine supposedly forges expert-level chi absurdly fast, which sounds illegal, and of course plenty of vultures are already hunting it before he finishes one sip. The precious wine goes down smooth, and the room tilts with danger, While the calm recipient becomes the monastery's newest rumor magnet, his face stays unreadable, which only makes everyone stare harder, because Cheongsan's hidden treasure finally gets named out loud, absurdly, and the so-called noble son gets handed the staff spotlight. As ancient legends about sea gods start dressing up this exam, then the monks admit this weapon once belonged to Cheongsan's pride, until the gray-haired kid realizes he's holding the whole bragging rights machine, and the staff's true identity lands like a flex nobody asked for, with the Trident reveal turning this test into pure mythic nonsense. In Cheongsan's sealed exam hall, Ong sits like Destiny's smug accountant, while the medicinal wine lands in Yang Soya's hands, and the room stiffens, because the students are already whispering that this kid is absurdly important, and the gossip only gets nastier as the rumor chain starts feeding itself, with the disciple reveal hitting harder than the bloodied face nobody saw coming, so even the nearest witness freezes, realizing the quiet boy is no joke. Then Ong casually shifts the staff challenge, like this whole myth was pre-planned, and the polished challenger steps in, grinning like he owns the room, while Yang Soyu mocks the wine's effect, acting way too unfazed for comfort, as Cheongsan's emblem glows overhead, proving this test is pure legend. Cheongsan's sacred logo practically crowns the room, turning gossip into prophecy, while the staff drill drags in another poor soul, no mercy included. Even Master Yuguan gets name-dropped, as if this circus has approval, and the bald monk just nods, because apparently chaos is now tradition. Then the entire room freezes, sensing Ong already scripted every outcome, with that terrifying little stare promising the exam isn't fair. Obviously, the monk's face says he's seen legends, and still isn't impressed, so the hidden rules finally click, making everyone watch the next move. Yang Soyu steps in looking annoyingly calm, like failure is beneath him, and the announcement lands. Prove your skill, member representative, in 5 minutes. Nobody even knows him yet, but those features scream Yang Soyu, and the calm face only makes the mystery look more expensive, because Cheongsan's representative monks are arriving, impossible to miss. While the green headquarters looms overhead like a luxury temple, with that neat sash fluttering, as if fate picked its favorite, and Yang Soyu basically claims the spotlight with a smug little me, except Ong's stare says the exam is rigged, so focus. As the monk authority turns every page, every rumor, into pressure, then the crowd hears his kindergarten throne was always reserved, so the scout bows in, announcing Yang Soyu like campus royalty. Campus royalty gets announced first, and Yang Soyu steals the ceremony spotlight. Then the same name gets paraded at graduation, making his legend look rented, and now he stands there, absurdly familiar, while everyone else turns into background noise. New monks, cameras, passers-by, all crowd in like this is his private premiere. That familiar attention hits again, and he realizes the whole room is orbiting him. Even Ong needles him, warning that attention keeps making him resemble Sungjin. Yang Soyu panics at the comparison, furious that his face keeps triggering the same rumor. Then the bald monk mocks his messy hair, like that's the grand problem here. Ong studies him coldly, approving the neat look, especially when the mouth stays shut. So the verdict is simple, handsome enough to impress, dangerous enough to embarrass everyone. Cheongsan's initiation ceremony drew executive monks, and the halls felt important. The press packed in too, because the academy wanted the message loud. Meanwhile, the old monster-grade clash still haunted everyone's memory, ugly and legendary. Even after all that chaos, the students kept staring at the same kid. Cheongsan's prestige finally stopped wobbling, and the crowd started believing again. The entrance test then pushed forward, herding everyone through the monastery's brutal machine. All that mattered now was the future, apparently sitting in one wooden strike. The reading ended with Yang Soyu named, still strong, still annoyingly beautiful. By then, his Sungjin-like confidence had already turned the campus into worship. So yeah, everyone worked hard, and Cheongsan officially claimed its new members. Ong calmly declares monastery access, while newcomers get shuffled elsewhere, but this boy gets singled out for the special task force because the mission is dragon hunting, naturally the kind of nonsense reserved for elites, and suddenly the group count gets pinned down to 3 confirmed members. Then Horan of White Flame steps in, looking suspiciously too legendary, followed by Yang Soyu, whose name lands like a flex nobody can mock anymore, since the team plans to recruit more talent through senior missions. Yet one overconfident student starts whining about the lineup, hilariously ignored, leaving Ong to keep hyping the dragon wine and expensive nonsense, while Yang Soyu just drinks, and somehow makes jealousy look classy. He casually offers the wine, then demands money for this elite grind. The kicker lands hard, grave hunting, and he loves the absurd pitch, because beneath the name lurks ancient error, rotting the world alive. Their corpses stay gloriously intact, and nature reclaims the blood, But that twisted energy lingers, clustering errors around the river, which is how blood turns into expensive-looking crystal fragments, naturally. Hunt those errors there, and you can mine mineral rewards. Push upstream, and the fragments get bigger, purer, and pricier. Of course, the river fights back harder, with barriers and strength checks, so the whole training becomes grave hunting, with crystals and monsters. Young Soyu is loving the hype, and honestly, the campus finally caught up. Ong casually drops the real twist. A senior monk is getting assigned soon. Then he reminds them this isn't lodging, because convenience was never the point. Instead, they've already prepared a nearby house. So commuting becomes the joke. The silver-haired girl gets singled out, as if she needed more pressure, and the answer lands with killer calm. Yes, they go together. The awkward silence says everything, because this pairing already looks suspiciously doomed. Still, everyone knows romance is off the table, so the teasing gets meaner. But Ong decides one more person is necessary, because subtlety is for amateurs. Even the old monk looks stunned, like the trap just got upgraded again. The rumor machine keeps growing, and Yang Soyu gets nudged toward face-to-face proof, while the blonde girl just watches, quietly dragged into his suspiciously convenient orbit. Then the very next day, the whole pair arrives at a massive private compound, and naturally, everyone starts acting shocked that monks apparently vacation in luxury, because those monastery guys clearly have money, and the redhead cannot resist clowning it, with prime downtown property stretching out like a flex nobody asked for, plus a full yard, which makes this whole setup look even more absurdly high-end. Then the room scramble begins, and chaos erupts over who gets what, until the biggest room turns out to be the master bedroom, of course, and Yang Soyu smugly claims it as his room, like that was ever in doubt. The redhead freezes up, because that face just got recognized, and the whole room starts feeling like a luxury trap. Even she can't ignore how familiar those features look now. Then the memory snaps in, and Master Sungjin gets named, which instantly drags Yang Soyu out of rumor territory, while the exam host grandly announces the next member representative, leaving the gray-haired student squinting at a painfully familiar back, until Yang Soyu gets publicly confirmed, and yes, the hype lands hard, proving these Cheongsan monks are exactly the kind nobody ever misses, with their towering headquarters looming like a rich man's monastery flex. His monk sash drifts overhead, suddenly making the whole legacy feel bigger, because the boy everyone stared at is now the obvious center, and even the exam crowd freezes when the old monk's words hit, since this same face has clearly been haunting one seat forever. Then the childhood memory pops open, dragging Yang Soyu into legend, with every stage of his life getting obnoxiously labeled for the crowd, from scout representative to middle school ceremonial face, of course. Then graduation proof seals it, and the old lady just smiles, while the rumor storm returns, making him impossible to ignore now, and suddenly Cheongsan's monks look less mysterious, more deluxe disaster. So here it is again, everyone staring at Soyu like he's unavoidable now, and even the old monk casually compares him to Sungjin, because subtlety died already. Soyu just wonders why his face keeps dragging that legend's name everywhere, while the monk roasts his hairstyle like that's somehow the real problem. Then the bald elder sizes him up and praises that terrifyingly neat presence, because silent confidence apparently looks better than speaking around these people, and suddenly Cheongsan's whole monk lineup arrives, turning the ceremony into a press event, with reporters and sponsors locking in on the announcement like it's a staged flex. Then the montage reminds everyone this chaos survived every incident so far, and still, Cheongsan stands firm, which is annoyingly bad news for doubters. Cheongsan's lineup looks spotless, while the crowd quietly obsesses over Soyu, and the monastery parade keeps rolling forward, turning discipline into a full-blown spectacle. Then the weapon grip says enough, because the future is apparently being announced by posture, and that still strong and beautiful reveal lands like a smug little coronation, as everyone stares, realizing his face and confidence just detonated Cheongsan's old rumors. So the exam concludes with Ong promoting the newcomers into Cheongsan's ranks, while the bald elder frames the next step as official monastery activity, conveniently ignoring the absurdity, and Soyu gets singled out for the special task force, because subtlety died ages ago, which means the mission is finally named, Hunt the Dragon. Very dramatic, very inconvenient, and now 3 members are confirmed, with Kara of Amapa smugly joining the list. Horan of White Flame looms over this nightmare, and some ancient corpse gets dragged into the rumor storm when they suddenly point at Yang Soyu, while Cheongsan's elders calmly recruit 5 or 6 more talents, and the complainers try removing Haran, only to be ignored spectacularly, because Soyu is next, dragged forward as the dragon wine favorite. That absurdly expensive alcohol becomes the new flex, since apparently luxury training counts, Then the blonde girl fumes at the lineup while Soyu stays annoyingly composed, as Ong explains he can still keep drinking if he pays up, and that turns the whole assignment into grave hunting, which sounds less heroic than whatever ancient error is waking up in red and rot. Great errors kept their glory alive, and blood became history's river, but twisted energy still churned there, packing the banks with gathered errors, where that blood dissolved into crystal, absurdly pretty and stupidly expensive, because hunting those mistakes pays mineral fragments, upstream rewards for survivors, and the farther in you go, the bigger and purer the loot gets, though the danger climbs too, since this river is barrier-locked and merit-gated, so the whole thing becomes grave hunting, an elegant name for nightmare mining, while the blonde girl quietly sells the vibe, and Soyu stays annoyingly calm, as Ong casually assigns a senior monk escort, plus one more thing to convey, meaning their new headquarters is housing, not comfort, and definitely not safety. A luxury house is prepped nearby, because commute misery is now somebody else's problem, and the pale blonde girl coolly starts sorting the two of them into it, while the brown-haired student repeats the lineup like Hez announcing royal inheritance, with the silver-haired girl and her partner glaring as if this is science fiction, because a man and woman living together instantly turns into scandal bait. Then Ong smugly adds one more person, proving this whole setup is a trap, as the stern old monk confirms it with that glorious, terrifying side-eye, and the boy suggests meeting them directly, like public pressure fixes everything, so the blonde girl finally relents, all while the gossip burns hotter, and the next day, Soyu arrives at the house, problem officially delivered. That gorgeous downtown house already screams money and trouble, while the students start drooling over monastery luxury, naturally, because this prime area setup is basically prestige with a roof, and the yard alone has everyone acting like they won the lottery. Then Ong drops the room rules, turning housing into a hostage negotiation, since the biggest room is obviously the master bedroom bait, so Soyu points at it like he owns the place already, and the crowd freezes, realizing this kid's confidence is absurdly specific, as someone watches from the window, the whole scheme feeling suspicious, then even the silence stammers, when Soya's name starts to spread. Young Soyu stands there like campus royalty, all calm confidence and lethal charm, while Master Sungjin's name gets dragged through the gossip mill like sacred proof, and now Soya's reputation erupts, turning one quiet student into instant headline material. Beneath that polished uniform, the monk-born prodigy looks annoyingly untouchable, because he has been overachieving since childhood, from academics to pure public magnetism, so even the room full of students starts acting like his existence is breaking news, while the absurd test setup keeps mutating into housing roulette and recruitment theater, and the crowd gets yanked into missions, room pairings, and suspiciously perfect arrangements, as even the stern monks freeze, realizing Soya's talent is way beyond casual luck, and now the old master can only stare, utterly cornered by the disciple's name. That tiny compliment lands like prophecy, because Soyu already looks suspiciously chosen. The pale-haired observer toys with the moment, as if destiny is his hobby. Even the monk has to swallow his words, terrified of what this means. Soyu's face says it all, that perfect student act suddenly catching fire. The hallway gossip detonates, and now everyone treats young Soyu like campus royalty. Do-hyun storms in, and the red-haired girl instantly starts malfunctioning over Master Sungjin. He keeps smiling, because of course he does. While panic spreads around him, the brunette confirms the shared house rumor, making the whole setup sound official. Then the room assignment hits, and bragging gets punished with humiliating precision. Soyu ends up in a neat room, proving his absurd rise was never a fluke. A hand twists the lock, and trouble quietly slips inside. Then the silver-haired kid gets checked hard by the red-shirted menace. Now he's slumped in humiliation, rethinking that roommate disaster. The pale blue-haired show-off finally explains the living arrangement. He claims temporary custody until Horan returns. How generous. Wow. And casually crowns Soyu the problem child of this world. Soyu stays bowed under it all, while the room keeps judging. Even then, they drag out his name in a hospital scene. One stunned student finally registers the absurdity, completely caught off guard. Meanwhile, the tired-looking patient just collapses under the whole spectacle. Young Soyu freezes as the rumor detonates, and everyone leans closer. Even the blue-haired witness goes rigid, because the gossip just got lethal. Then the pale-haired show-off lowers his head, muttering that fake label, like that was somehow subtle, which it absolutely was not. The bald monk doubles down, crowning Soyu the problem child publicly, while the room's loudmouth keeps barking orders, as if embarrassment were discipline. Nearby, the white-haired authority calmly watches the whole spectacle unfold, and the hidden dream figures close in, turning this into a nightmare. When the accusation lands, the stunned student can barely process the word fake. Soyu just stares back, suddenly famous, trapped, and thoroughly roasted. The fake accusation lands, and Soya's face says this is already insulting, while the red-clad brat bows in dramatized shame, making it worse. Then the so-called grave hunting mission gets announced like a grand adventure, and the pale-haired leader coolly drops the departure date, 3 days, which sends the room into chaos as the house pairing suddenly gets revealed, so the training gets scheduled absurdly tight, basically banning anyone from home, and by the time 3 days pass, the valley fills with eager hunters, all gathered in the lake, where the leader starts introducing the team, with flashy misfits and polished standouts lined up like a fashion disaster, and Moon Jeol smugly claims command, dragging in Park Wizion and Yamoyamo. New monks, Yang Soyu gets name-dropped first, and the room perks up. Then the leader lays down the rules, all seniors sharing one common goal. For the 2-week stay, everyone's trapped together, apparently to make money. So the valley explodes with arrivals, a scenic mess of eager hunters. At the lake, the water test starts, and the red energy becomes the clue. That clue is tied to an ancient error, which just sounds ominous and expensive. Upstream, the river turns redder, because something's corpse is contaminating everything. Inside the shell, the prize glows like treasure, tiny but dangerously valuable. Those mineral fragments get bigger in living creatures, and suddenly they mean money. The prize cracks open, and the corpse inside makes the whole thing grotesque, while Soya's revelation detonates the rumor mill, leaving classmates openly stunned, because upstream contamination grows nastier, proving the error is spreading hard, and downstream stays open for trainees, which sounds generous until the trap appears, with monks, students, and polished faces packed together like an overhyped audition. Do-hyun coolly shifts the mood, then announces hunting begins after the 20-kilometer mark. The next rule dump is even dumber, turning physical training into pure martial arts, so the group grudgingly advances, while one cocky idiot instantly asks for a shortcut, but the silver-haired girl shuts that down fast, since nobody here gets special treatment. Soya's reputation keeps detonating, and even the bystanders look properly rattled. Then the penalty rule drops like a joke, because laggards now chop firewood barehanded, while the smug escort keeps grinning, making the ridiculous dinner reward sound fair. As the race finally starts, and everyone dives into the river like desperate recruits, with the fastest pair already pulling ahead, leaving the rest to stare at their backs. One whining student complains about the pace, acting like this mess owes him comfort, but the river answers first, slamming his foot down and instantly silencing the bravado, because the real pressure hits hard, and suddenly nobody wants to be the slowest, while the pale-haired guy just smirks, enjoying the chaos like it's all beneath him. That footwork gets refined fast. His body already knows flow, not struggle, and the pricey medicinal wine just proves the school keeps feeding a monster, while the onlookers freeze, realizing Soya's fame isn't some cafeteria rumor, because one smug glance later, he's already outrunning arrogance and oxygen. Then the shocked student stares, as if getting past was personally offensive, but Soyu just grins. Like humiliating overconfident rivals is a daily hobby, and the monk behind him laughs. Celebrating chaos like this was planned, since the others can only gape while his speed turns ridiculous, leaving everyone else to swallow their pride, while Soyu keeps that wicked grin. The lake test explodes into chaos, as Soyu blows past everyone, absurdly untouchable, and the first idiot to laugh learns speed has no mercy, while bragging backfires instantly, because the bald monk's crowd gets roasted, their proud mouths suddenly tasting humiliation, while Soyu and the examiner tear through the water like rules were optional, turning the overconfident pack into background scenery, as the old monk keeps laughing. Then the whole field gets drowned in shouting, with everyone demanding a cheat check, but the time call lands, and Soyu is already perched ahead, smug as ever, so the accuser flails about, screaming skill hacks and excuses, which is adorable, until the bald monk reveals permission was granted earlier, ruining the complaint buffet, and that smug little loophole leaves the loudmouths looking exactly like what they are. The monastery's examiner strolls in, smugly steering this whole filthy little trap, and Soya's scar is treated like proof, because apparently surviving counts as talent. His heart powers are now a skill, which is hilarious until death becomes the fee, so the old monk keeps smiling while insisting the loophole leaves him no choice. Then Soyu launches off like a cheat code with legs, leaving rivals eating mist. One idiot tries laughing it off, but the speed gap instantly murders his pride, and the loudmouth starts yelling about cheating, as if whining counts as strategy, except the bald monk already approved the trick, so that complaint dies on arrival. Now the challenger's face twists into pure panic, realizing the rules betrayed him, while Soyu stays ahead, calmly turning every accusation into his next humiliation. At the misty exam grounds, the monk's trap already smells like arrogance, and the gray-haired brat gets laughed at before the race even starts, because the first charge leaves him frozen, while the other kid glides ahead, which naturally earns a useless little lol from the smug crowd. Then the laughing monk doubles down, cackling like rules were invented for him, while the challenger panics, getting mocked so hard his confidence evaporates, since apparently the excuse is that nobody forbade using tools. Brilliant logic. And that's when the hidden trident gets summoned like a cheap miracle, just as something appears mid-chaos, forcing everyone to reach for it, until the staff screams and the poor fool still misses, spectacularly. Cheongsan's rookie prince, Yang Soyu, steals first place with polished ease, while the smug crowd loses it over his expensive dinner obsession. Naturally, then the monks start preaching righteousness. But that loser still sits last, and the canyon itself seems to laugh when the rankings humiliate him, because this whole transit gate set up at 20 kilometers is absurd. So the reception desk keeps calling arrivals, as the test keeps tightening, until the black-haired monk casually announces everyone came for transit passes, and the blonde girl reveals they always waited here for them, just as her pointing stare makes the monk pause, utterly confused, while the notice threatens casualties, because rescue help stops at 20 kilometers. Serious injuries sounded dramatic, but the blonde receptionist kept it clinical, then casually explained the damage was piling up from unknown causes, and when he asked how bad it could get, she got poetic about dismemberment, smiling like that nightmare was just customer service, which is honestly terrifying, because this place doesn't hand out transit passes. It sorts first-timers, while the long-haired monk and red-haired student confirm 3 veterans, 4 newbies, and the monastery's trio gets labeled with infuriating confidence, no argument needed, before the bald guide proudly introduces the new Cheongsan arrivals, as if recruiting trophies. Then the blonde girl unveils mineral buying, turning the lobby into a shady marketplace, and finally she grins that everyone should hunt hard, whoever earns most. The monastery crowd freezes up, because reputation warfare just entered the lobby, and now the second betting round is live, with Jisung somehow in front, while the blonde girl sweetens the scam, turning dinner into a scoreboard. Then the rules explode into punishment math, and everybody suddenly wants mercy, because grave hunting starts now, with clones, darkness, and pure nonsense. Half a year later, the kid's still training against Ong's error copies, and he stares blankly, like this nightmare was somehow excellent homework, since those clone fights were his entire education, which is frankly unhinged. Today finally arrives, and the water test becomes a launching pad of doom. Then real error hunting begins, and he cracks that smug little face. That's the Trident, and the whole lake just got ridiculously serious, because the owner can summon it at will, like talent on autopilot, and half a year earlier, Master Yuguan brought this mysterious boy forward, turning a flashy weapon reveal into instant proof the kid belonged there, which is hilarious, since everyone remembers him as Nobility's unexpected Trident user. Then the room basically short-circuits, because he looks exactly like that person, while the students lose their minds, calling him impossibly easy, absurdly perfect, like watching young Master Sungjin, only somehow even more infuriatingly polished, with not Jisung and his so-called heaven style getting swallowed by the comparison, and now Kara's metal control only confirms it, because the legend keeps growing. Astrid's bloodcraft blooms on screen, and freshly dead monsters become her toys, while the world beyond keeps glowing like some calm, gorgeous disaster, because that mountain monastery is about to turn entrance testing into humiliation, and the smug transit girl already thinks she owns the whole schedule, until the sudden calculation request lands, and her confidence faceplants instantly. Then the scene pivots to Yang Soyu, whose rumor storm keeps spreading, as students start comparing counts, rewards, and who looked most ridiculous, with the mineral hall proving someone here massacred errors all day. So the crowd spirals harder, and even the bravest look completely cooked, because Yang Soyu's legend keeps growing, and nobody can stop it. At the monastery gate, the whole crowd begs to know who earned most, and the answer comes with 345 pieces. Like humiliation has a scoreboard. Then barehanded firewood chopping turns into the next flex, because subtlety died here, while smug students celebrate mastery and accidentally expose their own comedy, even though this is the same rookie who only just started hunting errors. So the twin challengers start posturing, and that confidence ages terribly fast. Then dinner arrives, menus get misread, and the whole room turns helplessly stupid, while the blonde girl shrugs with bottles in hand, acting way too unfazed. By the next day, the 20-kilometer march becomes mandatory, because mercy is overrated, and that final command to run sends the whole formation screaming forward. The watercourse turns brutal fast, and Soyu still humiliates everyone. Then the monastery unveils its first mission, grave hunting, like a prank with consequences, while the run everyday rule turns recruiting into public suffering, because mercy is extinct, and the transit gate opens into error-hunting chaos, where confidence gets carved apart, as danger levels are ranked like a joke nobody survives laughing at, with the ancient 60-kilometer error sitting up ahead, smugly promising disaster. So the old folk group gathers in red light, staring at Soyu like he's already a rumor, while his knees, his body, and everyone else's dignity start complaining at once. Then Cheongsan's crew gets recognized by their clothes, which is hilarious and inconvenient, and the investigation finally begins, because the injured are multiplying for a reason. Their colleague was dragged off injured, and the room instantly turned grave. The strange casualty count keeps climbing, and the wound details sound uglier. Even the red-haired and blue-haired students look stunned by this mess. So the group starts asking where the damage happened. Chasing coordinates, the long-haired guide confirms it landed near 58 kilometers, absurdly deep. That alone makes the survivors sound elite, while the bald monk goes weirdly formal. Then blood-red chaos erupts, and the first scream gets swallowed. Boots hit the slick ground, and even their armor starts getting mocked. Someone realizes those boots should be untouchable, yet they still crack under pressure. The examiner freezes, because the battlefield just exposed a monster in disguise. The battlefield erupts in red, and some poor fool gets folded instantly. Everyone keeps quiet about it, scared. An investigation will ruin the hunt, yet the injuries keep stacking, because the barrier laughs at broken bodies. From the 60-kilometer mark, almost nobody gets through anymore, shocking the observers. So the long-haired guide points out the problem, and the trio stiffens. The old monk sounds absurdly formal, then admits clues are basically non-existent. Naturally, someone suggests checking the site themselves, because subtlety died years ago. Then the whole group locks onto one more detail, a fresh ruling duo. Those two supposedly sweep everything clean, never even getting tired, annoyingly efficient. And when their names surface, the room finally remembers Park Jisung, with Yang Soyu. Two Hearts, Jisung and Reuter start the brag fight, making rivals look ridiculous. Meanwhile, the monks demand investigation, and the campus panic spreads instantly. By the 60-kilometer marker, the barrier's cruelty is already obvious. The guide calls it different, and everyone finally senses the trap. Even the blood-red water and forest energy scream that rules changed. So the group enters the second stage errors, where panic becomes standard. The monks keep preaching safety, yet everyone nods like terrified interns. Then the mineral hunt turns savage, and the grinning kid keeps winning. One rival gets carved up, because picking minerals is apparently the real work. And just when he looks away, that silver-haired girl snaps the tension. The Red Lake turns the whole rescue into a nightmare, and the silver-haired girl checks on him. His answer is pure deadpan genius. Acting like pain is just another annoying detail. Then the boot disaster gets explained, because apparently luxury footwear still loses to this hellscape. The black-clad stranger demands a closer look, and the tension suddenly gets very expensive. Even the silver-haired girl flinches, because whatever she saw was bad enough to crack her calm. The warning drops fast, and everyone realizes something new has surfaced in the bloodwater. Ahead, the red-haired kid stands ready while the others watch the mess spread. The lake itself swells with menace, like the floor just remembered how to hate people. More figures gather around him, and the entire formation starts screaming disaster. Then the water erupts again, proving the trap was never finished. The bloodwater finally births a nightmare, and the lake starts screaming in red. So the red-haired kid keeps advancing while the whole line loses composure. Then the truth drops. This place spawned the nastiest error imaginable, because these water ghosts are exactly the kind of horror nobody wanted. Naturally, the crowd freaks out once the thing actually proves real. Even the polished students start grinning like they're winning, which is adorable. But the silver-haired girl snaps first, sensing the horror creeping closer. The defense wall erupts, swallowing the attack before it can tear through. Everyone yells for the others to stop, as if panic ever listens. And then the younger student smugly confirms it, because of course he knew. He catches the warning too late, and the Red Sea already feels wrong. Young Soyu still smiles, because of course he practiced before this mess. The crowd hears him brag, then instantly realizes he meant it. Even that long-haired monk freezes, finally noticing the trap's ugly teeth. Blood starts biting through the flood, and suddenly the boots aren't safe. Young Soyu stays absurdly calm, like this disaster was a warm-up. The others scream for caution, while the monster laughs in pure panic fuel. Then the water ghosts burst up, grotesque and starving for trouble. The silver-haired girl and the brown-haired boy both brace for impact, because these things terrify second-rate errors, let alone rookies. Because drowned corpses obey, the red tide fights like hired muscle, so the real target is the hidden body behind everything, carefully, and some dead use old skills too, making cleanup absurdly annoying. However, Even ancient blood carries iron, which is where things get interesting, because there's enough of it to forge a river, not a puddle, and the longer it sits, the nastier that river gets, especially in iron-rich places, where this silver-haired menace starts feeling invincible, but her confidence gets colder under the camera, because she finally notices the value of that blood is pure waste, or so she smugly judges. Then the finishing strike drops in, proving her little flex was disposable. The bloodwater rises like a cheap flex, until Astrid clocks the trick, because dead flesh still leaks iron, and she knows that game all too well. Spread it in the right place, and suddenly waste becomes a weapon. But only iron-heavy ground can handle that mess, which she smugly announces, while the other students lose it, realizing the trap needed brutal precision, and the girl in black treats the whole massacre like stress relief, which is why everyone instantly warns the cocky crowd not to provoke her. Then Moongeel's name drops. The famous princess of Amipa, no less, a metal genius recruited through years of obsession, making this whole scene look ridiculous. And now the real punch lands, because Soyu can handle metal too. The bloodwater trap finally cracks open, and someone spots the weakness. Then the black-clad specialist shrugs as the whole swamp starts talking back. Everybody freezes, because that eerie blood-red eye just found its target. Even the stunned student crowd realizes this was precision, not luck. And the cocky chatter dies fast once Soyu steps out looking unimpressed. He turns the disgusting flood into a weapon. Like this is Tuesday. Behind him, the ghost swarm writhes in panic, suddenly on defense. The masked horror keeps pressing its smug little threat, asking who's next. But the answer lands hard, as the blade tears straight through the core. So yeah, the trap is exposed, and Soyu just stole the whole moment. The lake erupts in blood-red chaos, and suddenly the threat has a target. Young Soyu keeps grinning like this. Disaster was already his spotlight. The smug monk looks pleased, which is exactly how traps advertise themselves. The students panic at the rules, because apparently this is training now, not sanity. Soyu starts hearing mineral nonsense. And yes, he is absolutely interested. Ang explains the water ghosts as profitable pests, which is disgusting genius. 3 days of ghost training later, everyone else looks miserable, Soyu included. Then he leans in, eager to see what expensive treasure the trap coughs up. The ground holds its breath as the group notices that ugly, half-hidden prize, and one suspicious red eye surfaces, because of course the nightmare is still watching. Blonde hair, glasses, and panic, because the rumor hit her first. Then the blood pearl gets explained as absurdly priceless, naturally. So the treasure basket somehow becomes the room's new obsession, instantly. The guy asking the price is visibly crumbling under the humiliation, and the blonde girl can only stammer harder, proving panic is contagious. Meanwhile, the monastery backdrop sells this trap like it is sacred tradition. At the lake, the smug lineup starts another round of ridiculous questions. Everyone fixates on food instead of danger, because priorities are dead. Even the scary monk squad hears the menu debate and stays blank. Then the whole scene spirals into open confusion. Menu? Menu? The monk's jaw drops at the sudden ribeye-level luxury. And honestly, fair, because the whole room instantly devolves into steak worship, with even the blonde girl glowing. Then the lake behind the monastery turns blood red, like danger needed better branding. And out of that darkness, those hostile red eyes just sit there, judging everyone, while the hooded monk lineup keeps lurking in silence, looking about as welcoming as a curse. Meanwhile, the smug student keeps bragging that they practiced for days, because apparently overconfidence is cardio, and the table scene proves it. With the whole crew calling repetition muscle memory, so Kara gets buried under the absurdity, left stunned that skill was supposedly optional. Then the old woman casually explains freshwater fishing like she invented survival itself. Before the lesson turns brutal, stone splashes out fish, and spearing becomes the new genius move. Cheongsan's monk calmly calls the trap merciful, as if humiliation counts as charity. Then the lake lesson gets weird. Kara becomes bait, and the spear is your answer. The eager student preaches repetition, selling practice like it's some sacred miracle, yet the others whine about non-stop training, because apparently survival ruined their comfort. One swaggering genius insists misery at home was worse, and wow, stunning life choices. Then the silent long-haired man just stares, while Soyu chews his snack like royalty. The mood flips when the half-hidden master finally looks impressed, which is adorable. Even he admits the water ghost rarity, and that red pearl hype is stupidly high. Meanwhile, the lounge disaster keeps snoozing, while the staff counts money and chaos. By then the desk crew is suffocating, because this whole test is pure madness. The lounge is buzzing, and even Soyus' boredom looks suspiciously legendary now. Meanwhile, the blonde kid keeps chewing, like chaos is just a side dish. Campus gossip erupts harder, because apparently Soyu being famous was merely foreshadowing. Then he tosses a lazy blessing, making that smugness look embarrassingly earned. Soyu side-eyes the luck talk, already knowing this game is theater. The rules snap into place. Start now, lose by hesitation, no mercy. Hands clash on rock, paper, scissors, and everybody suddenly remembers fear. The match ends tied, which is adorable considering how dramatic they made it. Soyu casually names Moonguile, then admits this win had an asterisk. One last stare lands hard, because next time, pride may actually bleed. Campus gossip keeps snowballing, because Soyu's fame was only the opening act, then the classroom seat draw crowns him anyway. Like the universe is showing off, while he brags that luck always favored him, as if fate had a favorite. And that confidence gets even uglier, because he claims skill, trident, and instinct all agree, so the clenched fist becomes the whole joke. A tiny trophy of absurd certainty. Since finding the most profitable mistake here somehow sounds exactly like his brand, leaving the silver-haired onlookers stunned, face red, as the whole thing feels ridiculous, yet even that embarrassment reads real, because his conviction comes with terrifying backing, and Soyu keeps that stick poised, quietly proving the strongest weapon is momentum. Then he points at the prize like it was destiny, not luck, not again. The veteran blushes like a rookie, pretending embarrassment is charming, not pathetic. His hand settles with the confidence of someone already writing history, naturally. Then comes the knee excuse, because apparently legends need damage reports too. Back at the table, that old injury story turns into recruitment chatter, and suddenly the room remembers blood, blades, and that absurdly ugly massacre. He shrugs off the surgeries, saying pain just retired his running dreams. The onlookers flinch when the portal haze opens, because trouble loves entrance effects. Decades at Cheongsan later, he still claims his pride earned every scar. He accepts the fallout without regret, which is almost annoying enough to respect. Then Yang Soyu stares him down, making even the veteran rethink today. That stare says the veteran already knows this trip is trouble. Meanwhile, the polished prodigy keeps hearing how enviable that path looks. The group heads for the 66-kilometer point, because subtlety died early. Everyone recognizes that place instantly, and the mood gets real quiet. Turns out the whole grave hunt started around the ancient error's corpse. So this source investigation becomes the monastery's favorite excuse for chaos. Then the rumors hit, whispering strange casualties and making innocents look expensive. One girl calls it body dismemberment, while another shrugs, just injured and taken away. Even the veteran admits this mission could turn uglier than expected. And of course, the monks still want the richest crew to pay, because apparently misery needs funding. So now the crew is haggling over profits, because apparently danger has a cash receipt, and the excited hands shooting up means everyone's ready to chase the 66-kilometer prize, while the silver-haired pair casually drag in spatial movement, like it's a cheap party trick. And the long-haired veteran sells the whole run as a fun day together, which is adorable nonsense, since the smiling kid already knows the next gimmick is last-place dinner, then a ridiculous climb, where the rules keep mutating just to humiliate the losers. And yes, the monastery still wants payment. By the 60-kilometer marker, the atmosphere goes red with danger, and nobody's pretending anymore, because the long-haired monk's face says he has finally noticed something nasty closing in. After that, the screen cuts to the earlier setup, where Master Yukwon's warning lands heavy, and the joke is over, because this test was never fair from the start. Cheongsan's priceless duo is front and center, and nobody's pretending they're expendable now. The silver-haired girl keeps that eerie calm, like chaos is her idea of small talk, while the blood-red void answers her presence, because apparently subtlety got murdered off-screen. Her floating return makes the onlookers blink hard. As if this circus needed more nonsense, then the whole field erupts into a 6-person panic lineup, proving everyone's courage is decorative, and the boys' brain short-circuits over mid-air movement, because gravity just took the afternoon off, leaving that one stunned eye to sell the same question every loser always asks: how? As the rooftop legend gets dragged into the sky, belongs to Dragon's Flex. Incredibly dramatic. But even that smug confidence starts cracking once the enemy slips somewhere unreachable, and suddenly the shocked face says it all. The joke is over now. Moonjol calls water into the 5-element lineup, and the mood sharpens. Then the lake erupts into defense mode, shocking everyone who thought they were safe. The red-haired student panics and orders those two to get moved out, while the next voice insists on buying time, sending them elsewhere fast. After that, somebody smugly raises a can and says, "Look," and the drink cracks open with a tiny snap, like a joke turning serious. The jelly lesson follows. Because timing apparently matters more than anyone's pride, then comes the warning about moving people, since careless heads get bonked, all while the silver-haired girl listens to Moonguile like it's devotion, and the final kicker lands. Even power has limits, including appetite. The red-haired rookie suddenly asks why he joined this mission, and the smug answer is simple. Chongzan's stars get sent back if hurt, while the whole crew gets ordered out fast, because losing limbs costs absurdly 5 million won. Then the transport spell snaps open, and everyone gets shoved into motion, no dignity included. The next lesson is all about timing, because power only matters when it actually lands, but water walls do not care about confidence, and the defense gets blocked anyway. Even then, the gray-haired fighter refuses to fold, staring like stubbornness itself has a pulse, because this weapon can cut anything, if the user's mind stops being indecisive, so the blonde teammate carves through the dark like a lunatic with purpose, and the battlefield finally breathes. After that miracle, even the blade pauses, as if it also needs to think. Yang Soya's eyes go feral, and the rumor machine starts roaring as the water test detonates, leaving everyone stunned by sheer force, while one kid panics for backup because solo heroics are embarrassingly stupid, and the gray-haired fighter gets blasted by pressure, still refusing to fold. Then the lake coughs up blood-red horrors, proving nature can be petty, but Yang Soyu keeps cutting through the mess, after finally locking in, until even the terrified onlookers freeze, realizing he's absurdly dangerous, and the red-haired student stares back, half shocked, half impressed, because Yamoyamo's skill turns the battlefield into a nightmare for everyone else, and somehow he's still the one, standing above that swirling black void. The whole campus freezes as a reputation bomb detonates overhead, and the first student is left staring, because that rumor hit absurdly hard. Meanwhile, the bald monk keeps sipping tea, looking smug, like traps are his hobby, while the office settles into luxury, and everybody pretends this isn't suspiciously important. Then Yang Soya's name starts echoing across the city skyline, because apparently fame has legs, and the old monk just grunts, still hiding behind that ridiculous mustache and cup, before panic erupts at the desk. Since even his backup plan gets violently rattled, as the monk finally blurts out the Yamo connection, trying to act terrified on purpose, but Yang Soyu only stares back, cool and unreadable, like this mess is routine, and the bald examiner ends up crushed under that boot, realizing he misread everything. The room goes dead quiet, and Yang Soyu just looks stunned, because apparently reality has finally decided to get weird. While the desk erupts and nobody knows why that thing showed up in the first place, as the whole setup screams trap with extra seasoning, and the students start losing their minds, blaming the impossible object like it owes them answers. Then the panic gets louder when the floating clue keeps hovering, mocking everyone's confidence, while a silver-haired girl drifts into view, looking calmer than the situation deserves, and the dragon reveal hits like a flex, sending the room straight into blackout-level disbelief, before the red-haired kid gets grabbed. Because yes, even resistance looks pathetic here, as the examiner's smug mask finally cracks, with his expensive robe and holy nonsense, getting crushed by Yang Soya's fist and reputation, which is honestly overdue. The room is already cracking apart, and this cheap trap is showing off, while the silver-haired girl gets yanked forward, because subtlety died first. Now the whole office erupts, her backlash shredding the setup and humiliating the handler, and she stares in raw disbelief, as his grab looks embarrassingly desperate. Then the magic reveal lands, naming Yang Soyu like a headline everybody feared, with Cheongsan's name following right behind, and her brain clearly short-circuiting. Even Master Yuguan looks shaken here, sweating through that monk mask, because the kid's panic is now contagious, and shouting for the master sounds useless. The poor fool begs for reinforcements, as if backup can save this circus, but Yang Soya's presence says otherwise, and the escape plan is already collapsing. Blood stains the scene, and somebody's hand lies there like a bad omen, while the room turns awkwardly domestic, with spoonfuls of care offered back, because the silver-haired guy is still playing tough, even while starving, and his caretaker's warning about fluids sounds less medicinal, more judgmental. Then the others start plotting a hilarious intervention, confident as ever, as if forcing food down him will magically fix his entire personality, yet his expression barely moves, cool enough to make the whole scheme wobble, so they settle for waiting, smugly assuming the kids will return soon, before the camera pulls back to the house, where everybody's told to behave, and suddenly we're dumped at a transit gate, because trouble clearly travels. Inside the reception hall, the newcomers crowd the desk, already smelling trouble, until staff panic kicks in and the whole gate turns into a bad news relay, and that blonde girl nearly short-circuits, because apparently even gossip has numbers now, while the whole Cheongsan crowd orders an emergency lockdown, like subtlety ever existed. Then Astrid drops her terrifying skill title, turning corpse blood into pure nightmare fuel, with the blonde girl trying to track the danger, and the others pretending calm exists, because somebody actually explains the dead bodies were brought just for a funeral, casually. Then the river goes full sabotage mode, flowing backward like reality hit a wall, leaving the stunned boys and the blonde girl staring, as if logic ever mattered, and that reversed water screams one thing loud enough for everyone to panic. The black void opens on a warning, and the body count starts whispering, because a silver-haired girl drifts through blood-red hell, holding her nerve, while the monster admits it missed 3 kills, and one was that vanished girl. Then it eyes another boy too, as if his survival already offended it. The reply lands cold, confirming the boy was wielding the trident, irritatingly useful, and the crimson abyss snarls that 7 were there, though only 5 remain standing, making the whole group realize their entrance was clumsy, loud, and painfully unaware. As fate gets muttered like a joke, then the demon grins at their bad luck, before a monstrous face erupts from the red flood, mocking them with pure madness, and the explosion follows, because Chungsan's trap just got publicly bullied. The red flood tears open, and the nightmare's first strike lands hard. White-hot shockwaves roar outward. Because somebody finally hit back properly, the blast keeps blooming, turning that crimson swamp into a glowing disaster, and the masked intruder hangs dead center, like the apocalypse's favorite punchline. The silver-haired woman stays eerily calm, while the whole mess worships her nerve. Her old companions look just as untouchable, standing there like trouble wearing robes. One monk finally realizes his trap is collapsing, and that smirk dies fast. He even admits the form is familiar, then arrogantly discards his own protection. The Red Sea answers with a savage bite, swallowing his foot with insult, and now the mastermind gets dragged by his own nightmare, perfectly humiliating himself. The silver-haired terror raises her blade, and the swamp starts trembling. Her red-eyed stare says the monster parade is already doomed. Then blood explodes everywhere, because her defense is basically public humiliation, and she stands there afterward, drenched but smug, like she planned the mess, before casually explaining she built this body with half her horn, then mocking the enemy's missing pieces as proof of a pathetic failure. While the ancient error behind her gets pinned like a cheap decoration, she tosses aside the old skull, claiming the blood-touched one works better, and the battlefield answers with another crimson surge as she settles in. Finally, the trap's pillar shatters, which is honestly just embarrassing. The trap's pillar is cracking now, and Ong's smug setup looks pathetic, while the silver-haired woman sits amid bones, calmly bathing in crimson chaos. Then one brutal strike turns the skull into a screaming blood fountain, and the battlefield itself becomes a white-hot river of shredded red panic, because she stands there smiling, looking annoyingly unbothered by the carnage, as if humans are arrogant for calling blood-soaked corpses mere corpses. Then she proves the point by ripping the entire field apart, leaving her rival frozen while her own body keeps rebuilding the nightmare, and the so-called Dragon Lord's masterpiece hangs there like decorative trash, before she questions that form. And the humiliation lands even harder. Blood stains her silver face, and the horn situation looks embarrassingly unstable, while Yang Soya's calm little glow keeps detonating campus gossip everywhere. As the confrontation opens around the monk trap, with everyone already boxed in, and the silver-haired powerhouse exhales like this whole mess is beneath her, because the others are still staring while she casually rejects the whole battlefield, then admits her horn needs time. So she'll hide the body instead, which is exactly the kind of line that makes weaklings suddenly remember fear. As the group backs off and follows her lead without much dignity, and the air keeps trembling, like her presence alone is already a threat. However, from ancient times until now, humiliation has only made her smile harder. That silver-haired menace is grinning like the whole battlefield already belongs to her. Then she brands the mess as grave hunting, because subtlety clearly died first, and when she talks about gifting their graves, everyone else suddenly gets very quiet. Beyond the swamp, the land stretches under a sunset that feels illegally beautiful, yet the red blast rolling across it says the trap is collapsing exactly as planned, leaving Ong's carefully arranged nightmare scattered on the ground, all swagger and no control, while the whole fiasco gets reduced to a quiet label outside the sauna and spa. And somewhere before the explosion, Astrid's contact started this chain of trouble, as one calm student sorts the new rumor pile and promises updates later, while the monk ends up bowing low, proving arrogance really does kneel eventually. Inside Ong's polished little hideout, his accident excuse already sounds pathetic, because the so-called victim is plainly hiding a dragon under that bowed posture, and the poor monk can only spiral harder, pretending he somehow missed the monster, while the silver-haired witness watches like this whole setup was always obvious. Then Kara gets handed off to Ong for a few days, as if that helps, and the old woman coolly decides she'll escort her, because somebody here still has manners. Meanwhile, campus gossip turns Yang Soyu into a legend overnight, which is embarrassing for everyone else, since the rumor mill now worships his name and Park Ji-sung's, like they personally invented fame, and even the quiet observers keep staring, realizing the trap has already snapped shut, leaving the city skyline glowing like nothing happened, which is exactly how disasters begin. Inside the car, the mood is already tense. With Do-hyun cruising like trouble has a schedule, he pokes at Soya's silence, grinning like he knows exactly where the pressure points are. Soyu stays folded into thought, then finally mutters it's Do-hyun he's thinking about. That drifting confession leads into his real problem. Years of psychotic dreams gnawing at him. He says he's chased every theory possible, but still came up empty on purpose. Then the city lights slide by as he admits today only sharpened his answer. And his temper, he flat out calls himself angry, which is adorable for a guy trying to look composed. But the anger has a target now, and he starts hunting for somewhere safer to unleash it. Do-hyun's smug face gets the blame, yet Soyu insists he can't take it out on the driver. So the bastard laughs it off, while Soyu sits there quietly plotting his next disaster. Inside the car, Soyu finally connects the tension to Master Yukwon, then mutters he'd love to beat Do-hyun. If reality weren't annoying, but the guy is so small-looking he almost earns pity instead, while Soyu buries his face, trying not to let tears win, and somehow that pathetic restraint makes the whole ride bearable, because even his old admiration for Moongyeol feels irrelevant now, so Do-hyun just shrugs it off with infuriating, polished indifference, while Soya's sharp eye settles into that dark, dangerous mood, as the van keeps gliding through the glowing city like nothing happened, and by the time they arrive, the whole place feels suspiciously quiet. The van pulls up, and Do-hyun acts annoyingly casual already, while the tiny-looking attendant carries the box like this is nothing. Then they slip inside the house, keeping the whole mood suspiciously polite. As Soyu climbs the stairs, face hidden, temper already souring, because everyone keeps circling his reputation like it's campus currency now, and even one sharp glance can feel like a headline exploding. With bodies moving fast through the halls, the place turns into a blur, while Soyu locks onto that dangerous stare, finally done pretending he's fine, and Do-hyun just keeps flashing that polished face, the smug little menace, as the silence settles in, because this trip is already cursed. That smug smile lands first, and the whole room gets instantly infected, because the house already feels cursed, and the gossip circus keeps rolling, with everyone buzzing over Soya's name. The rumor mill goes feral, while the fake outrage melts fast, since being special suddenly sounds expensive. Then the prank escalates, because sharing a house is apparently comedy gold, and Soyu gets dragged into bizarre soulmate logic, which is embarrassing nonsense, until the tension finally drains, leaving him weirdly relieved and less poisoned. But that grin says the nightmare's still funnier than it has any right to be, and when he forgets someone nearby, the house atmosphere somehow turns playful. Even the ominous grip in the dark looks like the start of trouble. Soya's reputation detonates, and the girl beside him sounds oddly relieved now. Her rushed cheer only proves the rumors already swallowing the whole campus. Then the hallway gossip starts sprinting ahead, because subtlety died hours ago, and suddenly everyone treats his disciple title like premium social currency, which only makes the house assignment prank feel even more absurdly targeted. The ceiling noise erupts again, and now the floor above him taunts, while Soya's room setup lands him right under the loudest troublemaker, leaving the silver-haired roommate staring like this disaster was personally curated. Even Soya's smug little reaction cracks when that arrangement finally sinks in, because the house was never peaceful, just waiting to embarrass him. The rumor mill hits first, and suddenly his face is campus legend. Even the gossip crowd admits this disciple title is getting ridiculous. Now everyone's acting like Master Sungjin adopted a walking scandal, naturally, and the room setup lands him with trouble, because fate loves humiliation. The whole thing nearly backfires when that first knock reveals the trap, so the uneasy roommate standoff starts inside a painfully small bedroom. Then the situation collapses into pure awkwardness. Like everyone forgot dignity, because Monk Do-hyun apparently remembered something crucial at the worst time. Soyu stands there while the realization sharpens, and the room goes silent. Yeah, the reputation's exploding, but this disaster is still very much alive. These guys are already acting like legends, and fate's smug about it. While Ong's trap hangs over the room like a joke, nobody laughed at. Then the hidden weapon snaps in, exposing how flimsy the setup was, and the cramped bedroom turns into a ridiculous roommate ambush. Fast, so Soyu gets cornered, staring down chaos with that annoyed silence. When the older monk finally blunders into the fight with disastrous timing, and Soya's grip tightens, because the room just went insultingly serious. Then the whole exchange detonates, sending bodies and pride flying everywhere. Afterward, he squares up, deciding this mess ends right here, while the shocked onlooker realizes Soyu was the one needing restraint. The trap's hidden blade snaps open, exposing how flimsy this setup really was, and Soyu surges in, meeting the ambush with flat-eyed annoyance. While the brown-haired liar from earlier gets grabbed before finishing the act, their bodies slam apart, turning the cramped room into slapstick chaos, and the room's confidence instantly dies when Soyu lands the cleaner hit. His stare hardens, like he's finally done tolerating this circus. Then the attacker freezes, clutching his sleeve as if that helps, because now the old monk's control game is falling apart beautifully, and the once smug audience is left gaping at Soyu's calm grin, realizing the real problem was never him, but everyone else. In the cramped room, Soyu's grip snaps the first attack apart instantly, and the bed becomes a launch pad for one humiliating airborne pileup, with the tough guy eating a cleaner counter than he deserved, while Soyu's glare says this circus is done, and he knows it, because the idiot still talks big, only to get shown mercy. Then Soyu calls out the body language like a joke nobody asked for, as the room's trashy confidence collapses and the attacker staggers backward, leaving the medic gear, the bed, and the floor in total chaos, while Soyu finishes the exchange with a brutal shutdown of the grab, and the loudmouth gets dinner cancelled, because arrogance makes terrible timing. The room is already cracking, and somebody just ate a brutal counter, because this genius planned a proper beating, then got humbled instantly. Now he's seething about missing his chance, while Soyu barely blinks, and the crowd is realizing that skinny bastard talk aged horribly, since the loudmouth's outrage only makes him look smaller, louder, and dumber, while everyone else starts turning the whole mess into fresh gossip, with students piling onto the rumor that Soyu's name is getting ridiculous, and the attacker, sweating under real pressure, finally looks completely broken, as the finishing grip shuts him down, and his pride hits the floor, leaving Soyu standing there like mercy itself just canceled dinner. Under the lantern glow, the eerie, yellow-robed stalker keeps the pressure tight, while young Soyu stays annoyingly calm, like panic missed his address entirely, and the loudmouth's whole intimidation routine backfires, flipping him into airborne embarrassment, because this night breeze moment is just another smug lecture in humiliation, as the second-floor setup turns into a weird little dare no one respects, with the dangling straw-faced menace explaining, in essence, that falling is the real problem, and the neighborhood kids are already gossiping like they found tonight's free entertainment, while the balcony gets treated like a gym, a joke, and a crime scene. But young Soyu keeps talking coolly, acting like this disaster is mildly inconvenient, and that final look says today is terrible, mostly for everyone else. Young Soyu stands there like a smug prince, pinning the whole room flat, while even the blue-haired gossip machine exhales, because apparently the legend just keeps growing, and now the rooftop absurdity turns into breathing exercises, with Soyu acting annoyingly composed, as the so-called victim gets shoved into the lesson and the whole stunt starts looking painfully one-sided. Then the campus rumor mill stretches his fame even farther, because students love a good overhyped disaster, and the brown-haired loudmouth is already cracking, trapped inside his own embarrassingly bad take, until the blue-haired kid becomes a human apology letter, screaming pain while getting absolutely owned. Then Soyu coolly doubles down, basically telling him to breathe and stop being dramatic, before the poor guy folds completely, admitting the overreaction like it was never his choice, and Soyu finishes by naming the culprit, leaving the smug clown with nowhere left to hide. Young Soyu stays absurdly calm, turning brutal training into a smug pep talk, while the battered kid is ordered to swallow pain and stop acting special. Then the breathing drill starts, and the whole scene becomes a humiliating rhythm lesson, as Soyu casually conducts the rooftop like some annoying prodigy with zero panic. The kid's knees buckle, because apparently composure is optional when you're losing, and Soyu keeps the pressure on, mocking the drama with icy control, until the poor guy finally folds, breathing shakily and cussing through defeat, where Soyu calls that reaction pathetic, then drags out the real culprit, leaving the brown-haired loudmouth stranded in his own bad excuse, completely exposed, while Soyu stands over the mess, and everyone else quietly updates his legend. On the rooftop, the masked troublemaker finally starts sounding fragile. Soyu coolly tells him to wait, and come back once he's calm, rude. Then he turns away, leaving that dramatic mess outside like leftover trash. Behind the insult, he casually invokes Master Yugwan and Master Sungjin's shadow. The rooftop gossip machine freezes, because Soyu's reputation is now weaponized. Ong's trap keeps crackling, while the boy's confidence looks hilariously expired. Tomorrow hangs over everything. As if this humiliation already became a warning, Soyu walks off like he owns the building, teal aura trailing behind. The masked kid finally snaps wide-eyed, realizing he got publicly outplayed, and the whole exchange lands with a brutal crack, reputation fully shattered. The trap finally snaps shut, and the whole room jerks with impact. Ong's setup keeps hammering, while the crowd starts regretting its confidence. Yang Soya's face stays infuriatingly calm, making panic look amateurish. The warning in his eyes says the joke is already over. Even his opponent's nerves crack, because overconfidence dies embarrassingly fast. That teal pressure around Soyu? Yeah, it screams trouble for everyone nearby. The brown-shirted loudmouth gets clipped, and instantly loses all that swagger. Then the verdict drops. Talk all you want, but no dialogue saves you. Soyu forces the issue. Summoning power like hesitation was never an option. And just like that, his cowardice gets publicly exposed as useless. The room erupts with that ugly headshot panic, and Soyu just stays cold, while the brown-haired idiot freezes, finally realizing this was not bragging season, because the second impact lands like a public execution, blood and pride included, and Soya's body glows with that absurd pressure, turning the whole duel grotesquely one-sided, leaving the loudmouth staring in disbelief, like reality itself forgot to warn him, since every energy channel is open now. And yes, that sounds as dangerous as it looks, with the opponent already muttering excuses, as if side effects care about his feelings. Then the clash tightens into a brutal standoff. Both fighters boxed into the same tiny nightmare, and the warning spreads fast, because pushing this further means everyone gets wrecked, not just one fool, until Soyu slips in close and ends the joke by assaulting the eye line. Blood and pride explode together, as Soya's strike lands like public execution, while the loudmouth folds under the pressure, face first into humiliation, and the room goes dead silent, because this embarrassment is somehow worse than the trap itself, with every excuse dying before it can breathe, as Soyu calmly keeps control, turning the whole mess into his stage, and the kneeling fool realizes too late he's become the punchline, because that smug challenge just got erased by pure, surgical disrespect. Then Soya's cold stare finishes the job, middle finger energy included, leaving the wreck behind him as campus gossip starts spreading again, and by morning, even the whole school feels his reputation shaking the skyline. The VIP room door sets the stage, and the whole school's ego starts sweating, as Ong carries in the wounded prodigy, while boasting about Yamo's sacrifice. But the real comedy lands when everyone panics over the fight, then the bragging, because that wounded kid was apparently raised on Eastern martial arts and bad manners, and when they call him Yang Soyu, the room finally realizes who stole the spotlight. Even Master Yukwon gets dragged into the conversation, watching this mess with interest, while Soyu stays absurdly calm, turning injury talk into a lecture on luck. Then he starts sounding like a philosopher, reminding everyone senses are easy to bully, and the hospital bed swagger only gets worse, since even his dreams sound overqualified, so the whole place ends up orbiting his reputation, like the campus already lost. A supposedly impossible dream bleeds into reality, and Soyu starts dissecting the senses. Then the room gets warned that he's still holding back, which is adorable, really, because to him, this whole other world is just dream logic. Wearing a lab coat, even the comeback to reality sounds like another layer of that same nightmare. And there it is, the smug verdict that he's nothing but a dream-addicted fraud, except Soya's tone says he's not doubting himself at all, just mocking everyone else. He swears he'll never take anything seriously, which somehow makes him scarier. The gossip brigade detonates next, because nobody can ignore that absurd reputation surge, and then the cleanup begins, with one idiot getting folded into total embarrassment, while Soyu stands there like a final boss, untouched by anybody's chaos. Ong's grip snaps the blue-haired witness awake, pure panic, while Soya's smug composure pins him down like a joke, because the monk declares hell never wobble, ever again, and Soyu answers that it's all just dream garbage anyway. From the monastery corridor to that bright city skyline, the elder explains the roommates were supposed to motivate each other, but naturally, those geniuses turned it into a brawl instead, so Soyu gets the hospital bed treatment, complete with cursed gruel, which he already knows the brown-haired fool won't touch, and that last spoonful lands harder than any sermon. A stunned silver-haired onlooker freezes at the rumor's first crack, while the brown-haired brat breaks down, laughing like he owns the whole scandal. Then Soyu shuts that mouth with one spoonful of cursed gruel, ruthless as ever, and suddenly the same idiot is whining about being hung upside down. Brilliant strategy, but Soyu only hardens further, swearing this humiliation ends right here, because even the silver-haired witness admits the situation definitely had some stimulation, and the future talk starts sounding noble. If you ignore all the hospital bed misery, while Master Yukwon's prayer room waits in silence, classy as a funeral, with the blade displayed like a sermon nobody dares interrupt, and now its aura shudders, because Soya's reputation refuses to stay buried. The demon sword ignites first, screaming with a nasty, unmistakable hunger, then its power twists and thrashes, like it already chose chaos over obedience, and the room goes white hot when the weapon suddenly disappears, rude as ever, leaving everyone staring at empty air while the tower below feels the shock, because now the truth lands. The demon sword has slipped the leash, and the monks instantly panic, whining that it vanished by itself. How convenient. While the crowd starts wondering if it already found its next owner, which sends the bald elder barking for search teams, dramatic as a funeral bell, and just like that, every monk surges out, terrified the sword beat them, because the dragon is moving now, and the new owner has to be found first. In Cheongsan's old unit, 2 names were picked by outside forces, and one was Aya, the Red Crow, naturally a cursed little legend, while the other was Cheong, handpicked by the demon sword, meaning even nobodies could become monsters overnight. If the blade felt generous, so the monastery's monks started worshipping the future owner like a jackpot, but that faith looked stupid fast once the demon sword made its ridiculous choice, sending the crowd into panic as the chosen pair drew every stare, and suddenly everyone was confused, then jealous, then flat-out reverent, because the staircase of destiny looked less heroic and more embarrassingly random, yet those wrapped feet still belonged to the new era's center stage. A demon-bright girl crashes the chamber, demanding Yuguan, while tension smolders, and the monks instantly snap, treating her request like an unforgivable insult, because one bald loudmouth decides authority means yelling harder than the truth. Then she answers by drawing steel, turning his swagger into pure panic, and the sword's chosen girl makes one thing clear: this blade messed up, since even she looks offended, calling the whole deal ridiculously troublesome, but the absurdity deepens as she coolly proposes a deal anyway, while the monks gasp over the senior list, realizing nobody here is ordinary, because her master's been at Cheongsan forever, and knows every weakness, so now the monastery's ego gets buried, along with its little gatekeeping game. Ong opens the panic parade, bragging one colleague already handled 2, while the monastery's blood-soaked hallway quietly proves this mess was real, and the silver-haired girl turns that battlefield swagger into humiliating smoke, then demands Master Yuguan, like she's dragging the whole institution by the collar, which sends the old bald loudmouth into a full demon sword meltdown, because the blade rejected him, and the room hears it chose wrong. Then the gossip machine starts shrieking that Soyu's name cannot leak, since everybody's already panicking over the hospitalized monk Yang Soyu, as the search team gets blasted apart, and the selection keeps spreading, leaving students screaming he knows everything, and wants to go. Medical staff gossip spreads fast, and Yang Soyu's legend gets louder by the minute, while the bald monk plays sickly supreme, ordering him dragged to the prayer room, because the whole place has turned into a shrine for rumors, not mercy, and inside, the monk casually serves trouble like it's medical tea, with that cup transfer basically saying the investigation just got uglier. Then comes the command to clean up and wait outside. Classic power move nonsense, leaving the room sparse again, while Soyu sits there like the chaos magnet, as the monk finally admits there's information tied to Yamoyamo's return, and the silver-haired side of the story reveals Astrid left the clue behind, just before the phone rings, because of course the next disaster arrives on schedule. Those petals aren't pretty at all. They're built to sever flesh, and one lazy defense delay is enough to turn confidence into a cleanup bill. So naturally, the red-eyed flower user flexes, screaming full bloom, like that helps, while the battlefield answers with brutal pink slashes and a total humiliation. Back at the house, gossip keeps inflating Soyu into a dragon subordinate, because apparently even a hospital robe can't stop his reputation from snowballing. The monk then pivots topics like a con artist with incense, explaining the grave hunt, claiming the place was barrier protected, which is hilarious now that everything went sideways. Then comes the punchline. He thought it was the safest place, and the lamp stands there like a silent witness to that mistake. The error stayed sealed underground, while the stage glowed with leftover chaos, because the demon sword had already robbed its owner of every real ability, and the old monk dryly blamed the sword itself, not the disaster, explaining it commands masters, steals agency, and punishes anyone reckless enough to swing first, so the weapon became the real troublemaker, a hero sword hunting nearby mistakes, while the silver-haired girl's every slash backfired, as if the blade was mocking her, and the monk grimly called that entire mess an error-chasing disaster with a dragon problem. Then the room reaction stayed deadpan, as if even disbelief had gotten bored, because the sword chose its master by preference, and everyone else got punished. The hero sword is gone, and suddenly the whole room feels cursed. Ong coolly pitches the deal, like theft suddenly deserves paperwork, changing the demon sword's owner, while everyone else gets dragged along, because fighting that zero-level mess without it would be a joke, and even Ong hopes a Cheongsan monk can reclaim the prize. Then Yang Soyu, all smug composure, asks what they think, while the old monk warns the sword might outvote every worried idiot, making the whole simple problem sound hilariously delusional now, because that demon sword chooses by preference, and everyone else suffers. Somewhere in this innocent-looking frame, a pitiful little menace is being packaged, because that timid face hides a vicious little brain always reading the room, and now the sword flashes with ridiculous sparkle around the so-called young girl, which is just code for everyone spotting a lolly and panicking on sight. Then the sword drama turns messy as the demon blade gets cursed publicly, while Soyu, still in hospital colors, swears he'll recover it immediately, and that confidence lands like a brick, right as the monastery heat builds, until the black-haired woman notices him and acts like his arrival matters, because the hooded crowd and that bald elder make this whole mess feel fatal. Inside the monastery glare, the blindfolded sword girl stays icy, and everyone flinches, while Soyu, in hospital robes, starts barking orders like he owns the disaster. Then the silver-haired girl flashes her answer, cool enough to steal the room, as Chongsan's so-called sincerity explodes across the lake, loud and painfully dramatic, and the cat-eared mascot reveal lands so hard it should be illegal, because even her tiny meow somehow carries more menace than the entire crowd, but Soyu keeps his cool, judging the blindfolded rival from behind that sword before the sword's warning gets brushed off as wildly off the mark, and the whole mess ends with panic, betrayal, and Cheongsan's real sincerity unveiled. Astrid's death rumor detonates the room, and the redhead looks ready to combust. Her grief gets even uglier, because apparently talent only matters once it's dead. The blindfolded silver-haired girl stays cold, treating the whole tragedy like noise. Then the crowd gets told to calm down, as if panic is ever that polite. Nanju, master of the ghost forest, shrugs off the accusation with eerie confidence. Cheongsan's handler asks if they know each other, and yes, of course they do. The kid gets labeled a restraint type, which is a fancy way to say trouble. She's been like this constantly lately, so someone else is assigned damage control. The redhead immediately demands murder and the sword, because subtlety died too. But the veteran shuts that fantasy down. The demon sword is way too dangerous. Cheongsan's monks already got 2 of them, and the panic spreads fast, so young Soyu casually confiscates the blade, like theft is a service, while the red-headed cat-eared hothead stares down the humiliation, absolutely fuming, and Soyu keeps that smug, half-dead calm, as if chaos is beneath him, because even the demon sword isn't impressed by anyone charging in blindly. Ong tells everyone to endure it, which is monk code for suffer quietly. Then Soyu twists the knife, saying revenge should actually help the monastery, and the redhead gets warned that her venom only makes her look worse, as the weapon's motion cuts through the room, swallowing her outrage whole, because no matter how talented Soyu is, Master Sungjin's disciple still owes respect. The cat-eared hothead is already melting down, clutching her revenge plan, while Astrid's name keeps bouncing around like fuel on a scandal fire, and Soyu just stares back, looking annoyingly unfazed by the whole circus, which makes the onlookers freeze, because his calm is somehow the loudest thing here, so the corridor widens into a stalemate, with tempers losing to pure embarrassment. Then the monastery's little power brokers start talking strategy, all fake grace and hidden panic, because changing the demon sword's owner is apparently easier said than done, and even the ceiling seems to hum, like it knows trouble is still listening, as Ong sells the deal with saintly nonsense and a face full of authority, but the final warning lands hard. This mess will take time to fix. Ong coolly stalls the verdict, acting like delay itself is wisdom, then squeezes the moment for intel. Because monks love procedures when cornered, but the stretched limb and that tense silence scream one thing, trouble, while the silver-haired girl points to Cheongsan as the place with answers, and her blindfolded reveal of Noah's library lands like a myth with paperwork. Ong clicks his tongue, annoyed that the easy path is still a headache, since Noah Evans left behind an ultimate library stocked beyond language, content, and common sense, so the real hint becomes ancient books, plus Chongzan's absurd pile of monks, and that sword hilt finally gets grabbed, glowing like it hates cooperation, before a massive blast of green light confirms the whole search just got serious. The blindfolded swordswoman stands there like trouble with a warranty, while the dark-haired watcher catches the barrier glitch and snitches instantly, and Yang Soyu just stares, calm enough to annoy the whole room, because even asking to leave somehow turns into a Noah's Library flex. Then the full crew gathers as Master Yukwan's Dreamworld Circus gets confirmed, with Ong puffing himself up as if delayed answers are impressive, since this place copies the memories of those tied to his contract, and somehow it also reproduces personalities, knowledge, and unconscious nonsense, meaning Chongsan's best monks are basically living textbooks now, so the kids' study pile becomes a mountain, and nobody laughs anymore. Noah Evans turns the dream world into a ridiculous library kingdom of stacked books, and that obsession only proves how absurdly much knowledge he forced himself to swallow, while the mystery behind this place hangs in the air like unfinished homework, because even the actual library visit somehow turns into a flexing contest, with every monk suddenly busy, apparently too important to read ancient languages properly, until the silver-haired girl casually drops Master Sungjin's name and the whole mood shifts, since the medicinal wild vegetable bowl looks less like dinner and more like a health crime, but she keeps smiling, selling it like nature's miracle cure with terrifying confidence. Then the terrible soup gets promoted into a full recovery ritual, and somehow he buys it, before she proudly drags in a volunteer, because apparently nobody is escaping this mess. In the library's gloom, Yang Soya's icy stare meets another awkward intruder, and the tension snaps, because even the book-clutching student looks stunned by this walking rumor factory, clearly not prepared for him, while the room's strange energy spikes around the seated volunteer, like the whole monastery is pretending this is normal. Then the silver-haired attendant drops another stack of books, casually treating Yang Soyu like a permanent errand boy, and his tiny reaction basically says the entire system has zero respect for boundaries, just his patience, which makes Yang Soyu glare harder, because apparently even his annoyance is now a campus event, as the helper hides a smug little laugh, and the onlookers keep stacking gossip like firewood, so he storms off, leaving that famous disciple aura to do all the heavy lifting for once, and the library goes from quiet temple vibes to full rumor highway, with everyone watching the legend walk away, before the scene cuts out to Cheongsan's outskirts, where the next disaster is already waiting. This sprawling hideout is Noah Evans' library, absurdly oversized, where entry is restricted, but monks still flood in anyway, because the demon sword's appearance shoved everyone into Eastern texts, and now the records matter more than personal space. Naturally, the silver-haired girl keeps volunteering to monitor the chaos, while Yang Soyu gets buried under books and obedience, like some overworked errand genius nobody dares to disrespect. Then the librarian starts noticing her weirdly girlish charm, and the sword's constant chatter only makes the whole mess funnier. By the end, even the commentary sounds like reluctant surrender. The monastery's quiet archive turns noisy fast, and even the old monk looks rattled, because the silver-haired girl casually declares the grime problem, like this is somehow her lane, while the brown-haired student stares blankly, trying to decode who is washing whom here. And then Yang Soyu gets hit with the absurd recognition, as if fame is a contaminated package. So the whole room erupts into squeaking panic, while he gets scrubbed clean in total disbelief, with the silver-haired girl treating the mess like charity, making the humiliation look almost polished, and somehow the ritual becomes weirdly gentle, as if scandal came with complimentary service. Then the bored girl sits there like a queen above the chaos, refusing to look impressed, before another voice shoves the responsibility back, conveniently asking him to organize everything, and that final eye shot says it all, because the poor guy has finally noticed the trap. The clinic becomes a pastel trap, and the silver-haired girl owns the whole vibe. Then the brown-haired student gawks, because the service somehow starts with Yang Soyu. Next comes the ear-petting scandal, and suddenly everyone's calling him adorable. Those eyes lock in impossible symmetry. Like this mess was a professional makeover. Twin buns, scalp praise, and absurdly gentle handling turn humiliation into luxury. But the rumor cannon keeps firing, with his reputation landing like bad gossip royalty. Soon the library-like hall turns into a weird spa, while he eats calmly. Then the work pile towers over him, and responsibility gets dumped with zero mercy. By the end, he is flattened beside her, looking criminally used and unbothered. And of course the observer notices the robe, because the trap finally clicks. Inside the monastery library, the long-haired kid already looks suspiciously famous, and that cool stare only makes the whole room stare harder, while the observer marvels he healed fast, then jokes about that house, because apparently his face alone is enough to trigger silent grudges, and his smug little humpha just confirms he knows it, too. With books stacked around them, someone asks if he's ready to go home. Then the blindfolded beauty and her white-haired companion start the gossip circus, since one tiny question about their relationship lands like a grenade, and the brown-haired idiot doubles down, claiming they are close enough to fight, which leaves the library looking like a romance trap with homework attached. The room goes awkwardly quiet, with the blindfolded beauty and Soyu trading silence. Then the real joke lands, because his face alone can wake the demon sword rumor, so she presses harder, asking what darkness the sword supposedly heard inside Chaeyoung, and the silver-haired mystery coolly turns that curiosity into a private little secret, which naturally sends everyone spiraling, since the whole thing sounds suspiciously intimate already. Soyu just laughs it off, smug as ever, because of course he would. Meanwhile, the two of them sit among stacked books, looking absurdly normal, until the scene snaps into chaos, and somebody gets blasted through the air. Even the skyline can't help showing off, because the flying joke keeps escalating. Then the blue-haired onlooker asks the obvious bomb, choosing between sword and crow. The gossip machine locks onto Soyu, and the crowd hears the bombshell. While some red aura drama crowns the demon sword as choosier than royalty, the blue-haired girl pokes the mystery, then labels darkness as childlike. She doubles down, acting shocked that a kid could carry that kind of rot, and Soyu sits there beside her, hoodie casual, heart apparently still classified. When she smirks about secrets, the whole vibe turns annoyingly intimate. Then she teases him to find her again, and somehow that sounds worse, before tossing out a reunion challenge, like friendship is an elite side quest, while the demon sword glows overhead, basically announcing a new owner. And 1 month later, that method hunt is still dragging across the mountains. Around the monastery library, anxious monks keep dragging through exhaustion, while this so-called investigation has basically turned into Noah Evans reading everything. And in the dream library, the kid's obsession looks weirdly disciplined now, because even text itself is swallowing his space, leaving him nowhere else. So when his profile says reading has consumed him, that is not exaggeration. It's a full-blown plunge where consciousness keeps sinking into another world, and somehow that perfect immersion lands at the exact moment fortune arrives. As the search finally locks onto the missing sword, and Soyu gets spotted, the whole crowd gathers around the blue-haired kid, worshipping the man who found it, and with everyone working on it, even Ong cannot hide his smug little panic. Ong stares at Soyu, suddenly realizing the kid's reputation is real, and Soyu just laughs it off, because of course he does. The silver-haired girl then demands the books, meaning dragging him into absurdity, while Soyu admits he still can't read it, which is priceless. She explains the sword was hastily made, so it looks embarrassingly weak, and Soyu asks who spread that nonsense, as if the rumor's author is nearby. The room fires back with praise, calling the whole take ridiculous and adorable. Then the girl doubles down, saying the demon sword meeting made him cuter. Even the monk crowd starts piling on, openly worshipping the supposedly cutest one, and Soyu, unfazed, just blinks at the madness like, "Is that so?" The blindfolded girl corners him with that book, already smelling trouble, and the whole room leans in, desperate to know what it means. Soyu admits he still can't read it, which is painfully honest, while the lecture swerves into the demon sword's ugly, rushed origin, meaning its shocking weakness was actually the point, not a failure. And suddenly the mystery becomes common sense for this fantasy world. As the crowd nods along, treating this absurd logic like scripture, then the explanations keep stacking, from truth to skill, to ancient purpose, until the sword itself sounds less like a weapon and more like judgment, and Soyu just stands there, the cutest disciple in the apocalypse. Therefore, the silver-haired girl frames everything like a verdict, because the demon sword would rather abandon owners than die disgraceful, and Soyu just keeps the absurdly calm face of a textbook answer, since the book's method only works if you actually know things, which is basically knowledge turning into a weapon sharper than skill, while Noah Evans in those dreams stands there as the holy benchmark, and the monk's smug charm cracks the second Soyu gets the lesson, meaning truth is just the sword's excuse for rejecting the wrong owner, so even a virtuous monk becomes a hilariously bad target, and the whole room asks which poor soul gets slashed first. A cracked temple relic suddenly steals the whole frame, and the vibe gets weird, because this girl casually explains a 500-year statue like history owes her receipts, while the old Buddha just sits there looking expensive, indifferent, and wildly overqualified. Then the squad learns truth beats monk theatrics, so even sacred drama gets humbled, and the blindfolded sword girl treats the whole setup like a test with teeth. As the bound disciple footing makes every step look ceremonial, almost absurdly serious. Meanwhile, Noah's library gets name-dropped like some absurd knowledge, final boss, and the brown-haired schoolboy smugly spins the gossip into business-backed legend. Then the sponsor's influence gets inflated into monastery royalty, because apparently that sells better. Before the punchline lands, his youngest grandson is in surgery, and the mighty patron suddenly looks very mortal. The blindfolded sword girl stands before the stone Buddha, unreadable as ever, and the boy behind her catches the awkward silence, then makes it worse. He tries playing it cool, like this whole setup isn't bizarre, while the crowd keeps nudging the rumor along, because gossip needs oxygen. Then the blade flashes, and that sacred calm gets violently interrupted. The strike lands cleanly, sending the statue and smugness into the dirt, and the nearby onlookers freeze, realizing the joke just died on impact. She follows through with terrifying precision, turning the test into a warning, as the debris explodes outward and everyone finally stops pretending this is casual. By the end, even the background noise sounds nervous, which is hilarious. The monastery tower takes the hit first, and suddenly peace looks expensive, while the tiny monk and suited examiner stand there like this was planned. Obviously, the sacred sword hovers above the steps, making everyone pretend that's normal, but the bald old monk grins through the smoke, because his trap is back. Then the order snaps into place, and the little monster's aura turns lethal. The crowd of students can barely keep their composure, gossiping through the shock, and the arrogant call for an attack lands with all the subtlety of a brick, as fighters rush in, only to get swallowed by a blinding counterblast. The silver-haired girl gets caught in the chaos, clutching her hat in rage, and the explosion leaves everyone staring upward, regretting every bad decision. The defense burst hits first, and everyone braces for the impossible. Then a barrier blooms over the city, because subtlety left the chat. Restraint follows, pinning the chaos down while the trap finally bites, and on the rooftop, that sacred sword nonsense keeps pretending this is normal, until the old monk clocks the error, looking proud of a disaster. As the warning noise spikes and the whole scene starts collapsing faster, the monster unleashes below, turning the skyline into a very expensive nightmare. But the silver-haired prince arrives smiling, because apparently drama is his hobby. Then the beast opens wide, and the crowd gets swallowed by pure panic, while the aftermath leaves bodies flying, and everybody rethinks their life choices. The whole mess launches skyward, and nobody below gets a vote, because the blast tears open the city like cheap paper, and keeps climbing, while that ridiculous bloodstorm spreads overhead, turning the skyline into a nightmare. Then the blindfolded silver-haired girl stares back, catching the intruder mid-arrival, and even Yang Soyu looks caught off guard, which is almost impressive, since the red smoke and collapsing heat scream another disaster, not a miracle. Meanwhile, the silver-haired woman stays annoyingly calm, as if chaos is fashionable, while the attack slams through the target and the crowd starts regretting everything. Yet the blindfolded girl's expression hardens, because surprise was apparently her last luxury, and down in the city, the blood-red aftermath proves this fight is nowhere near over. Red eyes snap wide as the sky turns into a bad omen. Below that nightmare, the silver-haired girl hears something impossible overhead. Then the red smoke twists into Chungsan's cursed-looking crow, and everybody panics, realizing the thing was hidden all along, because the old explanation finally drops the punchline. The crow and demon sword share a source, and, naturally, the crow starts sounding less like an animal, more like a parasitic weapon. The smoke thing obeys its owner perfectly, which is charmingly terrifying, until Aya dies and the crow vanishes like it was never brave to begin with. Even then, the silver-haired owner stays cold as a winter blade, while the bald monk screams that the crow chose its owner first. In Chongsan's red haze, 4 monks corner the hidden owner, and the tension bites. Ong smugly confirms he has been waiting for those limbs to show themselves. Then the sky opens like a joke, and somebody hurls confidence straight through it. The landing is so violent it looks less like a rival, more like humiliation. Naturally, the attackers whine about borrowing the wrong weapon, as if that helps. And the reply is even better, because the excuse lands with all the dignity of mud. Then the whole field blooms pink, as full bloom of 100 flowers detonates. One opponent gets launched skyward. While the silver-haired fighter keeps that icy composure, the blue-haired student watches the chaos. And suddenly the rumor machine gets louder. Meanwhile, Yang Soya's reputation keeps climbing, because being calm while breaking reality is unfair. The sky is basically a punchline now, with Yang Soyu still glowing above the wreckage. That blast turns into pure launch power, and the battlefield gets violently rearranged. The silver-haired fighter reads the attack, and the air itself starts behaving, so the opponent gets flung around, while everyone below just stares upward in disbelief. Even the masked watcher admits it, because that movement is nothing like ground combat, which is hilarious, since the poor guy down there realizes he is completely outclassed. Then another voice panics about never seeing this from the Dragon Lord before, and naturally, the answer is immediate terror, because escape suddenly sounds expensive. Yang Soyu keeps drifting through the chaos, making panic look embarrassingly easy. By the end, even the sky seems confused, and that's reputation for you. The sky flips into panic territory, as Yang Soyu barely survives, then smirks. Below, the onlooker spots him flying off, which is very much not normal, and of course he treats the chaos like a joke, chasing danger with ridiculous confidence. Then a strange bird cuts across the sunset, as if fate needed a mascot. The next beat turns absurdly bright, with that bird streaking through open sky. Right after, he gets launched again, while even the chicken seems offended. Somehow the bird becomes a passing soulmate, because destiny has terrible taste. Their accidental romance energy hits hard, and yes, that is exactly as stupid. Then the whole scene turns into a vertical disaster, with him plummeting stylishly. By the landing, he is furious, dramatic, and still somehow bragging about beginner luck. The blindfolded silver-haired girl gets warned about death and stays absurdly calm. Then the panic behind her turns into laughter because fear is clearly not her hobby. Young Soyu keeps grinning through the blood, making danger look embarrassingly easy, while the mysterious girl beside him barely reacts, which is somehow even scarier. So naturally, the gossip storm explodes, and his disciple rumor starts spreading like wildfire, with every student adding fuel, because campus legends apparently need zero proof. Then the sky split gets ugly, and that glowing counterattack slams the whole scene, but he still refuses to look impressed, which is either bravery or delusion. Even the blindfolded powerhouse finally snaps, because that result should not exist, and below them the city stares up as the whole mess keeps soaring higher. Ong clicks his tongue, already annoyed by the trap's ugly timing, while the blindfolded girl keeps drifting through the blast like royalty, and suddenly the city below shrinks, as altitude gets downright insulting, because even the cocky bastard up there has to question the setup. Then the arena turns into a floating chessboard, every pawn scrambling, with restraint and attack tags everywhere, as if chaos needs labels, yet the red-haired monk keeps recruiting allies, charming the panic harder, which makes his come-to-my-side routine look absurdly dangerous, until Purple Force snaps the formation, sending everyone tumbling in disbelief, and that final shock says the same thing. Nobody controlled this mess. Deep in the bamboo wilds, the silver-haired girl keeps gliding forward, absurdly calm, while the sky shatters behind her, proving this forest likes violence more than peace. Then Nanju starts yelling excuses, the classic loser anthem, as competition eats his pride, and the just leaves excuse lands hilariously, because the attack is already chewing through him. Across the chaos, the stubborn survivor mutters that the delay worked, buying precious time, as the formation finally holds, with teammates and monks staring like they survived bad luck itself. One body gets torn apart in the air, a grotesque warning that nobody is safe here, and the blonde monk's smug approval only makes the whole mess look even more theatrical. Before the strike lands hard on the target, red light flooding the frame like judgment, leaving Ong's monster of a trap exposed, and everyone else looking wonderfully doomed. The scream opens like blood on steel, and the whole trap starts cracking. Then the strike chews through flesh, while panic keeps trying to outrun it. The battlefield turns into a red blur, proving delay was the only miracle, and the monster keeps tearing through the air, making survival look optional, before the so-called embarrassing form gets exposed, drenched in crimson and sarcasm, while the pale woman in the hat drifts there like chaos is beneath her. Ong's bloodied face says it all. This mess was never his dignity's friend. Yang Soyu just smirks through it, because of course he was watching everything, and the smug reveal lands harder when the observer admits he expected this much. Even the quiet classroom aftermath feels cursed, with hidden monsters still sharing desks. He decides the first strike will land here, and that confidence is nasty, because the opponent's eye widens, realizing this bluff is already turning real. Then the battlefield floods red as the monster's body gets torn apart, while the arrogant kid screams revenge, proving panic always ruins posture. The blood-stained woman in the hat just floats there, looking annoyingly unbothered, and Ong's ruined face makes the whole trap look beautifully deserved. Across the city, Yang Soyu watches the chaos with absurd calm. Naturally, because even the rumor admission says his reputation already outran reality. Then the streets erupt as something monstrous crashes through the skyline, and the school's quiet future gets dragged straight into the carnage. Hez practically glowing with smug charm, and everyone eats it up, because even his joke lands like a flex, leaving the room stung. Then the instructions start flying upward, since apparently he owns gravity too, while the whole battlefield panics about errors, as if chaos needed permission. One glance at his face is enough to make the onlookers fold, and yes, the verdict arrives fast. He's annoyingly handsome. Of course, with him hovering there like campus royalty, poster boy nonsense fully weaponized, but the monk's composure detonates, and that smug trap finally backfires, as the blast turns ugly, leaving only wreckage and terrified disbelief. Then the shout lands hard, Yang Soyu's name now carrying the entire disaster. The attack team finally drops in, and the battlefield starts trembling, because his absurd sincerity toward baseball literally manifests as a skill, while the so-called Western war god gets swarmed by spectral muscle, and the rookie ace's flashy artillery keeps turning panic into debris. Then that pretty-faced poster boy floats in, smug enough to annoy gravity. But the next instant the whole scene fractures, his presence already rewriting the sky, as another strike tears through the air, and the monk's side collapses, with the trap's backlash chewing up everything Ong thought he controlled, leaving the search party scrambling like amateurs who lost their own weapon, and somehow Yang Soyu's name is the one detonating across campus. In the sky trap's glare, the first blood splash sells the brutal lesson, Then the airborne chase turns the whole city into a joke for gravity, while the monk's attack gets answered by a shadowy counter, ugly and efficient, and the backlash keeps chewing through the battlefield like karma with teeth, as that kid's face says he just realized this ride is personal, with the trap's voice basically admitting the next move could cost limbs, and the stunned stare only grows worse as altitude starts stealing breath, because every higher second makes the air colder, thinner, and nastier, so he grips on, desperate to finish before the sky finishes him, while the whole disaster keeps pushing Yang Soyu's name through campus like wildfire. High above the world, Yang Soyu stares into empty sky, unnervingly calm, because apparently nothing is hunting him now, which is a lovely lie. His eyes narrow, catching the trap's shadow, and the tension gets uglier, while Ong's cruel lesson boils over, proving arrogance really does age badly. Then the shock hits as Yang Soyu stays standing, book in hand, and even his own body seems to whisper that power should wait, yet he keeps analyzing the danger, looking one bad second from disaster. Far below, the sky opens around him, making his lonely gamble look ridiculous, until the counterstrike lands, and the shocked onlookers realize the joke's over. Then that red eye in the dark watches, and everything turns sinister. That red eye in the dark finally shows the trap's ugly shadow, and Yang Soyu just hangs there, book in hand, absurdly unbothered. He had expected the monster to appear, but not this spectacularly, while Ong's grand little scheme now looks embarrassing, even by monk standards. The real punchline is the sky itself, since dragon power never stays grounded, and the force ruling above has been stacking victories without much competition, so the rooftop feels less like a test and more like a coronation, as Ong gets reduced to a hostage in someone else's highlight reel. Then Kara finally snaps to the name being shouted, because history is returning, and the story cuts back to 6 years ago, where this mess began. The monastery's genius gets praised again, and Ong's trap starts looking stupidly small, because the child on display barely reacts, already proving the special unit chatter wrong, while the whole room waits for an answer, and the tension sits there like incense. Then the silver-haired woman coolly vetoes him, claiming the fit is awful and mercilessly final, which sends the others into explanation mode, insisting this kid's talent is the real deal, and the blast of power behind her memory makes that verdict impossible to laugh off, yet she still dismisses the child as too young, like age alone somehow outranks genius, so Ong doubles down, admitting the girl was chosen and still isn't leaving Amipa's temple. Then the hoodie kid presses for the reason, because apparently everyone enjoys dragging out the suspense, and the answer lands ugly. Her skill compatibility is bad, no matter how flashy it looks. Metal skills split cleanly here, and this child lands on electromagnetism, absurdly. Even the examiner dozes off, while the so-called genius gets dismissed. She still calls the compatibility terrible, no matter how impressive the theory sounds. But her own discomfort betrays it, because this kid clearly rattles her. So Ong explains the special unit placement, dragging Kara into the mess. The old monk panics, and Kara snaps awake at the name. Then the child drops, already moving like instinct learned before thought. That's the joke, really, because talent this deep doesn't ask permission. He lands and pivots with perfect timing, like gravity itself is trained, and the impact sends the room into full-on stunned silence. Handling these is so natural to him, he barely looks impressed. He simply mingles with things that react, and the city panics. If that power makes anyone uncomfortable, good, that's the point. Then in every fight, hell keep dragging out more. More chaos, more attention, more proof the rumors were real, more pressure, while the skyline cracks under his ridiculous ceiling. Greater and stronger power keeps pouring out, rude and unstoppable. The whole city stares up at that towering burst in silence. By the time the light settles, the legend is already airborne. And yeah, his reputation just leveled up again, obviously. A sky-splitting beam erupts over the city, and nobody breathes. Then the blast blooms wider, swallowing the horizon in ridiculous light. The whole skyline shakes under that absurd ceiling of power. Naturally, because some genius just punched a hole through the heavens. The monk crew stares at the aftermath, while Ong starts sweating. Near the ground, the missing sword is suddenly gone, which is charming. The retrieval team gets buried in shock as the search turns ugly, and the old bald examiner looks like his scheme aged terribly fast. His carved-up little trap has collapsed, leaving him exposed and miserable, so the legend keeps rising, while the problem simply disappeared. Under that blinding ruin, Ong is left hauling Yang Soyu like bad news, while the radio man freezes, hearing the sky itself go dead silent, and the monk camp watches, because apparently the trap just got humiliated, as the horizon glows, confirming something monstrous has finally been settled. Far below, the search teams spot Yang Soyu drifting through the wreckage, still intact enough to make everyone mutter that he is safe. Then the city answers with a heavenly pillar, loud enough to shame gods, and the bloodied survivors tilt upward, realizing the nightmare is not done, because the wreckage keeps unraveling into a falling mass of torn flesh, while the lone fighter below faces it all, tiny, defiant, and terrifying. Yang Soyu's face freezes as the nightmare finally starts looking unfair. Then some dark force reaches in, acting like reality owes it mercy. Above the battlefield, a grotesque shape hangs over the tiny survivors, and the sky erupts. Because apparently subtlety died with the trap, now the bloodied boy still stands, clutching proof that he survived, while the bright-haired ally turns away, pretending this was normal business, and the thanks for the harvest lands like the cockiest victory lap, with the floating pair trading victory over the ruined horizon, absurdly calm, nearby. The red-faced monk panics, while the blonde observer stares in disbelief, and the two women at the edge of it all keep watching quietly. The blonde attendant is already reeling, because this whole ritual looks cursed, while the monks nearby collapse into exhaustion, proving confidence was never their strong suit, and the gossip-hungry onlookers keep staring, as if the disaster needs commentary. Then the strange little bald child becomes the center of attention, for reasons nobody can defend, with the bun-haired mystery turning the moment even weirder. Like fate enjoys trolling, until the silver-blue woman toys with everyone, acting smug about the dark-hearted answer, and the blindfolded girl coolly promises explanations only after entering their world later, which is adorable, considering the blood-smeared face in front of her is still unbothered. Then the flying bird suddenly gets launched skyward, as if reality just coughed, and the pink-feathered menace follows up by screaming nonsense, because subtlety is dead. The whole sky feels unhinged, and the onlookers cannot stop wondering what broke, because the demon sword incident finally ends, leaving the temple gloriously embarrassed, while the rumor girls keep turning Yang Soyu into campus royalty, against his will, and the blade now waits again, supposedly for some future owner nobody can predict, which is hilarious. Since everyone swore it would need years and a perfect child, yet fate clearly preferred a random nobody, and the crowd is absolutely losing composure, as the blood-stained monk nearby realizes his trap exploded straight back in his face. Then the strange bird-topped boy somehow becomes the center of this absurd selection, with the monks carrying the aftermath carefully, as if dignity can still be saved. But the real punchline is the new owner question, because even the bird is judging. At Chungsan, the old examiner casually admits the scheme, and that's bold, because his sample already has monks cradling harvested proof like paperwork. Naturally, meanwhile, Yang Soyu gets dragged into glory, bloodied, smug, and impossible to dismiss. Then the monk tries one last dramatic reveal, as if dignity wasn't already dead. Soyu answers with terrifying confidence, pointing out the lie nobody wanted exposed. And that's when even the gossip-hungry crowd starts staring like they've seen a ghost. The trap finally breaks, and the monk's control slips into a nightmare blur, with that red-eyed chaos chewing through the darkness, because subtlety clearly quit. The aftermath looks ridiculous. All scorched walls, stunned monks, and zero excuses. Then the pink bird judges everyone, while Soyu realizes this spectacle just crowned him. Deep in the limestone caverns, the ceiling practically screams, danger, stalactites everywhere, while Soyu and the monk try pretending this isn't a disaster. Naturally, the dragon hiding below turns the whole cave into a bad joke, because those glowing red eyes make subtlety look officially deceased. Then the bald monk starts explaining the cave like he discovered wisdom, and somehow his grand logic is just limestone. As if that helps, so the investigation team is born, because ambushing enemies sounds better than honesty, with Soyu smirking like he already knows their trap is embarrassingly sloppy, and Kara gets dragged into the praise too, since gossip loves company, so the monk admits they both fought well, which is rich. Kara's attacks finally land, and Soyu starts owning the sky. That first clash flops hard, because the enemy never really recovered. The harvest is massive, and the monks look impressed for once. Even Ong caves in, praising them before the panic gets worse. Then the campus legend gets uglier, with Soyu wearing blood like proof. So he's crowned the Red Crow's new owner. Naturally, the crow snaps back to him instantly, making the whole scene look rigged. Now everyone's scrambling for introductions. While the hidden faces stay hidden, the onlookers freeze, because those black feathers mean trouble, and the silver-haired girl's red power erupts, ending subtlety completely. Ong's face snaps tight, because the trap is finally losing its charm, and the monk's confidence crumbles under Soyu's ridiculously clean performance, while that single eye of his catches every rumor spreading like wildfire. Then Soyu's red crow power flares, turning the whole school legend feral, and the crown lands on him so hard it looks painfully scripted. Meanwhile, the library-like hall stays silent, storing the gossip for later, as the hidden faces finally whisper, confirming everyone heard the same disaster, because the demon sword came back, and Soyu rode the red crow, so even the smug reporters choke on it, realizing the bluff died, and now the whole campus knows that crow belonged to Soyu. A rumor's already detonating, and Yang Soyus' name fuels every stunned whisper. Then his Trident story lands, making the whole school sound gloriously unhinged. The clash gets so wild, nobody nearby could even think of stopping it, while Master Yuguan collapses, proving traps age badly when karma shows up. That bruised eye says Soyu saw everything, and yes, he noticed the fraud. So the scene cuts to home, where the atmosphere turns suspiciously ordinary, except a black van rolls in like trouble wearing expensive tires, and Soyu steps out, instantly clocking the disaster waiting inside. The house goes dead quiet, because something on the table is very wrong, and Soyu finally realizes the smug little setup has cracked open. Under house arrest, Soyu lies low, but the trap already smells rotten, because the living room is packed with damage, and nobody's pretending otherwise. Then the visitor pushes harder, turning one quiet house into a full-blown interrogation, and Soyu calmly lands the real accusation, saying he killed the red crow. With that bruised eye, he knows the rumors already sprinted ahead of him, so the question becomes why he did it, as if the answer isn't obvious. The room tightens around that stare, and the accused becomes the judge instead, while Ong tries to dress up disaster, acting like control was ever his. But Soyu just stares back, smugly asking if the whole stunt went well, and the woman finally snaps, because the joke is over and the fraud's exposed. The room detonates in chaos, and the first blow already lands hard. While the body hits the floor, the smug bastard just keeps folding over with laughter. The whole house feels like a bad joke, spiraling into a full interrogation, because the accuser rushes in, only to find Soyu calmly owning the blame, and the door swings shut on whatever dignity this stunt had left. As the shirtless spectator wheezes, mocking the situation like he predicted the mess, then Soyu leans back, all smug restraint and zero fear, while everyone else panics, because the red crow isn't some harmless pet, it's a suspicious little monster, apparently gentle, obedient, and absurdly well-behaved, which is exactly why that sounds terrifying, and the punchline is worse, it carries strangers safely, so nobody's laughing now. That red-black curse is already chewing through its owner, and loving it, because this parasitic skill feeds on the body like a greedy little monster, leaving agony, deformity, and wrecked nerves, which is a spectacularly bad deal, while the blue-haired witness and blindfolded girl stare down the madness together, and somehow everyone already hates that crow, yet nobody can touch it, since the so-called harmless pet can carry people, making the whole thing worse. Then the dream starts talking nonsense, promising to do the impossible for him, before blood and steel explode across the floor, turning confidence into pulp, as one clenched fist basically screams that everything was taken, everything, and even the monk's tiny bald child choice feels like the universe trolling him. The room turns tense over flying lessons, and that crow problem still haunts everyone. The tiny novice gets treated like a miracle, which is almost insulting. Even the stern elder looks cornered, realizing this kid may actually be useful. Then the golden seal crackles awake, dragging the monastery into damage control mode. A blinding burst follows, and suddenly the old authority sounds desperate for backup. The light dies down, leaving one polished student looking far too important. Noble son gets thrown around. Then Joseph Guilford gets exposed in full glory. He keeps his composure, but his face says the help question hit a nerve. Meanwhile, the bald child sits in eerie silence, surrounded by drifting butterflies, and the monk just stares through his glasses, realizing the joke has become destiny. Inside the monastery lounge, everyone admits this kid will be difficult, so they start hunting for whoever can actually handle the spoiled troublemaker, and the bald child gets hoisted up as the absurd answer, which is hilarious, because the so-called authority immediately hands over the whole mess like a meeting memo, while the others sit at dinner stunned, realizing the princess label landed on him. Then the silver-haired instructor calmly breaks down the conflict like he owns the disaster, reminding everyone this battle had no cheap ambush excuses, just brutal pressure everywhere, and that grim summary proves their side's military power can finally answer back. Before the report turns to Dragon Subordinate 1, a battered sample dragged in, and then Dragon Subordinate 2 gets mentioned too, because apparently the chaos has sequels. The map marks a buried stream, where the old errors first surfaced, and that same waterway threads through the ruined grave hunting grounds too, so the evidence lines up. Corpses, attack patterns, every ugly detail, right down to the presumed ancient mermaid, who apparently loves drama, which is why the dragon's hiding place matters. And a team forms, while Kara's strike gets confirmed effective, despite everyone acting shocked, and Yang Soyus' red crow stunt proves he owns the air. But the silver-haired instructor cuts in, cool as ever, to end the hype. Then the room erupts when that loser label sticks to Yang Soyu. Hilariously, yet he's still the core member of this special unit. Yang Soyu is cornered by Chongsan's logic, and they need a replacement, because the Red Crow mobility stunt was their whole conclusion, apparently. And now, some loudmouth brands the brown-haired kid as Loser 1, then demands Loser 2, which he refuses with pure offended chaos. Like that insult was royalty, while campus gossip keeps spreading his name like he's already untouchable, and somewhere above the rooftops, the special unit's reputation keeps climbing too. Then the scene shifts into Master Yukwan's dream, where lessons already happened, and the silver-haired instructor calmly explains his body never used those techniques, so a little sensory adjustment should make Yang Soyu catch up fast, but Yang Soyu still glares and answers like hell, never accept that. In the hallway, the silver-haired visitor shuts down Cheongsan missions, coldly, then they stand in the room. The offer hanging over the silence, his sharp eyes carry Master Sungjin's name, and the pressure spikes. He pitches the mission as permission to work the disciple mercilessly. Yang Soyu flares up instantly, clutching pride like it's still useful. But the blonde questioner just sneers, asking if he is drugged. The silver-haired jerk answers by serving liquor and insulting him harder. Then the brown-haired brat mocks the whole thing, promising terrible training. The room turns feral, as the punishment escalates into cartoonish cruelty. Martial arts training begins, and suddenly nobody is laughing anymore. In the greenhouse, a warning lands first. This orchid is absolutely off-limits, because it needs the obsessive 3 to 4 day treatment, not rookie-level overwatering, while Yang Soyu stands there with a bird on his head, looking mildly cursed, and the silver-haired girl loses her mind, realizing these are all orchid pots. Then she protects the plants like family, begging nobody to let them die, because she's heading home for the first time in half a year, and her gift is a severed statue head. Naturally making things worse, she even wants the whole statue, except the mountains and barriers say no. Then the gossip machine spots a celebrity scandal, and gleefully boosts his stock, and just when it gets stupid enough, the app calls him Cancer Sign. Today's horoscope opens like a joke, because Cancer gets the trip warning treatment, and Yang Soyu just stares through the chaos, face colder than the script expected, while the Cancer Sign banner keeps chanting friendliness like it owns destiny. Then the same cursed eyes narrow again, realizing this farewell is somehow serious, because the slick-haired show-off drops a ridiculous good luck speech, and somehow means it. Then the whole thing escalates into a miracle hunt, as if someone hid fate inside paper, and the camera doubles down on Yang Soyu's expression, casually becoming campus gossip fuel, while Kara gets called out for the trip, and the bird-on-head nonsense peaks. Then the silver-haired girl finally notices the absurdity, backpack on, still processing, and now she's leaving badly, because even goodbye apparently became Yang Soyu's brand. The silver-haired girl makes her dramatic exit, promising she'll be back, because apparently even leaving needs theatrics. Back at training, the old monk gets pegged as the boss, which is adorable. Then Ong is recognized by Monk Sungjin, and the reunion instantly turns suspicious. The atmosphere tightens around the stern monk, while everyone else pretends this is normal. Ong stays infuriatingly calm, like he already knows how badly this will go. He drags out a bundled straw charm, teasing that it should look familiar. One touch later, the thing starts reacting, and his smug little magic show begins. Red energy floods the bundle, because subtlety apparently died centuries ago. A demonic bird shape bursts out, turning the courtyard into a disaster zone. And then the replica fails spectacularly, proving Ong's trap was built to humiliate everyone. Ong sets the whole training spectacle on fire, grinning like a menace, then declares Monk Yang Soyu must catch the error-love bird barehanded, which leaves the boy staring blankly, because even he knows that's insane, and Ong casually raises the stakes, insisting this duo should train together, but the protest squad instantly erupts, swearing Soyu needs zero training, because he is already advanced in Eastern martial arts, apparently, and stronger than this side too, according to the loudest optimists. Yet Ong cuts through the noise, calling that logic completely wrong, since this training is really about restoring mobility he once threw away, and the final trap just hurls everyone into pink, blood-red chaos. In other words, the lesson is simple. Follow him well. And there's Soyu, looking robbed of dignity beneath the monastery's spotlight, while Ong starts with theory, like this kid's a bargain sale, then smugly calls martial arts Eastern mastery, efficiently framing the whole trap, because in his formula, Soyu's already behind. So naturally he learns now, and before anyone can object, Ong drills the basics into the floor, claiming solid foundations make every future step impossible to shake. Then he gleefully announces the real goal is crushing boredom first, since sect history, lineage, and rituals all start with wandering monks, and apparently that nameless tradition left only clues, not records. Genius. Ancient stelas get dissected like bargain antiques, and Ong sounds smug. He wants Soyus' opinion, while the poor kid crouches there, listening. Then the monk pivots into scripture theory, because apparently every mystery becomes a lecture when you have enough confidence, and not enough shame. He insists the real lesson is technique, not trivia. Targeting Soyus' gap. With basics so fundamental, they sound insulting, like homework for a toddler, and that tiny training note lands harder than the whole temple theory, because Soyus' body shows no traces, meaning his foundation is embarrassingly thin. Ong doubles down, pretending this weakness is fixable. Once manuals sink in, then commands horse stance, and the whole yard freezes in silence. The yard turns quiet as Ong praises that ingrained habit, and Soyu looks annoyingly decent. Then the monk starts dissecting his stance, bragging about ankles and inner thighs like a smug teacher. He keeps piling on the insult, calling Soyus skin-proof of absurd conditioning, not talent. But the punchline lands hard, because months in bed left Soyus' foundation embarrassingly thin, so Ong flips from diagnosis to verdict, deciding this weakness is still trainable. And with one brutal order, he throws out 50 laps, starting now, no mercy. Soyu immediately tries the obvious dodge, while Ong refuses to buy the dramatic escape act. Instead, he casually hammers the real lesson, telling the kid he actually learned something. Even the look says it all, because Soyu knows the old body is gone, and improved, which is exactly why Master Yukwan's skill, crossing dreams, suddenly becomes the headline reveal. The dream lesson opens like reality itself is getting dragged into the spotlight, and the teacher's stare says Soyus' body still looks hilariously undercooked, so the onlookers instantly clock the gossip machine kicking into overdrive, while the invitation to step closer lands like a polite trap, because Soyus' posture finally gives away a student who's been hiding progress, and the awkward shuffle only proves he can no longer fake weakness. As the instructor narrows in on that opening stance like it's a confession, then the whole room snaps into motion, fists and feet testing the gap, but Soyu answers with real balance now, not the old paper-thin fragility, and even the challenger realizes the first attacker is about to get humbled. The lesson opens with a brutal abdomen stab, clean and merciless, then the downward strike follows. Like the body already knows the script, and that turning punch meets the high block without even slowing down, while the left-hand strike snaps through. Because hesitation would be embarrassing, Soyus' face stays stupidly calm. As expected from the campus, new problem, since the first form already tears open the attacker's timing, and the next forms pile on, each switch sharper than the last, making the whole 16-step routine look absurdly over-designed for mortals. So when contact finally lands, the challenger gets folded by perfect control, and the final stare says it all. This kid was never ordinary. Inside the hall, Yang Soya's first exchange already smashes the room's confidence, and that calm face makes the challenger look painfully underqualified, honestly tragic. Because this is the same kid everyone misread as harmless background noise, while the brown-haired witness watches him lock in, then starts spiraling. As the phone hits the floor, rumor fuel goes nuclear across campus, and Soyu answers the pressure with that smug 20-minute challenge, sure. Then he plants his stance. Like embarrassing opponents is now curriculum, the clash comes clean, hand to hand. No wasted motion, no mercy. Every block, strike, and counter stacks up until the challenger gets folded, and that final collision leaves one truth standing. Soyu was never ordinary. The timer is already screaming, and this whole stunt feels absurdly theatrical. While the gossip-struck witness stares at Soyu like fame just bit him, then the panic spreads campus-wide, as the rumor machine hits overdrive, because 10 minutes turns into a joke, and Soyu somehow looks offended by the challenge itself, not the challenge, which is pure arrogance disguised as calm. And then the clash erupts, all clean counters and zero wasted motion, while the so-called threat gets folded so badly it should file a complaint. The timer keeps dropping, proving Soyu is still embarrassingly efficient, as another exchange lands harder than the last, and the crowd keeps trembling, because the final takeaway is simple. Soyu was never background noise. The whole room is already cracking under Soyus' pressure, and somebody's pride is first to break. His timer flashes like a joke, because 10 seconds of panic means nothing here. Outside, the campus sky looks almost peaceful, which is hilarious considering the chaos brewing below. Then the lunchbox nonsense starts. With the old woman serving dinner like this is normal, but Soyu instantly turns that into a timer lecture, and the other kid loses composure fast. The argument snowballs into seconds, shaving time, and pure loser energy from the crowd. Even the monk-faced examiner gets dragged into the mess, reduced to confused background noise. Meanwhile, the tray is left wrecked, because efficiency always humiliates sloppy talkers. By now, the onlookers are frozen, watching Soyu dodge panic while making everyone else look slower. And that's the punchline. His reputation keeps rising, while their dignity keeps sliding. A fight starts the whole mess, and Soyu's calm makes it look scripted. Outside, the rumor storm spreads fast. While one blue-haired witness panics, then the car becomes a sweat chamber, and the roast gets personal. Even inside the vehicle, everyone's melting, as Soyu keeps weaponizing hygiene. The brown-haired kid finally breaks, looking famous and foolish at once. More gossip bounces around the seats, because nobody can resist overhyping him. By the next stop, the blue-haired observer is basically a human siren, and the awkward farewell lands hard, with Soyu still acting annoyingly composed. Later, even shower time turns into a dramatic cleanup after that humiliation. Finally, he resets the room, proving reputation and routine both stay undefeated. After the chaos, young Soyu is flattened in bed, looking hilariously defeated. Then the camera zooms in and catches that exhausted, near-dead stare. But even wrecked, he starts second-guessing the day's weirdly important timing, because apparently he still thinks he had somewhere better to be, right? His hand barely moves as the room calls it quits too, and he admits he is too fried to think, let alone function, which is adorable, so his mind drifts back to that last meridian opening disaster. Naturally, before the memory crashes harder, dragging in that dangerous old wild side. By the end, he is just breathing through it, somehow still composed, and the room settles into silence, because even his reset looks undefeated. The room hangs quiet, like Yang Soyus' last ounce of energy just got spent, yet has still sprawled there, staring ahead with that infuriatingly calm face, while the campus rumor mill keeps chewing on his name like it owns him, and somehow that sleepy bedroom opens into a whole city-sized spotlight because his reputation has already jumped from hallway gossip to skyline-level heat. Then a knock crashes in, dragging him back to reality, right on cue, and the absurd little watch makes it clear this rest was just a setup, so the old man's warning about taking things seriously lands with nasty precision before Yang Soyu answers with that smug, unbothered attitude the others can't stand, and the training clash snaps open, proving he's still the one stealing the line. 16 fist forms open the lesson, and the basics already look terrifyingly polished. Then the advanced flow kicks in, turning defense into rebound like a flex, while partner drills push breathing sync so perfectly it borders on obnoxious. Every step lands cleaner, and the completion meter climbs straight into smug territory. A watch flashes the time, meaning this rest was never real downtime. Below the shouting, Yang Soyu sits in the rumbling campus chaos, unbothered. Some loudmouth declares the weapon worthless, then immediately gets its lesson. The formation snaps into inner power and outer technique, absurdly complete. So the seniors call for a full breakdown, and his fame keeps snowballing. First, they ditch inner power, because apparently brute force needs a babysitter. Then outer power gets the spotlight, with stamina already taking the hit. The couch potato insult lands, but yesterday's fatigue still hasn't recovered. So the real lesson hits. Dream training must catch up with body training, and Soya's first fist technique gets praised as perfect, which is so convenient. Naturally, the guy beside him gets dragged into the same smug sermon. Inner power, outer power, and technique fused together, looking annoyingly complete. Now the plan is refinement, plus mental training, because raw talent was not enough. Even Soyu agrees there's a training method like that. Unfortunately, graveyard training already looks unhinged, arrows flying. While the lecture starts getting playful, the silver-haired kid gets interrogated, and his attention gets dragged toward one obvious problem, because those twin tails hit like a spotlight, making even a corpse yard feel scandalous. The teasing gets worse, since her neat knots and symmetry are apparently impossible to ignore. Then the poor guy freezes, looking like has been cornered by pure secondhand embarrassment, and the interrogation turns into a full-on psychic raid on whatever secret desire he's hiding, which, embarrassingly enough, boils down to underwear, of all things, and he hates that, until the revelation finally detonates, leaving both of them staring like this is ridiculous, and the whole graveyard gag lands perfectly, because apparently training comes with humiliation. Next day, and the whole scene resets with fresh awkwardness, those twin tails land first, stealing every ounce of attention anyway, because the maid outfit keeps her looking annoyingly untouchable and smug, while young Soyu stands there, exhausted but somehow still too composed. Her teasing drags the mystery forward, pushing the poor guy off balance, and that close-up proves his blank stare is really just panic in disguise. Then the red-collared newcomer cuts in, acting like he owns the drama, only to get wrecked by the revelation that Soya's confidence is real. So the last stare-down hits hard, and the training suddenly feels personal. That first stunned stare says the poor girl just realized his secret has teeth, and the next pose screams she is trying way too hard to sound in control, but his deadpan confidence keeps making her dramatic little threats look ridiculous, while that pointed declaration practically dares her to test the guy already winning. Now the courtyard setup turns messy, with her closing in and him refusing to flinch, and the tension tightens, because her bravado is collapsing faster than her dignity. Then the exchange snaps into motion, and suddenly he is the one setting the pace, which sends her flying back in the most embarrassing way possible. Honestly brutal. As the grabs and struggle turn desperate, her confidence gets completely dragged into the dirt, and by the end, Soyu has her cornered, proving the joke was never on him. The maid's tantrum starts loud, but Soyu looks annoyingly unshaken. Her smug little refusal backfires, because he barely budges at all. She doubles down on the chase, preaching no escape like that's serious. Then even her own face cracks, realizing his timing has turned ruthless, and just like that, the first exchange lands hard, forcing her opening wide. Because his first form strike isn't flashy, just humiliatingly efficient, he resets with total composure, like this mess is already his. Then the common invitation sets up a clean, cursed engagement, and the attacker's strike becomes her disaster as the pressure keeps rising until Soyu orders the stop, while she's left drowning in panic. The maid's reckless charge starts strong, until Soyu reads it instantly, and her face freezes when his timing turns viciously precise, because that clean counter does all the talking. And none of it is polite. While she can only stare as he resets like this was expected, then his smug invitation lands, and the whole exchange gets embarrassingly personal as his follow-up snaps through her guard, making her panic look adorable, since he casually reminds her he never forgot martial arts, obviously, and that blackened strike answers her boast with terrifying confidence, launching her and the others downward in one brutally coordinated collapse, before Soyu snaps for focus, leaving her wrecked and spiraling. So the maid's smug little lecture starts here, mocking his neat outfit, otherwise, but Soyu's answer is brutal, a kick blasting straight upward through confidence, and suddenly has teaching martial arts like a textbook, inner power, technique, flow, then blackened force detonates through her guard, turning arrogance into airborne regret, because that hit doubles the power, and her composure doubles its damage. While Soyu grins like this chaos was obvious, casually inviting more trouble, her dark aura surges anyway. All theatrics and panic wearing a cheap mask, but he warns the timing's off. And broken bones sound merciful, really. So the next strike crashes in, and her whole face loses the argument. Then he tells her to focus too, which is hilarious now. Campus gossip detonates as young Soyu's name starts ricocheting everywhere, because the same kid who seemed harmless now demands absolute focus, and even his glare makes the arrogant crowd suddenly shut up, while a worried voice questions whether this ridiculous training stunt is necessary. Then the onlookers spot him again, somehow turning into the campus celebrity, and one smug student practically cackles, pointing out his dead-eyed attitude, only to admit he looked human again after eating. How generous, as recovery clearly returns his mind too, which is adorable optimism, but the crew keeps insisting he won't drop the edgy teen act, so the bold little menace decides to fix him properly again. The whole crowd is already gossiping, acting like his situation is painfully obvious, and somebody swears they'll fix it now. Before the chance disappears. How noble. Then the room erupts when the interruption hits, because apparently subtlety died yesterday. While the girl in front of him gets forced into the spotlight, looking absolutely doomed, the mood jumps to the city skyline, where everything feels absurdly high stakes and dramatic, and the shirtless hothead starts arguing with himself like, this is a fitness miracle, but the maid girl is already losing her patience, because nonsense keeps multiplying. Then his face twists in pure shock as the pressure finally lands. Adorable confidence collapse, before a steady hand pins the whole mess down, like the adults finally arrived, and even the wrist device feels cursed, because now nobody gets to play cool. The awkward standoff opens with the maid girl already drowning in secondhand embarrassment, because one smug glance later, her expression says she regrets everything about tonight, while the shirtless idiot keeps flexing his confidence like that makes him impressive. Then his wrist device steals the spotlight, casually exposing how unserious this whole act was. And the poor guy still tries to smirk, as if delusion counts as charm, but the maid girl's patience snaps, her glare turning the whole room colder. Next comes the dramatic collapse, and suddenly his bravery looks painfully counterfeit. With the pressure finally landing, he folds fast, proving arrogance has no endurance. By the time the dust settles, has left staring like a defeated extra, and the only thing standing taller is the embarrassment he brought himself. The room detonates as the maid girl demands answers, glaring like pure disaster, and the shirtless fool's confidence is already wobbling under her outrage because everyone's suddenly gossiping about weirdly specific secrets, including that ridiculous Christmas cosplay, and now the whole mess gets pinned on him, with suspicion circling like vultures, while she snaps harder, recoiling at his shameless close nonsense. Then the real humiliation lands, since his shirt's sliding down like a tragic punchline, and the blue-haired witness cannot believe this idiot actually thought that was smooth. As the embarrassment spreads, the accusation shifts toward Do-hyun, dragging him into the chaos, with the furious girl ordering decency and yelling for him to cover up properly, leaving the monk-level dignity of the scene completely crushed beneath everyone's secondhand shame. A white flame ripples from him, turning the whole scene weirdly divine, and every word around that power feels like truth sharpening the air, because this legend begins with the founder of a nameless sect, and even his smallest statement somehow makes reality kneel. How convenient, which explains why everyone panicked when they heard he was called a saint, since his return alone apparently means trouble is clocking in on schedule. Then the next morning finds him half awake, looking absurdly innocent, while the room quietly insists this is exactly how disasters start, and even the sky outside feels too soft for the coming chaos, because one simple call can still make silver-haired trouble sound cute. The legend starts lazily, with a bird on his head and chaos on speed dial, while the fresh harvest somehow looks healthier than the kid everyone misjudged, and that smug countryside banter lands, as the bird keeps nesting like royalty, because students are already screaming over food, fame, and this ridiculous comeback. Then the same crowd starts praising him like he returned from the dead, so naturally he gets sent off for snacks, with Master Sungjin name-dropped again, and the follow-up promise of herbs and medicinal liquor makes the whole thing worse, as he just stares ahead, letting the bird peck around like it owns him, while the gossip mutters that she is doing well, and Amipa sounds oddly domestic, before the close-up seals it, calm face intact, bird tapping away, impossible as ever. Inside the room, somebody storms in, shattering the quiet with urgent bad news, and the talk instantly turns serious training. Because this kid's reputation is snowballing, then the door opens on a warning about Site N, the shady job market, where the bald overseer demands answers, acting offended by the sheer chaos, while the black-haired staffer finally admits it's the illegal side of work, and that site ranks users daily, turning labor into a warped popularity contest, meaning non-monastery fighters scramble for jobs, like desperate extras chasing crumbs, except now a trio is rocketing upward, and everyone can smell the scandal, so the examiner stares harder, hearing the name without getting the satisfaction, and one finger taps the keyboard, sealing the reveal like a tiny verdict. Site N finally cracks open the room, and the bald overseer bristles at the report, while the black-haired monk coolly labels it illegal work. Then the whole scandal detonates into a comic mess of flying insignia, because the runaway shadow is already shredding the hallway with smug menace, and now the monster is the least ridiculous part of this circus, while one witness screams in pure over-caffeinated panic, absolutely losing it, as the staffer keeps driving the chase toward that glaring breach, and the shadow gets launched straight through the city like a bad omen, leaving the aftermath to a terrified silhouette frozen over the wreckage, with the bat-wielder charging in behind it, too late, and somehow still heroic. The runaway shadow keeps carving the hall, a smug disaster in motion, while the chase slams straight through the window and the whole room fractures. The witness starts flailing in panic, and honestly, fair, because that thing still looks untouchable until the pursuer finally clips it, sending menace reeling. Then the cleanup scene turns into a report session, where the monk stops pretending and starts grilling everyone about the illegal site, the ranking system, and who keeps causing these absurd messes, as if any of them plan to be legendary, because the error is finally caught. The monster pinned like an overconfident joke, while the hall settles under the damage, and the pursuer stands there, still, as if this disaster was always going to end with somebody else looking foolish. In the wrecked hall, the monster finally gets clipped and starts wobbling, while the witness stares up like reality just personally insulted him, and the whole city-sized chase turns into a loud, humiliating warning, because the strike lands clean and the supposedly untouchable thing keeps reeling. Then the pursuer hangs in the air, annoyingly calm, as if this was easy, with every broken surface screaming that the structure already lost the argument, and the pressure in the scene shifts into that smug, controlled airflow as the target crouches in the shattered frame, looking way less majestic now, before one final impact blossoms white across the glass like pure bad news, and the escape carries on between the towers, leaving the monster embarrassed. The cap-wearing lookout freezes as the blast keeps chewing through the air. Then the smug target flashes that annoying grin, because apparently humiliation is his hobby, while the office wall erupts and the witnesses nearly jump out of their skins, and even the cafe signage survives better than the dignity of everyone inside, because the report comes in with a brutal scorecard, calling the capture a disaster. Then the broken window tax gets added too, since collateral damage always finds a bill, and the complaint escalates into robbery-level accusations, which is honestly hilarious, before the bald monk starts taking the whole mess personally, like a furious auditor, with Ong sitting there scorched, glowering, and somehow making failure look theatrical, until the tower below gets the next scream, proving the panic still has fuel. At first, this whole circus was just Ong supervising training. Then the witnesses lost their minds, and his lesson turned legendary, but the old monk only smiled. Because Master Sungjin already knew, Yang Soyu was finally growing, while everyone else stayed gloriously rattled. And Ong admitted the real problem was experience, not talent, meaning fake error training had been coddling him like a pampered prince, while missions finally pushed him beyond monastery-approved safety rails, so he started adapting fast, handling work without any polished filter, which is exactly why Sungjin's old care now looks embarrassingly short-sighted, because this rookie is leveling up, and the whole campus is noticing. Master Sungjin's old self is finally surfacing, and the room knows it, so everyone watches longer, hoping the legendary weirdness keeps getting worse. Then the fluffy error collector starts squinting at the whole setup, and suddenly jumps back to that Cheongsan initiation, where the reader stood out, because no, that must be the handsome kid everyone keeps obsessing over, while the special unit poster boy gets dragged in as Master Sungjin's disciple, and even the skeptic admits that person looks way better up close. Weeks later, the whole thing detonates again, like gossip with perfect timing. Now the assignment is real training, not the pampered little errands before, because clients used to choose them, and now the job chooses back. A request lands on their desk, and suddenly the whole operation smells lucrative, except the commission is uglier than the job, and apparently more dangerous too. So the client gets the usual suspicious welcome, because subtlety clearly died ages ago, and the answer is a smug, yes, like this is all painfully routine. That settles it, as if they've just discovered fire instead of paperwork. Then comes the cheerful high five, the kind that screams terrible decisions, while everyone nearby is already huffing like this. Workload personally offended them. Naturally, somebody starts whining about kids needing sleep, very heroic of them. So the duo marches off through the halls, pretending they are not exhausted. And that final close-up says it all, because the hype train is still rolling. Heavy steps echo through the hall, all swagger and bad timing, while the already broken kid climbs in, drenched in panic and humiliation, and the scene drifts upward, towards some absurdly polished meeting room, where a lonely teapot sits like it's judging everyone's life choices, because this is the kind of place where clients get sized up, not welcomed. Then the bag-faced boss casually tags the target as a feisty goon, while the two suited stooges sit there like unpaid furniture, and the mask only sharpens when the real request finally lands, since the tiny glowing trinket gets shoved across like a criminal favor, but the red-haired woman immediately snaps back, ordering theft instead. The bag-faced boss fixates on the red pearl, already smelling trouble, then coolly remembers the client's absurdly dangerous reputation, which is adorable, because the orange-haired rival turns a simple request into a theft demand, while that twin-tailed inspector reads every awkward detail like gospel, and the cap-wearing witness gets blindsided by a name drop from nowhere, making the nearby observer stare like reality itself just coughed. Since the room suddenly treats them as old acquaintances, how tragic. Then the whole meeting detonates into a ridiculous blast of summoned fire, leaving the red-haired girl flailing at the words Master Sungjin, as everyone realizes this petty negotiation just escalated into disaster. The red-haired girl unveils trap, and everyone freezes mid-breath, because the room's fancy little amplifier turns out to be pure chaos, while the silver-haired skeptic eyes her beads, suddenly very unamused. Then she drops the noble rumor, casually making the whole room glitch, and the orange-haired rival practically combusts at the Master Sungjin name, because this humiliation started as a petty demand and grew expensive, so she finally admits her family fought the monastery dream, and that one loyal guardian died, leaving vengeance in her eye, which explains why the bracelet of beads feels heavier than steel, and now she swears to grow stronger, then bury the grief. The request lands like a quiet poison, dressed up as polite business, because the red pearls are already tied to that ruined grave hunting ground, and the red-haired girl coolly admits her father bought them all, but won't hand them over unless she finally walks away from Cheongsan, so she turns the whole mess into a party heist, offering herself as bait, and the long-haired man gives her plan exactly the respect it deserves. None, while she insists it is not stealing, just slipping past a restraint skill, with the room glitching over the error guarding those pearls. Naturally, then the others get up to leave. Like this disaster ever had manners, and the boy just sits there, looking far too pleased with himself. The smug courier waves off the request, proving he already heard the refusal, while the red-haired girl sits trapped in a polished room full of awkward tension. Her face says everything, because that dramatic little revenge speech hit hard, and outside, the city lights swallow two shadows, as gossip starts mutating into legend. Then she doubles down on the grief angle, turning pain into a vengeance manifesto. Naturally, the bystanders treat her tragic story like late-night snacks in disbelief, and the cap-wearing girl snaps back, chewing through the drama with zero patience, because apparently this whole mess is just another mouthful of unwanted confession, while a battle-ready crew vows debt repayment, holding the line like professionals. Then the skyline crackles with escape talk, and the whole nightmare aims elsewhere. So now she's casually talking dragon-slaying first, because subtlety died ages ago, and the cap-wearing kid instantly starts wondering if he should retreat, while the whole thing gets sold as a rescue mission instead of chaos, with a brand new team announcement already hanging over the city like a flex, and the rich-looking handler makes the dullest logistics sound ridiculously important. As the crew reaches the gate, where the house looks suspiciously expensive, and the street outside is packed with gawking extras, feeding the rumor machine, because even the taxi window can't hide how absurdly loaded this place is. Yet the smug briefing keeps going, acting like espionage is just homework, while the blonde kid boasts he memorized every camera, every guard, every weakness. Red-haired and razor-eyed, she instantly exposes the vault problem, because that front entrance keeps changing errors like a cursed lottery, and apparently tonight is perfect, since most guards are partying elsewhere, which sounds heroic, until the smug boy starts selling bait duty, like it is a birthday favor, complete with driveway-level theatrics, while her heel taps in, all urgency and zero patience, looking every bit like the boss of this glorified robbery. Then she stares down the plan with that terrifying, polished confidence, ordering the distraction crew to handle the crowd and keep moving, before turning away, as if nobody else in the room mattered. The red-haired girl finally mutters thanks, and that tiny crack in her pride says everything, because the ride outside already feels like a getaway, not a rescue, and somehow that's impressive, while the suited boy sits there looking annoyingly composed, as if chaos is his hobby. Then the birthday logic gets roasted, since she was supposed to hide discomfort, not become a tragic masterpiece. But all anyone can really do is note her awkward gratitude, delivered like she's swallowing glass, which sparks the obvious question from the others, because yes, she should probably be furious instead. Yet the real mess is the battlefield next, with teammates spreading out like desperate extras, and the aftermath lands hard, leaving one face down, and the whole situation embarrassingly one-sided, until the boy's stare turns colder, because now he sees exactly who's been shaken, and he twists the knife by hinting that losing a teammate hurts. Like a pro. The quiet prodigy is already wearing that deadly calm, and the city knows it. His eyes barely shift, yet the whole rumor mill starts worshipping him anyway. Meanwhile, the ride to campus feels absurdly dramatic, like a villain arrival scene. He slips off with that uselessly polished confidence, because subtlety died first. Even the building seems to flinch, as his reputation keeps punching through campus walls. Then comes the big announcement, and the poor guy still has homework-level composure. He walks that hallway like the guards were decorative, not actual security. The vault stands there acting impressive, while he calls their caution pathetic. One look later, he decides the door is basically begging to be embarrassed. So he summons the so-called universal key, and the lock's dignity evaporates. Young Soyu strolls in laughing, like the vault already belongs to him. Then the steel door seals behind him, and the mood gets uglier. Inside, he toys with the darkness, calling this place the vault room. That calm stare says he's already mapped the whole problem out. A hidden presence snaps into view, and the prophecy starts grinning. Whatever lurks there looks monstrous, but he refuses to flinch or panic, so he throws up a barrier, turning the ambush into a joke. Close enough now, his eyes sharpen, because the real test starts. Even the red force keeps crashing uselessly against his barrier. Then the verdict lands. No other presence detected, just that thing guarding here. In the vault room, the prophecy starts talking, and that is already insulting. The dark thing gets profiled as cunning and human, which is somehow worse. So he hugs the wall, dragging the others deeper into pure blackness. Then he tries bargaining with the nightmare. Like monsters charge hourly rates. The response is panic, because even his confidence just got audited. Red hair and dripping menace lock onto him, practically licking out suspicion. The hooded figure decides his soul is wrong, because subtlety died here. Still, he keeps advancing, lantern bright, and annoyingly unbothered by doom. The monster repeats that he does not belong, as if that's a revelation. And the command comes through loud and clear: ignore it and move forward. He vanishes into the black vault, hand braced against danger. And the monster answers with pure confusion, because swagger is apparently offensive. Then the hooded terror starts negotiating the price of prophecy like a scammer, and Yang Soyu just stares back, looking annoyingly calm for a kid in doom. The prophecy gets nastier, naming the silver-haired one for death, yet his eyes widen anyway as the room keeps muttering change, change, change. Around them, the red haze thickens, and even the bravado starts choking, because the voice finally sees everything, whispering that he already lost too much. Then it corners him with the cruel little truth that everybody is beside him, and the whole cast gets reduced to loud woman, sad man, girl, rich man, fairy, and dead. Red-stained faces crowd the vision, hissing that everybody resents him, and the poor guy stands in a murdery aura while the prophecy gets personal. Then the monk starts hawking doom like a discount fortune teller, asking 50,000 won, while Yang Soyu just stares sideways, looking way too calm for this circus, because the price is apparently negotiable, and the scammer even accepts bank transfer, though the red void keeps muttering change, change, change around his hooded grin, as if taxes, despair, and death all got filed under the same invoice, until the hooded face leans in and spots a scarred man beside him, instantly calling out another marked soul, like fate is building a pathetic lineup, and that's when the whole room realizes the prophecy already picked its victims. Ong's prophecy lands like a knife, and the room goes dead silent, while the monk starts charging 50,000 won for premium disaster service. Soyu barely blinks, because apparently doom scams now accept bank transfer, and the hooded void keeps muttering change like a broken cash register. Then that creepy face spots the scarred man beside him, tagging another victim, so the prophecy suddenly feels less mystical and more like a shopping list, as the red-eyed freak escalates to 500 million, begging absurdly, and the hooded silhouette answers with the kind of threat nobody refunds, before the whole room gets blasted by that blunt, terrifying death sentence, leaving everyone sweating hard. While Soyu still looks annoyingly unshaken, the warning drops like a funeral bell, and the brown-haired student is already doomed. Then the pressure spikes, louder, uglier, and the thing keeps pretending it can't be seen. Meanwhile, the monastery pair and a tiny kid get swallowed by crimson panic, while the blindfolded girl watches that chaos bloom into something way more disgusting. Now the rumor crowd erupts, because Yang Soyu and Park Jisung suddenly sound legendary, and every gossip addict starts worshipping Master Sungjin like he personally signed the apocalypse. Even the pretty monk poster boy gets dragged into the noise, grinning through the mess, while Ong treats prophecy like a price sheet, calmly escalating the nightmare. Then the trio locks in around the sword threat, looking offended by reality itself, until the old examiner finally swings in, and the whole scam gets checked hard. The crimson trap snaps shut, and the kid meets pure nightmare first, while the lake turns ugly, spitting blood like it owns the place. Then the restraint skill lands, neat as a flex, called trap, and the hooded examiner watches, pricing doom like a luxury scam, because even the monk crew starts panicking over 500 million, before Ong drags the body forward, proving alone was always a joke. Now the old monster grins, basically asking if they get it, while the pretty poster boy and witnesses freeze, finally humbled, because teammates matter, says the bald menace. Like that's brand new, and thinking you can handle everything alone gets roasted hard. The big shot hits the floor first, and the room instantly goes awkward, because even his face says the bragging finally got knocked loose. Then Karis' blurred entrance turns the whole scene into expensive confusion, as the loudmouth student comes barreling in, acting like panic is leadership, and the next witness can only laugh, because this train wreck is legendary, while another kid stares frozen, realizing the gossip was somehow worse. Then the same stunned face tightens, like the embarrassment just upgraded, and the poor guy's soul visibly leaves, because damn, that's humiliating, before he folds over Kara, desperate enough to chase anyone with answers, and now even Kara gets pulled into the mess. As the teasing starts, the room turns icy as the long-haired spokesman starts the damage control circus, and the message lands fast, pushing everyone toward the next panic move, because a servant delivers tea like this is diplomacy, not humiliation. While the family politely blames the disaster on their daughter's messy judgment, then casually admits they lost a valuable talent, which is adorable timing, since the hooded trick behind it all reads memories and forges fake futures, and some veteran even shrugs off the prophecy nonsense, calling most of it bogus, before the orange-haired ally seals the deal, acting like this is settled, as the red-haired girl gets boxed in harder, with nowhere to hide anymore, and the host smugly suggests they can keep chatting, because leaving is optional. In that polished room, the tea service starts like diplomacy, not surrender, and the old monk calmly announces only this absurdly elite disaster can handle zero-rank errors, because the family's polished shame keeps piling up, while blame gets passed around elegantly. Then the boys' whole team gets name-dropped, as if saving him was always the plan, and the demon sword girl gets praised as the backbone, which is finally honest for once, while the nobleman who protected him gets folded into the legend, just to make it hurt more. Then the strategic leader Noah enters the story, turning the rumor mill into a weapons factory, followed by Guardian Chobam, who makes the whole crew sound like a heroic circus, and the so-called dragon itself gets invoked, because subtlety died years ago, before the ruler of the skies seals it, and suddenly everyone looks very small. Inside this absurd living room standoff, they decide one kid fights alone, and the elder monk instantly erupts, calling that plan stupidly reckless, because the Red Crow got destroyed, so now everybody panics theatrically, while the slick blonde one mocks the solo act, pretending concern isn't just fear. Then the nightmare gets compared to someone charging into fire, charmingly suicidal, and even the dream version of him was apparently less unhinged than this, so the monk orders him to reflect, like bad judgment is a spiritual hobby. As his face hardens, the whole room senses the reputation damage spreading, and the comeback lands coldly, saying they should have told the truth first, because 5 of the 9 died already, you scammer monk. Cheong-san's pressure cooker mood starts with Ong, smug as ever, while the elegant student beside him keeps the panic-looking professional, and down on the couch, Soyu gets treated like a gossip scandal, because everyone's still mocking the same kid who allegedly snitched. Then the calm spokesman shrugs off the distinction, since to them it's all identical, and that tiny dismissal lands like a slap, instantly souring the room, as Soyu slouches there, looking less guilty than exhausted by everyone's nonsense, while the suits keep their cool, pretending this isn't already a public humiliation. The whole convoy then heads out, dragging the situation into the hallway, and the final glare says the reputation war has officially exploded. Soya's fed-up face says this blame game is already getting ridiculous, because they're acting like handing him over fixed anything, and wow. Brilliant logic. Then the room drags him into that same nightmare again, still calling him the problem, while he just lies there, exhausted enough to threaten a dramatic leg-stretch sleep, and now the stoic elite finally admits the worst news. 5 of 9 are dead, which is the kind of update that should have arrived before everyone started posturing, yet Soyu just stares back, completely done with their nonsense and fake outrage, so the other side panics, suddenly insisting he can leave if she stays safe, and outside, the little pink bird somehow becomes the messenger of that bargain. Then the answer lands sweetly smug, move the schedule up, and leave already. The mysterious silver-haired girl cuts off the delay, already leaving. Meanwhile, campus rumor gremlins turn Soyu into a walking celebrity. Even the call gets hijacked, with Master Sungjin dragged into it. Then the silver-haired girl deletes the number, like it offended her, and the blindfolded girl proves the attitude came with her exit plan. Under the quiet ceiling, the room starts feeling like a trap again, while another phone call drags in more absurd baggage and expectations. Beep, the messenger arrives with herbs, trying to sound considerate. She smiles through the chaos, promising medicine and an annoyingly sweet goodbye. Then she casually tags Master Sungjin too, because subtlety is dead. In the quiet room, Soya's mercy request lands like a headline, and the caller freaks out, because apparently his name now comes with baggage, while the blindfolded girl keeps her smile, casually ordering kindness. Then she protects the kid like a saint, which is almost insulting, honestly. Outside, Soyu stares at the sudden attention spiral, wondering what he even did, and the gossip machine answers by calling him pitiful, as if fame were a disease. Then the monks freeze at the doorstep, sensing trouble before it arrives, because that black-robed menace is already hunting the missing sword, and the room drops into that awful silence right before panic hits, while Soyu, of course, looks like he walked out of the chaos itself. A tiny bird crowns Soyu, and the whole campus starts giggling. Then the doorway opens, and that fame avalanche finally walks in. The lobby practically snaps shut, because everyone feels the rumor thunder. Inside, he spots the fridge talk, and answers with deadpan confusion. The sudden scramble makes him vanish again, like reputation is chasing him. Back at the couch, they order sleep, as if that fixes anything. Of course, he still lunges for chaos, proving peace is not his brand. Even the room pauses, because this idiot somehow keeps escalating. Before long, he is stretched out, still clutching his phone like evidence, and everyone else just stares, wondering how he keeps surviving this. The whole room freezes, because Yang Soyas' reputation hits like a truck. Even his own entrance looks suspiciously casual, which somehow makes it worse. One student blocks the door, acting like this surprise visit is illegal, but Soyu gets denied basic hospitality, and the awkwardness becomes elite comedy. He still gets seated anyway, while the silence keeps getting more expensive. Then the roommate side-eyes him, clearly wondering why fame found this guy. From the doorway, everyone keeps glitching out, because his presence feels unnatural. Soyu just sits there, mildly confused, like none of this is his fault. Then the breakthrough hits, and the bare-handed bird-catching plan sounds legendary, so the monk crowd watches another absurd legend form, whether they like it or not. Inside the temple yard, the old woman cannot believe this speed, while Ong grimly wonders if training is already broken, and the smug observer beside him suddenly loses his arrogance, because the joke plan to catch the bird now feels real. Then the airborne clone detonates into red chaos overhead, leaving everyone stunned as the replica gets swatted down, and the mention of Master Sungjin sends the whole crowd reeling, as Soya's reputation keeps mutating into pure campus folklore, with airflow, sensory stimulation, and body response all turning dramatic. By the end, even the watchers are spiraling, thoroughly outclassed. In the middle of that wild rush, Soyu praises the drain, then insults Dragon King Liquor. His whole body surges with a blue frenzy, and suddenly has never felt anything like this. Then the brown-haired girl throws up a hand, stunned by his impossible confidence. Soyu explains the techniques, ugly truth, a power that steals an opponent's inner force. She counters with the hidden requirement, and apparently both sides need Eastern martial arts. Soyu casually admits he knows it roughly, which is hilarious considering her shock. Inside Noah's library dreamscape, he claims even chi absorption was never complicated there. Back in the room, he flips the table, saying she expected to be the one drained. She warns that the aftermath lasts for days, while he just asks if she is sure. Then her smug face freezes, because this arrogant little lesson just got personal. The pretty boy's smugness was already shining before the lesson even finished, and the first stunned witness practically begs him to prove it right. So Soyu drops the technique's dirty secret, a brutal inner force theft, while the shocked brunette learns both sides need Eastern martial arts. Lucky her. Then the library-brained explanation kicks in, where chi absorption sounded easy, and Soyu flips the whole room by admitting he expected to drain her. She panics about the lingering damage, but he only questions her confidence, while the older monk's absence suddenly matters way more than anyone expected. That leaves the loudmouth spiraling over why the mentor vanished so fast, and Soyu standing there, acting helpful as the humiliation keeps climbing. The room turns razor tense as Soyu finally exposes the techniques, ugly, secret, and the girl's smug face cracks when his answer lands like a brick. He piles on the absurd part next, ancient languages and Eastern martial arts, then casually ties it to Noah's library. Like this is all homework to him. The brunette tries to push back, but Soyu just keeps the pressure climbing because he already knows she overheard everything, and that confidence is embarrassing. Meanwhile, the older monk's disappearance suddenly looks suspiciously convenient, which only worsens her panic. She spirals over the damage, while he acts helpful in the most infuriating way, until the loudmouth finally explodes, looking like a man whose pride got kneecapped. And Soyu just stands there, turning humiliation into a public spectator sport. She corners Soyu, demanding answers as his obnoxious legend keeps growing, and he coolly drops Dream Crossing, 70-year lessons, like it's normal homework. Then the brunette keeps pressing, only to learn he already heard everything, which makes her panic harder, because he knows she snooped and he knows it, while another student stares blankly, realizing Soyu's reputation has become campus gasoline, and Soyu just rubs his nose, acting bored enough to weaponize the silence, before the loudmouth finally breaks, whining like pride itself got mugged, but Soyu shuts it down, calling for everyone to move inside already. Then the room turns into an awkward half-bow, half-collapse of pure embarrassment, and even the old woman's presence feels like another witness to his rising myth. Inside Cheongsan's office, the old monk starts the Amipa news, and everyone freezes, while two lost hikers stumble through the forest, already regretting this little adventure. Then the adults spot a pair of kids, and instantly panic, because that's adorable and suspicious. The children are filthy, crying, and begging for help like the woods personally bullied them, until the smaller one blurts out the monastery, which is apparently where all nightmares file in, because the trail beyond is smeared with blood, and the sisters are all missing. And there's Soyu again, staring like he already knew this disaster before it happened, which sends the room into confusion, as Kara realizes Amipa was never just one place, but a hidden sect living on Mount Ami, buried behind that peaceful scenery, and even the hooded nuns prove it, because the old name was just camouflage. Amipa looks harmless here, just farms and nuns hiding impossible secrets, because its barrier is legendary, a maze nobody reaches unless raised inside, and that same wall was left by a compassionate saint for the poor, which is adorable until the adults spot two filthy kids and panic, since Amipa's hidden place somehow got attacked, shocking one clueless onlooker, only for the elder to reveal the bigger mystery behind everything. Naturally, two survivors made it out, the kids who visited Kara this morning, So the farewell turns into a crying, clingy disaster nobody asked for, with every visit soon and take care sounding painfully overdramatic until the bus finally comes, and the forest swallows their drama. The ride starts sweet enough, with the silver-haired caretaker approving snacks like a proud connoisseur, then casually flexing the city's best treats, because apparently even pastries get status updates here, and she tops it off by promising strawberry siru cake next time, turning dessert into a threat, before the scene jumps to the bus stop, where the trio stands ready and suspiciously emotional, with the kids suddenly glued to her like the farewell itself offended their entire childhood, as the bus arrives and the forest eats the moment, taking their drama with it, leaving the silver-haired woman blinking at the chaos, because yes, even she did not expect this, while the sky above the trees starts acting weirdly possessed, showering the whole place with signs. Then the little one stares at the barrier's name and the old monk starts exposing its history, revealing that this supposedly hidden wall was a saint's gift, which is adorable until disaster shows up. The whole forest freezes, because that gasp means trouble, obviously. Kara hurls the kids back, and the panic train officially leaves. The siblings spiral into confusion, then start treating waiting like warfare. Even their brave little plan crumbles, because suspense loves humiliating children, and now everyone's pretending this awkward pep talk counts as strategy. The farewell gets softer, until the whole thing turns painfully sentimental. Then the kids spot Kara again, and scream her name like salvation. But the silver-haired woman's face tightens, sensing something ugly underneath. Because the next beat is blood, a crazed attacker, and bad timing. And then the monster crashes in, turning the forest into a slaughterhouse. The kids' panic booms through the forest, and the air turns viciously red, because that was the last sighting, with one child already vanishing into legend, and the recovery team coldly insists only 2 children made it out alive, while Kara is now missing, which is a lovely little disaster for everyone, so the witnesses freeze, demanding who actually carried out the attack. Then the answer lands like a joke with blood on it. And Soyu appears, grinning through gore like this whole massacre is somehow his audition, which obviously sends the scene straight into another absurdly wealthy house, where the poor guy gets manhandled, because apparently trauma is now a house rule, and he begs for distance, while everyone pretends that counts as comfort. Inside this house, the atmosphere snaps as one boy gets mood-policed brutally, and the girl immediately demands mercy, acting like his patience is her property. Then she keeps escalating until the whole room feels one breath away from collapse, while he's cornered so hard the air itself seems to start filing complaints. Yet somehow, after the chaos, that ridiculous pressure finally makes him call it better, and now he's upside down in the mess, begging for teleportation like it's a lifeline. But she shuts that dream down cold, mocking the idea of a shortcut, because Mount Ami is absurdly far, and waiting is apparently the only option, so both of them end up wrecked, panting through envelopes and bad decisions, before the scene settles into exhausted silence, with tissues doing the emotional cleanup. She corners the poor guy, barking about the dog and his useless social instincts, and he twists the answer into some friendship lecture, because apparently that's survival now. The blonde girl just keeps pressing, obsessed with that dog like it owns the house, while he finally sighs that the thing deserves to live well. What a heroic breakthrough. Then the scene jumps to the investigation team, trudging in with grim monk discipline, as the mountain backdrop screams this problem is already way beyond normal, and the search party keeps pushing through the ghost forest like it's routine, until a black-haired figure stops cold, sensing something absurdly wrong ahead, because even the calmest watcher can tell this barrier is not ordinary. And the rainbow wall seals the path, making everyone realize the hunt just got serious. Inside the barrier, everything feels sturdy and delicate, almost sacredly engineered, and even a simple touch comes back warm, like the place is alive, because this is the kind monk barrier built to shelter survivors, with children growing up in love, which is frankly the rarest miracle here, so the city below now frames the monastery like a looming problem. While the investigation team insists the barrier was flawless, of course, nothing suspicious at all, except the surviving children somehow made entry possible, exposing the whole system, and the damage screams retaliation, not a random tantrum or accident, for Monk Kara's earlier conflict, the kind of backstory that always gets expensive. While the crowd stares at the blonde center figure, suddenly everyone's favorite target, Monk Kara's body still isn't found, which is frankly terrible, so the investigators hedge between abduction and disappearance, because nuance saves nobody. Then they admit the long-term contingency plan is already brewing, and that's the polite way of saying the room is in trouble, because right now the biggest headache is the missing woman herself, since that impenetrable barrier got breached by the dragon again, turning grave hunting ground and amoeba headquarters into useless bragging rights, while Cheongsan slips into emergency alert status, as expected, so today's meeting becomes a full department survival briefing, and then they casually drop Do-hyun like he's the final consolation prize. Ong suddenly orders Harani back, because the monastery is clearly spiraling, while the exhausted monks stand there like backups nobody asked for, already bracing, as the whole detour to this little temple starts feeling suspiciously important, and Soyu wears that same polished face, the one that now starts rumors by existing, when the silver-haired girl notices the sacred spectacle and calls it absurdly intense. Now the crew reaches a neighborhood temple, and even the route feels overdramatic. Then she mocks the situation like a sparrow trapped near a mill, and refuses focus. So the boy explains that it is not praying, just making vows instead, because apparently dramatic heart promises sound cleaner than saying he is nervous. And there it is, a vow to grow as mothers and sisters hoped. Under the temple sky, Soyu's vow hangs like a tiny miracle for younger siblings, and the promise to protect those beside him lands with eerie, ridiculous sincerity, while another vow pushes forward. All grit and no surrender, because quitting looks cheaper, so the temple bells answer as both of them kneel in the sacred doorway, and the silver-haired girl, finally close enough to hear it, calls him a good kid, which is basically the softest possible way to admit this whole act hit her hard, because the one who looked after her dropped her somewhere connectionless, with baggage included, yet this place that had nothing left still gave her a new room beside him, and that gentle proximity breaks her composure, turning the vow into a trembling farewell before the moment disappears, leaving Soyu with only silence and a very expensive feeling. She might not come back, and that news lands like a cheap knife. Meanwhile, Soyu's flimsy middle school disguise collapses instantly, because subtlety clearly died young. The crowd stares as his normal kid act crumbles into public embarrassment. Then the meeting ends, leaving that whole tense room hanging in expensive silence. Attendance gets called, and everyone files in like obedient extras for the spectacle. Soyu's name scratches onto the page, each line making the rumor machine grin. Group hypnosis activates, and the room turns into a glowing purple mess. The spell starts weaving through everyone, because apparently subtle manipulation is too mainstream. Then the so-called Cheongsan traitor gets singled out, ordered to raise a hand, and the whole lineup freezes, realizing this scandal already picked its victim. Pink chaos crowns Do-hyun, as Cheongsan's pretty boy gets hilariously summoned, and the monks start swaying like he just weaponized a dance floor, while the office turns into a packed sermon circus, everyone frozen mid-exit, because Soyu's name hits the roster, and the gossip machine starts salivating. Then the meeting drags on, proving subtlety died somewhere before lunch, as trainees whisper about rest and saunas, relieved this nightmare is ending. Do-hyun finally reappears, all polished, calm, and cheek-marked vanity intact, then exits with that smug senior monk energy, leaving the room humbled, because apparently he has also Yukwon's everything helper, the monastery's walking resume, and the whole scene slams shut with one last, obnoxiously confident silence. As I say, as you see, the monk crowd drifts into smug certainty, and that unseen skill only gets nastier when nobody can name it, while the hallway sermon turns into a sealed Cheongsan conspiracy. No subtlety, because resisting that kind of truth apparently is for amateurs, not monks. So when the claim lands that no traitor opened the barrier, nice try, the whole mystery narrows into some non-monk helper backing the dragon. And suddenly Cheongsan's veteran list feels like a joke, because old comrades make the answer obvious, leaving the room staring at that watery aftermath, where the silver-haired man finally surfaces, looking absurdly relieved, like hygiene, while the pool below still churns, proving this cleanup was never simple. The dragon, in a word, is the sky's apex predator, its mere existence wrecking every fragile aerial mistake, because subtlety clearly quit, and that elegance alone makes even disaster look weirdly effortless, like cheating, until the barrier theory cracks, since somebody else clearly helped it, which leaves the monastery hunting for a non-member accomplice. How convenient. Then a hand slips into the water and triggers quiet neutralization, revealing the silver-haired man staring at that hole with surgical boredom, because no flaw remained, just one stupidly perfect moment of interference, and even the cleanup whispers neutralization, as if that solves everything, while his face says the mystery only got more embarrassing. The barrier ripples like a bad lie, finally exposing someone's interference, and that elegant face barely reacts, because effortless cheating is his brand, while the monks instantly pivot to hunt the non-member accomplice, since the truth got neutralized, which is just a fancy way to say sabotaged. Then the search narrows on that suspiciously perfect interference point, and one hand reaching through the water seals the whole disaster shut, leaving the room to freeze as the cleanup finally looks almost respectable. The bald monk stares back, absolutely stunned by the logic collapse circus. Then the order spreads. Find the suspect who neutralized the barrier, and the silver-haired man watches from below, still disgustingly unbothered. Inside Xiongsan's lobby, the cleanup already smells like damage control and absurdity. That hand on the laptop is the final insult, because the barrier got neutralized. So the monks instantly pivot from failure to manhunt, while Aung's exam circus, now the verdict is brutal, his blossoming score stayed low. And even Aung's test. That should have been impossible, which is exactly why the higher-ups start whispering. The grave-hunting chaos wiped everyone's memory, and somehow that becomes his official mistake. Still, the file survives, so they decide to send people after him, because apparently, he should be hard to miss. Except the skyline already says otherwise, towering. Over the construction site, where workers spot the helmeted target and realize he was very easy to find, and suddenly the hunter looks like the one getting hunted. The monastery has him cornered now, and the first file lands, a bound suspect under bright lights, looking far too calm for their panic, while they swear he skipped the police because restraint is clearly optional, and Aung watches the tape-faced silence crack, realizing the hunt already slipped, so the so-called evidence becomes a comedy reel. With that impossible work log, then a second receipt drops, pinning him at the terminal near Amipa, and even that smug setup backfires, because he barely remembers the day, which only makes the monks sweat harder, as the paper trail keeps barking, until the third clue arrives, that convenience store credit card usage, near the grave grounds, and suddenly the missing guy looks everywhere at once. In the sterile interrogation room, the silver-haired monk starts sizing him up, then thanks him for cooperating. Like this whole ambush was somehow polite, and immediately shoves a confidentiality form across the desk. Because subtlety is dead, the room detonates with a skill trigger, ordering the truth out of him, but the suspect just stares back blankly, basically mocking the fancy intimidation, so the monk's men drag him off. While everyone pretends this is control, then comes the annoyed verdict. The skill missed, and of course it did, because he knew the trick wouldn't land, not on someone this slippery, and the warning follows, very smugly, that skills matter, and truth usually wins. The smug monk corners young Soyu, acting like this interrogation is genius, but Soyu folds instantly, begging to go home, which is humiliating. Then that same calm stare returns, making the lotus-marked kid look terrifyingly unreadable, while the whole scene shifts to the monastery office, where authority pretends to be organized, and Soyu casually explains this happened back during his probation days, just a field operation he merely observed, because apparently being nearby counts as guilt. Meanwhile, the report comes back clean, and the hunters fumble for excuses, so they start warning everyone about a mimic, insisting nobody even speak to it, and of course Soyu answers, because his reputation is still sprinting ahead. Empty field, just Soyu and the blue-haired witness, looking way too innocent. Then the interrogation darkens, and Soyu gets pinned as suspicious. The lotus-marked monk stares him down, as if a kid were the problem. Meanwhile, the wounded captive cries for leadership, and the whole trap reeks. Hes revealed as the one who hurts, whining through the darkness instead. The prisoners beg for the sword to be pulled, like this nightmare is normal. Soyu keeps hearing "help me," which is honestly a terrible sales pitch. The smoke clears, revealing a bloody corpse, and Soyu still overthinking, and naturally, he starts pointing fingers, demanding answers from the stunned monk. Young Soyu gets dragged into the red-black trap, calm face, ugly timing, and the cursed tendrils shove him into confusion while everyone stares like idiots. Then the rookie gets screamed at, as the monk's panic turns theatrical, because a bloody elder is losing it, blaming the kid for everything, while the sword, absurdly, keeps spiking the whole scene with demon-level nonsense, and the monastery's crowd freezes as the body, the fog, and the rumors stack up. Then the silver-haired man drops the receipts, admitting 2 died and 1 quit, which leaves the monk sweating bullets, asking why he's getting this nightmare report, and the whole mess ends with a shocked guard, while suspicion keeps tightening. The silver-haired interrogator opens with receipts, and the monk's composure starts evaporating. Then that knife flashes upward, because apparently subtlety died somewhere before this meeting, while the bald monk sits there sweating, looking like a man who hates his own paperwork, as blood sprays across the room, turning his confident act into expensive-looking panic, and the blue-haired witness freezes, realizing this is no ordinary scolding anymore, because the whole space keeps shredding apart, like the truth is physically strangling him. Then the silver-haired man stands over the desk, laptop untouched, all business and menace, while the monk finally cracks, admitting he does not know, which is hilarious, and that just makes the accusation worse, since survival already looks like a third death. In the purple haze, the cruel enforcer promises no mercy, while the silver-haired interrogator slides in, all blood and attitude, trapping the monk in some painfully bright office, where Cheong-san's top pick supposedly matters, and the room's elders panic as if competence itself just insulted them because the bald monk begs for mercy, begging him to talk. But the silver-haired menace only smiles, soaking the silence in menace. Then the whole exchange snaps wide open, exposing the monk's total ignorance, as the masked observer finally realizes this body is hiding someone else, and, of course, that means the truth is about to get uglier. In your way of putting it, that skill looks parasitic and disgusting, which sends the blue-haired skeptic spinning, because a skill should help dragons, yet the silver-haired monster only keeps that smug, blood-soaked patience, slow and deliberate, first promising happiness, then calling this discovery a jackpot. How generous, while the hospital room holds its breath around the wounded body and 3 stunned witnesses, as the silver-haired man's face goes white, realizing the truth is far worse, because the bald monk is not dealing with the real owner here, and the masked bystanders watch the whole scam unravel into pure panic, so this pathetic little body ends up opening the wave everyone feared. Honestly, he says he nearly vanished months ago without a host, and wow, tragic. Then that dragon-turned-error shows up, apparently saving him like a glitchy miracle. And just like that, the parasite settles into this dying body. How flattering. In the hospital, stunned witnesses demand answers, while the silver-haired man sizes up the mess. The confidence on that bandaged kid is ridiculous, as he boasts about parasitic prices and rewards. Then he leans in harder, grinning that he feeds on blood and error alike, which means the dragon he fought before. Just let him gorge on all that spilled blood. So now even the bald monk is hearing the nightmare logic of this so-called skill, because Aya paid with flesh, blood, and lifespan, while crow-like corruption took over. And the punchline? Nullification. Traded for survival, making this body the newest jackpot. Nullification tears straight through the body's foundations, and the skill hype gets nastier, while the silver-haired man clocks the absurd result without blinking, naturally impressed. Because the bandaged brat keeps bragging like parasitic pricing is some genius business plan, then casually drops the dragon detail, as if that makes the mess classy, meaning the ancient barrier at the grave hunting ground was just his appetizer, and the monastery's barrier over Ameepa gets reduced to one more flex, because yesterday's capture already proved number 3 was the real disaster. So the bald monk finally panics, demanding the 3rd secret before everything collapses, and that promise lands like a knife, sealing the host's safety as payment, while the smug parasite just smiles. Because this body is now the jackpot. The monk trap is already unraveling, and the interrogator still smirks. Inside the hospital room where the fallout starts smelling expensive, even the silver-haired witness breaks, because that confidence was pure fraud. The bald examiner finally panics, realizing the 3rd secret was the real leash, and the body on the table becomes the jackpot everyone wanted. Pathetic. Beyond the window, the sky turns blood red, announcing the barrier's collapse, while campus gossip keeps spreading, turning Yang Soyu into a walking legend. As the city barrier groans, the disaster finally starts showing its face. Even the hooded listeners admit erasing it is already too late. Once it crosses outside, it weakens, but winning still looks ugly. The stage is set, and this bratty kid wants chaos anyway, while the bag-headed boss calmly leaks the real problem over wine, because that so-called red-crowned thing sounds less royal, more demonic, and the skeptical pink-haired witness politely decides the name still sucks, until the truth drops. This was the first zero-class disaster, with bone burial site energy oozing out like a cursed punchline. The bald examiner now stares, wondering why that place even exists, as the trapped body below makes every negotiator sweat harder. Then the whole mess mutters rebirth, like failure learned resurrection, and the paper bag face finally asks, because of course, resurrection. In this cramped room, the bag-headed kid gets cornered like royalty, while the monk smugly treats resurrection as some annoying hobby, and the whole tone screams, yeah, this disaster was planned, not accidental. Then the no monk Soyu label lands, because apparently his reputation needs more absurdity, with Ong coldly explaining that this world was made for crises like this, and the victim count turns into paperwork, since nobody could force unwilling souls back, so the hidden truth finally surfaces. Death was just the polite version, while Soyu accepts the heaviest price, then refuses to run from the fight, and even Kara becomes unreachable now, which is just lovely timing, because Harani is still stuck in a dungeon, buying time nobody has. Even this sermon admits the dragon fight gets lonelier, nastier, and uglier, because now they need Soyu, paper bag and all, to survive this mess. And yes, that means being told to fight basically alone again. Charming, after 9 elites already got embarrassed. So the monk's logic is pure brutality. Soyu repeats the word alone, like has tasting the insult before answering, Then Ong's cold face says the setup was never fair, just efficient. And Soyu hears solo stage, realizing there's no backup coming whatsoever, which is when Ong gets that tiny pause, as if surprised by resistance. Because Soyu still snatches the situation midair and says even better, so the stage is ready, and stepping out becomes the only sane move. So the red carpet clownery starts, and Soyu is already done with this sermon, while the monk insists on styling the humiliation like some grand solo performance, which only makes Ong's wrinkled stare uglier, because the setup was always rigged, and Soya's face says he heard alone, and translated it into how insulting. Then that smug pause lands on Ong, because resistance from this kid is inconvenient, so the name Sungjin drops from the haze, turning the rumor into a public coronation, and suddenly everyone's staring like Soyu wasn't a hidden disciple 5 minutes ago, just a trapped student before. Now the campus headline they all want to claim, with the whole city scene swelling behind that reputation explosion, absurdly huge and unavoidable, until the lecture hall opens into the next stage, and stepping out feels inevitable. Cheongsan's emergency summit opens, and Ong starts the sermon, like this is holy theater. Outside, the spotlight joke lands. Because subtlety died somewhere near the monastery gate, Soyu answers with that smug, main character energy, and the room instantly hates him. Ong's face tightens, realizing this kid's defiance is already becoming a problem. Then the Sungjin name drops, and the hidden disciple rumor gets coronated publicly. Ong coolly pushes tomorrow's gathering, like warning Soyu is somehow doing him a favor. The hall fills with noble monks, all pretending this catastrophe is not about Seonyo. Soyu just sits there, expression flat, as if humiliation is beneath his subscription tier. Even the loftiest faces start sweating, because denying the situation is embarrassingly impossible. Luckily, old hands around them already know how to survive this nonsense. Support division crowds in, still reeling from Soyu's impossible little glow-up, while tactics division watches the rumor machine spin into full public humiliation, and the whole hall turns into a strategy meeting where everyone loudly overcommits until one arrogant name gets dragged forward. And the room decides on the obvious answer, the former special unit survivor, Fairy King. So naturally, the legend starts flexing, as the private property sign, the forest gate, and the butterfly aura scream exclusivity. Then an entire crowd begs him back, proving desperation ages monks faster than time, but the golden-winged child basically tells them to go home, casually devastating their pride. Even the support division clowns admit the fairy rumor is somehow still not working, and the baby monk just stares at the floating butterflies, already chosen. Fairy King, the skill-made legend, gets introduced like a walking monopoly on butterflies. Retiring after Jin Chobam and Noah Evans died, he vanished behind private property signs and mountains. With the first two gone, the monastery starts panicking, because they need him back badly. So the crowd suggests a honey trap, which is hilarious, considering their dignity already left. They even insult his taste, mocking how his fairy skill and expensive preferences clash. Then they corner Yang Soyu, begging him to persuade that lonely boy Destiny like it's easy. He finally agrees, and the paper bag kid's comeback suddenly boosts every envelope nearby. Back inside, monks cheer his promise, proving rumors travel faster than sermons ever could. Yang Soyu stares at the bag-headed believer. Stunned, they expected refusal from him. And of course, his expression says the same thing. You all really misread him. The paper bag kid is still the monastery's newest obsession, and somehow that ridiculous hood only makes the rumor circus louder, while the gathered students stand frozen, already treating him like a legend, because now they're picking pretty faces to sweet-talk the Fairy King, classy as ever. Then the blonde poster boy gets dragged into the explanation, and wow, he's just collateral. Since this miracle land belongs to a major patron, not some random forest, and that patron's library funding ties the whole absurd setup together. So when the surgery story drops, the crowd instantly panics over his missing grandson, revealing the transplant worked, but the poor kid stayed hospitalized far too long, which is exactly why they've arrived here, still asking where he actually is. Behind the private property sign, the Fairy King's border drama starts, as students holler over the legend, and the poster boy gets showcased. Then the crowd gasps at his tragic lone fighter branding, because apparently, using Sungjin's skill makes him noble now. What a convenient glow-up, and the louder they praise his solo battle, the harder everyone simpers, while his clasped hands and deadpan stare sell saintly confidence like a scam. Then the Fairy King itself finally snaps, demanding the intruder's identity. As the boy freezes, still looking like calm, is his entire personality. So the bag-headed guide cuts through the nonsense and orders everyone back, because hell handled the meeting himself. And yes, the legend keeps growing. The rumor mob freezes up, because the bag-headed prodigy looks terrifyingly famous already. Now the crowd keeps buzzing, feeding his lone fighter legend like amateurs chasing clout. So one grab later, he benches the talkative pest and politely threatens silence. That little flex lands near the forest gate, where the weirdly noble aura deepens. Even the paper bag saint gets praised again, as if obedience equals destiny. Then the fairy king tests him, while the mystery child just radiates calm menace. The guide cuts in, shielding him from the spotlight and absolute social disaster, but the gossip keeps mutating, turning one warning into a full-on hell prophecy. Still, the brown-haired kid deadpans that the fairy king already knows his name, and somehow that makes the ridiculous legend stick even harder, which is annoying. Deep in the forest gate, the paper bag prodigy gets warned to stay hidden. Of course, the warning only makes him look even more suspiciously important. Then comes his stupidly heroic promise to harvest corn and send plenty, because apparently even masked monks can sound like destiny wearing dirt. A brown-haired student wanders in, greeting him like this is normal gossip. And the moment Yang Soya's name gets dropped, the rumor machine explodes. He even gets asked if he is eating corn, like that matters. He answers yes, then casually doubles down on shipping the harvest. The forest fairies accept it with eerie calm, as if he belongs. So the masked legend leaves with a follower, and a bigger myth. Yang Soyu stands there like a sealed monster, and campus gossip starts sweating, because even a clingy tease knows his name now. And it lands like gossip artillery. Then some reckless idiot hurls that name into the air, and the room instantly panics, with startled students snapping toward him as if fame itself just kicked the door in, while his face stays absurdly calm, proving this legend is growing way too fast. And the backlit silhouette only makes him look richer, colder, and more annoyingly special. As everyone keeps calling out to him, he treats the chaos like it is scheduled. Then the tunnel-like darkness turns frantic, with people shouting to move, run, and not stall, while a tiny blonde kid with a backpack insists there is no time for hesitation, so the whole crew dives onward, straight into whatever nightmare is waiting below. Monk Horan gets named like a headline, and the room instantly perks up, because 3 confirmed members means Horan, Kara, and that hidden mystery man, while the investigation team trudges through caves, looking like overworked nerds on parole. And poor Horan's rumor is already mutating into some dramatic resurrection nonsense. Then he calmly promises to return, as if this chaos was scheduled, while the coordinators beg him back to Cheongsan, proving teleport logistics are a joke. One veteran finally realizes the entrance coordinates have vanished, which is lovely, because the team has been using that route for food runs all along, and now every shortcut is dead, every limit is exposed, and the smugness evaporates, leaving the whole operation stranded, erased, and one bad decision away from disaster. The scholars are already collapsing from exhaustion, and Horan's weekly escape run keeps going anyway, while the camp route glares ahead like a joke, promising the entrance only after a few more miserable hours, and the so-called experts are now reduced to panic chatter, which is adorable when nobody knows the map, because even the loudmouths start mocking the nerd brigade, acting brave right up until reality bites. Then the whole line keeps sprinting through the cave like livestock on deadline, following desperation instead of dignity, until someone corners Horan about fear and the coming Red Crown disaster, and he admits the obvious, because that woman's first appearance already cost him family, so bravery is not exactly on the menu. Still, he confesses he is terrified, which is refreshingly honest for once, unlike the usual hero nonsense, but then he shrugs it off with the worst survival logic imaginable, saying he only has to outrun the woman, because in his world, surviving a bear just means letting it eat everyone else first. The cave crew hears the fast-footed show-off announce a dramatic escape. Naturally, while someone else mocks his lazy past, pretending exercise suddenly mattered, and the whole squad keeps marching deeper, because dignity died back at the entrance. Then the path is gone, proving the collapse was real and horribly inconvenient, so the monk wonders if it happened naturally, which is a very suspicious question, because the only exit now sits behind a rubble wall, with panic on standby, yet Soyu just studies the distance, reading the disaster like a classroom quiz. Then his hand finds the stone. And the legendary punchline is the rock is soft, meaning this smug escape plan only works if Soyu tears reality open. The rumor storm hits hard, and even the paper bag disguise cannot hide Soyu, while the others panic over bedrock, acting like geology just became personal. Then one monk volunteers a shield, because apparently bravery now comes with caveats, but Soyu shrugs off the risk, calling distance the only real limiter, and that smug confidence lands beautifully, because his face says this is easy. Next comes the hand sign, 2 arrowheads, then a sudden correction to 3, which would sound ridiculous anywhere else, except here reality clearly obeys him, so the dark-haired fighter locks in, green power flaring like a problem, and Soyu keeps pressing forward, turning panic into another public legend. The pressure finally snaps as Soya's palm drives through pure white force, and even the smug fighters freeze, because that face is getting ridiculous again. Then the lake detonates into a clean blue rupture, like reality flinched, while the water keeps shredding apart, proving the limiter was never strength. And there's Horan, standing in the blast like this was always his spotlight, because the so-called white flame just streaks across the night with zero resistance, which lands perfectly as Cheongsan unveils its third special unit member, leaving the surviving kids to celebrate outside, acting shocked they made it through, and Soyu, of course, looks thrilled while ordering the next movement reset. A tiny pink petal flickers in, and young Soya's brows spike instantly, Hez already guessing cherry blossoms nearby, because subtlety never survives his brain. Then another petal lands, and the kid's eyes go full alarm mode. Across the yard, a ridiculous flower blast erupts, swallowing the whole scene. Even the paper bag sham isn't helping. He's staring like reality got sloppy. The monks start yelling warnings, turning panic into a masterpiece of useless confidence. Bodies scatter through the white void, while Soyu hangs there like a bad omen. One battered examiner drops hard, because the trap just got embarrassingly serious. Soya's stare hardens through the static, and now the ambush feels doomed. See, the paper bag loser gets launched, because discipline finally has teeth. Then red petals turn the sky into a blood-colored disaster. Very tasteful, while one stunned student starts realizing the rumor monster has a face, and the whole campus mutters about Horan's pots like that fixes anything. Soyu shrugs off the chaos, buying replacements with monastery money, obviously. Then a bird smacks him mid-thought, because nature hates confidence, and suddenly the courtyard erupts in flapping pink stupidity everywhere. The masked idiot keeps asking why the bird stays attached, helplessly, until Soyu lands the final insult, and the bird falls in love. The paper-bagged prodigy keeps the whole courtyard gagged, even before his name detonates, because one glimpse of Soyu turns campus gossip into full-blown religious panic. Now Horan's reveal only pours gasoline on the rumor fire, naturally. While the sky turns pristine, someone casually remarks the weather is nice. Then Soyu jokes that this was how they skipped missions for fun, like crowding sight end runs and side jobs at gravegrounds for pocket money. All that changed after Chobam died, and the mood gets razor thin. Soyu answers with a tiny, deadly, yeah, like he owns the sun, and the sky answers back by descending in a red-crowned disaster.